So hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if neglected Naruto Descendant of the Kurama. If you guys enjoy this, what if? Comment down below. And let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content. And leave a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And also share this video with your friends. And check out the description. And check out my playlist. So let's start the video. Chapter 1, Son of a Bitch. What the hell happened? Asked Naruto mentally, his head swimming and unfocused as he opened his bleary eyes, coming upon the side of a creamy white-colored ceiling. Blinking a bit more in an attempt to focus his eyes, Naruto shook his head before raising a single arm to cover his forehead, allowing some slight amount of shade to cover his eyes from the sunlight permitting through the curtains to his right. What? Curtains? Since when did I have curtains? I basically lived either in the training fields or the mountain training field. Questioned Naruto, his eyes adjusting slightly as the seconds flew by. Having enough strength in his body, Naruto removed his arm from his forehead before using it, along with his other hand, to push himself up from the soft mattress below him, before staring straight ahead towards a full-length mirror, pointed towards the bed he laid in. Looking into the mirror where sat a blonde spiky-haired 7-year-old with cerulean blue eyes, Naruto gave the person in the mirror a rather blank look for a few moments before raising his right hand up to cover his mouth as he let out a tired yawn. Wonder who the Yondaime lookalike is. Thought Naruto, scratching his face slightly as he watched the person in the mirror follow his exact movement. It wasn't a few seconds later that Naruto snapped his eyes completely wide open before opening his mouth in pure shock. What the hell, Dadabeo? Screamed the now blonde 7-year-old as he blasted off his bed before standing in front of the mirror, moving his hands all around his body before falling silent. Shaking his head, Naruto gave himself a confident nod of the head before closing his eyes. Ninjutsu? Pretty solid one, but still a. So, with a little bit of yin energy I should easily. Why is it so hard to feel, let alone use it? Asked Naruto, his eyebrows raising up his head as he began to search for his yin and yang energies, along with his yin-yang energy pool. It was safe to say that he found it. But all three of his pools were a lot smaller in size. Hell, his yin-yang pool was so small that Naruto doubted his healing factor was able to work, let alone activate. Glaring at the mirror within his room, wait. When was it his room? Never mind the room he currently occupied, Naruto began to feel out his chakra. Before widening his eyes. By chakra? No. The chakra passed down from the original chakra source. It's there. And massive. What the hell is going on here? Where is my chakra? Shouted Naruto internally, his eyes glaring at the mirror, only for said eyes to turn red and slitted slightly. When Naruto saw this, his anger diminished entirely as a sudden thought ran through his head. Kurama? You there, buddy? Shouted Naruto mentally, only to suddenly feel a very large headache and pain run through his body. Grasping his head with his two hands, Naruto shut a single eye before gnashing his teeth together in an attempt to deal with the pain. Soon the pain died down, only for Naruto to release a painful gasp as he fell back down to his bed. Raising a hand over his face, Naruto released a sigh before clenching his fist. Kurama? I know you're there, buddy. Come on. Did Kitty-chan steal your pillow or something again? Asked Naruto, only to suddenly watch his vision change into that of a dark sewer-like area. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto glanced around before looking forwards where a large, and he meant large cage stood before him. Behind said cage was a set of two crimson slit orbs which he was familiar with. Rushing towards the gate, Naruto smiled before waving a hand. Yo. Kurama. You know what's going on and why I'm a blonde-haired child. Where are the others as well? Did Matatabi and Asobu leave along with Gyuki back there or something? Asked Naruto, a storm of questions being sent towards the being behind the gate which sat there silently. Eventually, Naruto got close enough to the cage before feeling something off. When he glanced around. What happened to my Mindscape? Did I get attacked by a rogue Yamanaka or something? Maybe it was Danzo or someone. No. Danzo isn't this good. Must be an unknown. Muttered Naruto, his voice slightly serious as he glared at the sewer water that reached up to his shins before staring towards the crimson slit eyes once more. Naruto, not hearing the fox's voice was beginning to cause a very disturbing feeling rush through his spine. After all, he and the old fuzzball had been friends for well over a year after he returned to reconnect his chakra with him, so this silent Kurama was rather odd. And it didn't give him a good feeling. Walking right up towards the cage bars, Naruto lowered his head slightly before tensing his muscles slightly. Kurama? That you, buddy? Asked Naruto, only to watch as the crimson orbs narrowed slightly. Before a large orange hand was sent hurling towards him from above. Seeing this, Naruto slammed his hands down into the water before glaring upwards. Fuin. Water binding. Shouted Naruto as the torrents of sewer water rose up, being guided by a black liquid before covering the Bijuu's hand entirely before freezing in place, still in its liquid form. Seeing as how one of Kurama's hands were occupied now, Naruto rushed through the gates, his eyes shining within the darkness before he made the mindscape light up, showing the glaring and savage visage of Kurama's face as he expelled large amounts of killing intent against Naruto, only for it to not affect him in the slightest. Rushing towards Kurama, Naruto quickly stood in front of him before pointing towards him. "Kurama. What's going on here? Didn't the whole I promised to not squash an insect like yourself if you make my pillow even softer deal settle your little squash ninja game stop this? What's the matter with you Kurama?" asked Naruto, his voice carrying all around and booming all over the inside of the cage. The simply glared further before sending a large surge of killing intent towards Naruto, once more only to fail to even faze him in the slightest. "How dare you, ninja? Speaking my name without my permission. How you even knew of my name means nothing. Stop talking as if I and you were friends. I'll kill you. You aren't even a tiny fraction of me however." Before they could continue, Naruto narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean Kurama? We've been friends for over a year. Remember the whole ninja thing? Where the two of us first met? What happened Kurama, why have you regressed back into your hateful self? Sure I knew you wanted to get out of both Mito and Kasumi. But after we formed a link with Ninja you started to show your true self, the smart sarcastic bastard I called and still call my friend. What's going on Kurama?" shouted Naruto, his blue eyes staring directly towards Kurama's own crimson slit ones, which had widened themselves in shock before they narrowed once more. "Ninja? How do you know of ninja you piece of human trash?" shouted, ignoring everything else other than his father's teaching. Seeing this, Naruto widened his eyes in shock. "Why you don't remember Kurama? What happened to make you forget that?" asked Naruto, his voice barely over a whisper but still audible to Kurama who glared down towards Naruto. "I asked you a question, human. Tell your betters what they seek," responded Kurama, his voice booming around the cage, causing Naruto to widen his eyes for a fraction of a second before slowly shutting themselves, basking Naruto in the darkness beneath his eyelids. "Yes. I'll just have to show you Kurama once more. I'll recreate the link between us using Ninshu," muttered Naruto as he opened his eyes, showing a fire burning within them as he disappeared from his position and appeared on Kurama's snout. Placing his hands down on said snout, Naruto moved his chakra through his tiny body before sending it into Kurama's chakra, causing the chakra beast to widen his eyes in shock before he felt his own chakra connect with Naruto's. And like that, a surge of memories ran through both Naruto and Kurama's head, each showing the other their memories over their life. And in Kurama's case, he was re-watching his life from when another Kurama's memories entered Naruto's head. All in all, the two beings sat in silence for what seemed like an eternity before Naruto moved his hand away from Kurama's snout, his eyes wide with shock as he fell backwards and onto the sour water below. Floating slightly above the water, which hadn't let him sink and smash the floor from when he fell, Naruto could only open and close his mouth for a few moments in complete shock. "I'm the son of the Yondaime-sama and Kushina-sama. And I'm the brother of both Mito and Kasumi. Along with the supposed demon of the hidden leaf since I hold Kurama's essence and consciousness. What the hell happened to me for this to happen?" muttered Naruto in complete shock as his eyes roamed towards Kurama, who was now staring down towards Naruto in utter shock. How could a human such as yourself be so willing to help us?" muttered Kurama, causing Naruto to shake his head and smile for a moment. "You've seen Kurama. You've gotten all of my memories. Like how you still have my trust. Even if you aren't the same Kurama as I know. You are one who is similar to the fuzzball I have come to enjoy having as a friend. So, it's great to meet you Kurama. If that's what you allow me to call you now," replied Naruto with a small grin, gaining a nod from Kurama as he lowered his head towards Naruto. Fine. I allow you to call me by my name Naruto," spoke the, causing Naruto to slowly raise a single fist upwards before grinning. "Sweet," returned Naruto before looking around the area of his mindscape. "Welp. Time for some spring cleaning." Then, shutting his eyes, the space around both Naruto and Kurama began to change. Soon what was once a sewer was now an open white plain with a large blue sky, filled with snow-white orbs floating upwards at a slow pace. However, unlike Naruto's original mindscape, there was a section within the space where the sounds of a group of rushing water were not all that far away. Turning towards Kurama, who now had a massive fluffy pillow below him once again, or in this case the first time, Naruto gave a grin and thumbs up before narrowing his eyes slightly as he walked towards the energy pools. When he finally reached said energy pools, Naruto could only give the massive blue one, which had been connected to the orange and silver ones a glare, before giving a grin. "Well. Tsurugi did say that if I had done the whole separate chakra thing, I would have had a larger chakra pool originally. If I had used the pool, I had to provide energy for my own chakra to grow. Well. I guess I can finally use the whole technique thing I guess," muttered Naruto with a grin as he shoved his right hand into the large blue pool of energy, which was falling off down towards the waterfall below, before snapping his eyes shut as he moved his left hand towards the direction of the two yin and yang energy pools. Focusing on his energy, Naruto willed the two separate pools, with the yang one being easier to grasp as it was larger, before connecting the two energies with himself. Once that was done, Naruto turned his attention, while maintaining the yin-yang link, before forcing his body to surge the yin-yang energy into the blue chakra energy pool. As he did this, Naruto remembered the feeling of his own chakra, the white essence that he had before he woke up as a 7-year-old. And as the feeling ran throughout his body, the water slowly began to change from a blue color to a pure white one. Downside to this however was the massive pool, seeming to shrink slightly, as more and more of the blue energy began to disappear. While this was going on, Naruto began to focus as much as a 7-year-old child could, while maintaining his own internal energies, using his past experience to compensate the lack of control, before causing two separate bits of the yin and yang energy pools to escape from the main pools, before creating a smaller one in between all three energies, causing a similar shape of a triangle with a single dot in the middle to represent his energy pools. While this was going on, Kurama couldn't help but watch with a keen eye as the 7-year-old, or more correctly 16-year-old, stuck in a 7-year-old's body, began to change his own energy, forming and creating his chakra to be unique to only him and not at all connected to that of the original chakra user Kaguya, who then passed on her chakra to Hagoromo, who then passed his chakra on to everyone else, causing everyone who had chakra to be linked to that of the original users. It took a while, but before long the once massive blue raging pool was replaced with a calm and easy flowing white pool. However, another difference between the two pools was the sheer size, as the original blue was a massive amount, being enough to fill a small river, while the white one was only able to fill a small lake. However, even then the white energy began to fall down the waterfall in a calm manner, continuously flowing without any restraint. And when Naruto saw this, he couldn't help but jump internally, as he managed to pull something that no one other than himself had done. When he was 14-15. Removing his hand from the now white pool and disconnecting his link to his yin and yang energies, Naruto began to stand up before walking towards the small yin-yang pool he had created before grinning. The pool was nothing more than a small puddle in size and was probably only a bucket deep. But that didn't stop Naruto from dunking his head into the energy, feeling the combined properties of both energies rushing through his head, causing a massive smile on his face as he removed his head from the little hole, which had increased ever so slightly. Giving his energy pools a quick once over, mentally noticing that his yang pool was larger than his yin by quite a bit, Naruto gave himself a nod before walking towards the massive fox, who was now grinning towards him. Yes, I should be amazed at the feat you provided just then. But seeing a better 16-year-old version of you using said feat makes this look like a little 2-year-old water-changing experiment. Spoke the fox, causing Naruto to simply cross his arms and turn his head away as he gave Kurama a wink. But, I am only 7 years old, so I will be able to become even more amazing by the time that I reach my old age. Besides, this could be a blessing in disguise. I guess as if I truly am stuck here in this body, I could easily surpass my old strength within a few years. But the difference between the current me and the old me is the lack of muscle memory, along with having to relearn my skills to suit my body. And then there is also all the kenjutsu skills I have to remaster and learn. Muttered Naruto as he gazed upward slightly before moving his eyes back down towards Kurama with a serious gaze. But aside from the whole needing to retrain just about everything, there is also the whole Danzo, Orochimaru and Akatsuki situation that may appear, seeing as how I don't exactly know what's going on in this place. At least however I got some information on all their abilities and how they work. Finished Naruto with his arms loosening slightly before falling towards Naruto's waist, where he then placed them against his hip slightly. Glancing upwards, Naruto released a small sigh as he felt a presence near his body. Giving the large fox a small wave, Naruto began to disappear in a flicker. See you later, Kurama. Spoke Naruto as he disappeared, causing the fox to nod its head slightly before lowering its head on the massive pillow provided by Naruto. Hey, at least now he got a pillow to sleep on. Along with no sour water wetting his fur. Naruto's room. Blinking slightly, Naruto released a fake yawn, making sure to seem like he had just woken up to whoever was within his apparent room, before blinking out slightly at the sight of the fourth Hokage's wife standing there with a glare on her face. Scratching his head slightly, Naruto tilted his head to the right. Yes Kushika-chan? Asked Naruto, quickly fixing his mistake as he continued to stare towards Kushina's glare, which only increased in size slightly as the seconds went by. However, it wasn't long before the red deed gained a twitch within her eye as she stalked closer and closer towards Naruto, who was beginning to curl back towards his bed's headrest in fear. What is this evil aura I feel around her? I hadn't felt such a thing at all in my life. Screamed Naruto mentally as he felt a bead of sweat begin to trickle down his forehead as the red-haired demon got closer and closer towards him. feigning a demented smile on her face, which was easily fake from the whole red aura extruding from her. Kushina chuckled slightly. Naruto-kun, muttered Kushina, her fake smile widening as her eyes focused on Naruto's slightly shivering form. Okami, help him. Why was this woman suddenly so scary, damn it? Screamed Naruto in absolute fear as he fell off his bed and began to crawl towards the back of his room wall. Feeling the cold hard surface of a wall behind him, Naruto mentally had tears dripping down his face as he watched the image of a familiar nine-tailed demon fox appear over Kushina's head. Kurama, you bastard. Why the hell does Kushina-sama have a Kyuubi as a fucking aura projection? Shouted Naruto as he watched the woman move a single pale hand forwards toward him. Naruto-kun, muttered Kushina once more, her voice sounding like a demon's as her smile widened even further as she moved her pale hand forwards. And like a snake, she suddenly had his shirt, which was a simple white-colored one with an emblem on the right side of his chest, before dragging his face and body towards her own. "YYSKK Kakashi-chan?" asked Naruto, not being able to stop his stuttering as he gazed into the violet eyes of his mother. Widening the sickly smile even further, Kushina brought Naruto's face just a centimeter apart from her own. Before pulling Naruto's body over her shoulder and throwing him outside the window. "You're late for school," rang out Kushina's voice as Naruto was sent flying towards the academy building. Watching as the building came into view, Naruto couldn't help but sweat drop at the thought of Kushina doing this often to his body, causing it to become second nature to her. "Oh, this is going to hurt. At least I can now regenerate a bit," thought Naruto in a deadpan tone as he watched the open window of an academy room coming into view. Chapter 2. So far so good. Kushina-sama seems to have a great aim. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing considering the woman had 3 kids and was ripped out from her gullet only 7 years ago. Thought Naruto with a blank tone as his sight set upon the open academy window that seemed to taunt him as he flew through the air towards the academy. Narrowing his blue eyes, Naruto's mind quickly went back towards his imbalanced internal energies before relaxing his features. It means that the Uzumaki bloodline gives the user a stronger yang energy as they grow, resulting in the whole large chakra reserves with little to no natural chakra control. Guess I am going to have to relearn or rather reattain my chakra control. And considering the size difference, I think it will only take a few hours for me to gain control over both tree walking and leaf spinning. Maybe water walking if my current chakra reserves can hold up. Thought Naruto as he stared towards the window that was nothing more than a few mere feet away from him. Oh well. That's something I can work on. Muttered Naruto under his breath before quickly spinning into a flip so that his feet hooked onto the window sill before moving his arms up to catch the edge of the window, allowing him to firmly crouch inside the window space. Okay. Successful landing. Now to thud. Stopping his thought, Naruto slowly moved his eyes upwards for a moment before moving his left arm and hand up towards his forehead, before lightly pressing it against the center of his forehead, before letting out a rather slow blink. Did I just get hit by an eraser or something? Questioned Naruto before glancing back down from his forehead and out towards the classroom, where a laughing black-haired child sat with a few people around him. Feigning a twitch within his eye, Naruto moved his hand back out towards the window side, before using a small amount of chakra to break a piece off from the wooden frame, before flicking said piece at the kid, getting him directly on the forehead, causing the boy to stare at him after holding his forehead in slight pain. "What the hell, dope? You can't do that to me. I am a human and your master," shouted the boy, causing all those in the classroom to snap their attention towards Naruto, who was now giving the kid a confused look. Dropping down from the window and into an empty chair that happened to be next to the window, Naruto gave the black-haired kid, who was now glaring at him, a small chuckle before scratching his head. Sure kid. Whatever you say," replied Naruto with a small grin as he sat in his seat with his arms crossed firmly around his chest. That was until he suddenly had his head smashed onto the desk with a brown-haired man slapping a seal onto the back of his neck, which began to glow for a few moments. Glaring down towards the child who held the essence of the Kyuubi, Iruka couldn't deny the small bit of joy he felt as he dug his fingers into the child's head before slamming it down into the desk. He knew he would feel bad, after all, the child who held the beast's consciousness and essence couldn't live their life now, most likely torturing his spirit and trying to take control over him. But even then, just knowing that he could get some of his hatred out felt good. Holding the kid's head down, Iruka watched as the seal he slapped onto the Yondame's kid's neck glowed for a moment before dismissing down completely. Seeing that, he relaxed before letting go of the now pissed off Naruto, who was only just getting his brain and thoughts under control. Clenching his fists for a moment as he walked towards the front of the classroom, Iruka let out a loud audible sigh before turning around and facing his classroom, which was now in a flurry of sound as people around the room began to talk about how the demon got his rightful deserves. However, when he moved over his eyes towards said demon, Iruka felt a massive chill ride up his spine as he caught sight of Naruto glaring at him, his twin blue eyes seemingly changing their color between cerulean blue and crimson red, only for him to blink before they stayed their same shade of blue. Moving his eyes away once more and coughing into his hand, gaining the attention of nobody but Naruto, who was now grinning at him evilly, which once again had given him a shiver up his spine once again. Feigning a twitch, the man closed his eyes for a second before snapping them wide open, revealing the face of a crossbreed of Naruto and the dreaded nine-tailed fox, holding the same black-haired kid from before by the throat, with a savage and psychotic grin resting upon his face as he stared directly at him with crimson eyes. "Murderer!" Someone screamed, the pitch of their voice seemingly breaking and reaching high volumes, with the pitch being something that wanted to make you tear out your ears due to the sheer pain it inflicted. However, when Iruka shut his eyes once again and opened them up, he came upon the sight of the frightened eyes of all his students, simply staring at him as he was now holding a kunai up and releasing a wave of killing intent unconsciously. But when Iruka scanned the room, his eyes once again met Naruto's, who was now giving the teacher a curious stare. Tucking the kunai back into his pocket, Iruka let out a small chuckle before smiling sheepishly towards the students. "Ah no, sorry about that everyone. I recently had some personal problems come up and it still hurts to think about it. Anyway, seeing as how you are midway through your year, I am sure you all are very excited to begin learning about how, as civilians, you can contribute to your village without having to fight on the front lines like a shinobi. Now, I am well aware that your teacher Mr. Kazumana had to take a day off so that he could be with his wife in the hospital while she gives birth. Luckily I happened to be there in Hokage-sama's office when he got the letter, as I volunteered to teach you all for the day. Anyway, my name is Iruka. Glad to meet you all," spoke Iruka, causing all those within the class to stare up at the man with awe after being told he was a shinobi. And since he was simply wearing a business shirt and some trousers, not many could even tell he was a ninja, aside from Naruto of course, he had felt the man's strength as his head was shoved down into his desk. Speaking of Naruto, the blonde-haired teen was now blankly staring at Iruka with a look that said complete and utter brain meltdown. Before snapping his eyes wide open and slamming his hands down onto his table, causing everyone to snap their attention towards him. "What the hell am I doing in a civilian school? I should be in a ninja academy, damn it," shouted Naruto as he felt his body pump more blood through his body for a few moments before calming down and relaxing. Seeing this, the people within the room snickered for a few moments before outright laughing. "Oh man. The dope thought that this was the Shinobi Academy. Man. For Yondaime-sama to have a son this dumb. My kami," laughed out a girl, causing Naruto to simply stare in shock as he glanced around the room. "How the hell didn't I notice this before? Is it due to the sheer difference between my yang and yin energies, causing my thoughts to run wild before any thought gets through? Damn it. I have to fix this. I can actually feel the difference now that I actually think about it. The yang energy, my body's energy, is running too fast compared to my yin energy. Come on Hayabusa. Get your head into gear, force your yin energy to come into play for now," shouted Naruto internally as he brought out his yin energy from the energy pool before fixing a large amount of it into his head, allowing his brain to follow and keep up with his sheer thoughts and actions. Shaking his head and ignoring the snickers continuing to run throughout the classroom, Naruto released a small sigh before looking back up towards Iruka with a serious expression on his face. "Iruka-sensei. You're a shinobi. How come I'm not in the Shinobi Academy? I mean, I am the son of Yondaime, right? So why aren't I there?" asked Naruto, causing Iruka to blanch slightly before releasing a tired sigh before giving Naruto a blank stare. "I don't know how you could forget about your disability. But you have no chakra, Naruto-san. Even your body was extremely weak to a point that you would get sick constantly and have random spills. And then there were the psychotic switches you had where you nearly killed your own sisters at the age of 3. You simply weren't fit to be a shinobi," replied Iruka, causing Naruto to stare at Iruka in shock before shaking his head and giving the man a glare. "You stuttered towards the end of your statement, meaning I hadn't in fact hurt my sisters. However, there is truth in your words about the first and second reason. Iruka-sensei. Should I be able to prove to you that I am fit to become a shinobi, will you transfer me into the academy school?" asked Naruto, causing the man to glare slightly before shaking his head. "Sorry, Naruto-san. But I don't have the jurisdiction to allow that. No, you would have to ask your father to allow you entry into the academy with your 2 sisters. Aside from that, you will not be able to enter. Also, tell me this, how is it you knew about that small fib?" asked a man, causing Naruto to glare slightly before grinning. "A shinobi is the master of deceit. You won't get anything from me, Iruka-san," replied Naruto with a pleasant smile upon his face before turning his head over towards the still slightly opened window where he stared out into the buildings with a bored look. "I should start to increase my yin energy while I'm here in class. I should be able to convince Hokage-sama to allow me entry into the Shinobi Academy, but first I have to get through this. Thought Naruto with a blank tone before closing his eyes slightly. Time to get to work. Mumbled Naruto slightly as he awoke to find his mindscape with the ever-fuzzy ball named Kurama sleeping. 8 hours later, so. Bored. Kill. Me. Groaned out a tired voice as it walked across a long dirt path beside a river. Said voice had originally groaned out the same thing when he went through the front gates of the civilian school named Ha Academy. Literally meaning Leaf Academy. Shoving his hands down his pockets. Of his sleepwear which he still had on him from when Kushina sent through him from his bedroom window directly into Ha Academy earlier in the day, Naruto raised his head up towards the partly orange sky before releasing a small tired sigh. After having a little under 7 complete days to increase his yin energy a bit, lucky for him, he actually managed to do a decent amount, only due to him having used his energy and mastered it before. He would have had 7 complete days should he have slept through the whole day, but the blasted sensei named Iruka simply continued to hit him in the head with a chalk marker should he catch him asleep. Which technically was incorrect as he was simply awake within his mindscape, but aside from that, there were the constant irritations of other students who either tried to provoke him while he was awake or simply snapped him from his mindscape to irritate him even further. Damn it, since when were children this vicious? Sure, he practically ignored them in his world, but come on. Did he really need the torments of little children who were becoming regular villagers in regards to him being the host of Kurama's consciousness and essence? Shaking his head from the line of thought, Naruto continued on his way down the rather bored street with a bored and tired look. Mental and spiritual training were tiring to the core, considering you were screwing around with your being. But the benefits easily outweighed the rather irritating process of utilizing his yin and yang energies later on. While he was walking, Naruto suddenly snapped his head upwards as his ears caught onto a small scream, which seemed to be muffled if the whole attempt at drawing attention to the scream proved anything. Turning his eyes towards the direction of the muffled scream, Naruto narrowed his eyes at the sight of what appeared to be a few small kids gathered around a single girl within the playground he was passing before giving a glare. Turning his body towards the girl, who was being grabbed onto by one of the boys with his hand blocking her mouth, Naruto clenched his fists within his pockets before disappearing with a burst of speed, leaving a small bit of dust behind him as he charged towards the group, who didn't seem to notice him as he neared them. As he got closer, he heard their taunts towards the girl, he heard the hatred coming from the boy's voice who held her close to him. He heard how she was supposed to be his because their parents knew each other. If that didn't say family troubles, then he was going insane. Continuing his sprint, Naruto removed his fists from his pockets before he lunged forwards, sending his right fist crashing against the other boy's cheek, sending him flying away from the girl, who was now coughing as she desperately drew in air into her lungs. Landing in front of the girl in a defensive stance, Naruto gave each of the other boys there a hard crimson glare, avertedly sending shivers up their spines before stretching his neck slightly. Anyone else want a shot? Or are you all going to grab your friend there and get out of here before I send you all to the hospital? You all have 3 seconds to decide. Spoke out to Naruto in a calm tone, which seemed to scare the absolute shit out of the other boys there as they started to tremble where they stood before dashing off with tears down their eyes, their downed companion being long forgotten in favor of their own survival. Seeing them bolt off, Naruto relaxed his stance slightly before releasing a small irritated sigh before turning around towards the girl on the floor, in which he then held a hand out towards her with a small smile on his face. Yo. Name's Naruto. Nice to meet you. I mean, you seem better. Yeah, probably shouldn't have sounded so happy to meet you after what you just went through. Anyway, my name is Naruto. What's yours? Asked Naruto as he watched a girl, who had long waist-length black hair and coal black eyes, stare up at him with awe before giving out a small smile in return, along with a small giggle as she grabbed his hand. Satsuki Uchiha. Daughter of the clan leader Fugaku Uchiha. Replied the girl, causing the smile sitting on Naruto's face to momentarily change to that of a look of pure shock before returning to a grin. Well, who would have known I saved a princess at the young age of 7? Joked Naruto, causing the little girl to blush slightly before letting out a giggle as Naruto pulled her up from the ground. Patting her dark blue dress down slightly in order to get rid of the dirt on it, Satsuki moved her head up towards Naruto before giving a smile. So Naruto-kun. Do you also go to the Shinobi Academy? I mean, you easily beat that guy there with one punch and everything. Asked Satsuki, only getting the shake of a head from Naruto as he gave out a small pout. Nope. But I am going to ask my 2 cents to sign a form for the academy. But until then, I guess I could just continue to train in secret and then legally join at the age of 12. I mean, if I'm this awesome now just wait till I'm older you know. Replied Naruto with a cheeky grin, gaining a small smile from Satsuki as she nodded her head. Okay. Then where do you go to school? Asked Satsuki, causing Naruto to smile slightly. Ha Academy. Room P1 to 2. Why? asked Naruto, causing the girl to smile slightly as she gave out a giggle. "Oh, nothing. I was just making sure that it was you who came through the window today," replied Satsuki, causing Naruto to blink sheepishly for a moment before raising a single hand up to his head with a tilted look on his face. "Wait. You're in my class. But aren't you the daughter of the clan head? I thought that he would have all his children become shinobis," asked Naruto, causing the girl to smile sadly towards the floor. "That would be the case. But I was recently labeled a lost cause in regards to anything revolving around shinobi. I mean, even my twin Sasuke could already do the Uchiha coming of age fireball," replied Satsuki, causing Naruto to give a small smile slightly before raising a single hand up and chopping her head slightly with it, causing the girl to jump slightly before rubbing her head with the same hand. Keeping his eyes trained on Satsuki's own cold black eyes, Naruto gave the girl a small smile. "Well then. Do you want to be my training partner? I'm sure the two of us could get stronger together, you know," replied Naruto with his smile still in place, only to get another giggle from the girl as she nodded. "If you really want to. But, Naruto-kun," mumbled out Satsuki, causing Naruto to give the slightly smaller girl a nod. "Yes, Satsuki," replied Naruto in a curious tone as he removed his hand from her head before lowering it back down towards his sides. However, it was because of this that Naruto didn't react to the sudden movement of Satsuki, who lunged forwards and placed her lips against Naruto's cheek before pulling away and running off with a smile on her face. Watching her run with a shocked stare, Naruto came upon the side of an olive-colored woman with long black hair, gently grabbing Satsuki by the hand before walking off, but not before giving him a nod along with a wave from Satsuki. Snapping out of his shock and giving a grin, Naruto turned around before walking forwards once more. "Well, ain't that interesting?" 4 hours later, humming upon the side of the door, Naruto steadily grabbed the doorknob handle within his grasp for a moment before sucking in a bit of air for a moment before releasing it all out. "Come on, Hayabusa. It isn't going to feel odd or anything. You have this," mumbled out Naruto towards himself for a moment before giving a nod and opening the door. Listening to the near-silent sounds of the door being opened, Naruto let out a small wince that gradually grew as the door was opened further and further before eventually the whole door was wide open, with Naruto standing outside with his sleepwear still on him. "You got this," propped himself up Naruto as he walked into the house without his shoes even being on, still because he was flung out from his room, before walking towards the stairs that reached up towards the second story. Moving up the stairs cautiously and slowly, Naruto could hear voices downstairs, namely Mito and Kasumi's, who were no doubt probably arguing about something with Minato and Kushina, listening on with grins on their faces, if he would image anyway. However, just as he reached the top of the stairs, a sudden wind blew the door shut, not overly loud, but enough to tell that someone just entered. When Naruto heard that, he wanted to hit himself as his mind went back to the sudden drop of actual thinking kicked in due to his yin energy being lower than his yang energy. "Naruto. Get down here right now, Databane," came out from the kitchen, causing Naruto to shiver slightly before turning around and walking down the stairs towards the kitchen. He did not want to see Kushina-san pissed off at him again. Reaching the kitchen, where he peeked his head around the wall's corner to see what his Kachan needed, Naruto came upon the side of Kushina and Makoto, the Uchiha clan head's wife, talking to each other with smiles upon their faces, while Satsuki was watching Mito and Kasumi fighting over each other for the last bowl of ramen with a smile stuck to her face. This smile widened itself when the Uchiha girl saw the side of his face. Raising a single hand up with a large smile, the girl tilted her head. "Hey, Naru-kun." Chapter 3. "Damn it, Naru-kun. Stop cheating somehow." "I ain't cheating, damn it." "Then how are you getting these questions always right? You even guessed the Nidaime Hokage's age." "He's an old fart. It ain't my fault I knew how old he would be now." And I thought we were loud when we had ramen for dinner," muttered out a tired voice of the fourth as he glanced upwards towards the second floor, where his son and his new friend Satsuki fought over each other for the most bizarre reasons, much to the rest of the household's charging as they simply released multiple tired sighs. "Tell me about it. I haven't even managed to help Mito and Kasumi over the fear that Naruto-kun and Satsuki-chan will hurt themselves at any minute. And with Naruto's rather fragile body, it could really hurt him." Grounded out Kushina as she laid her head down on the kitchen table where Minato released a small chuckle as he stroked his wife's hair softly. "Well, I guess that's what happens when you introduce two children who simply connect with each other. They just don't know when to be quiet," replied Minato as he glanced once more up towards the ceiling, where the sound of pure silence ran through the house. When both parents heard this, the two of them snapped to attention and quickly dashed off towards Naruto's room, which the two children were huddled up in. It hadn't been over a month since Naruto and Satsuki met, and it wasn't longer that Naruto chose to stay in the civilian academy with Satsuki, which surprised the parents as they listened to him countlessly begging to enter the academy, only to be turned down due to his best interests. "Naruto. Satsuki. Are you okay?" screamed Minato as he threw open his son's bedroom door wide open, with Kushina hot on his tracks. And what did the pair get awarded with? A pie to the face each, which then slowly began to slip from their faces and onto the floor. "Oh Kami!" screamed a voice loudly, which was then soon followed by a rather deep thumping sound, along with the sounds of laughter running through the room. This laughter was soon joined by another, more feminine voice. "And then Naruto-kun. I can't breathe," squealed out a voice as the feminine owner of said voice soon fell towards the ground in a huff, joining in with the other voice, as the two Namika's parents simply stared forwards in pure shock after the surprise pie to the face. However, as soon as the shock and surprise ran out, a sudden demonic pressure was felt by the two laughing children, causing them to immediately stop their laughing and look on towards the source of the demonic power. And sure enough, a glowing red Kushina was smiling at them, causing the two to shiver. Nah. Ru. Two. Kun. Ground out Kushina in a deathly tone, deliberately making the pauses in her word as she took a step closer with each pause. Raising her hand up towards the sky slightly, Kushina gave her son a dead smile before standing directly in front of him with her demonic-like smile still in place. "Ibaka." 1 hour later. Why did you do that? I could have taken it," mumbled Satsuki as she clenched her tiny hands into a fist. Staring down towards Naruto's face, Satsuki could only release a small sigh of irritation as she glared down towards the blonde-haired 7-year-old lying in bed with a massive swell propped up on his head as he laid there in silence. "Aka. Now what am I supposed to do? You've been asleep for hours and I haven't been able to do anything but study since Kachan and Tusen were busy. And Kushina-sen said that because of the prank she wouldn't take me home," rumbled out Satsuki in a soft tone as she moved a single hand around Naruto's face for a moment, making sure to rub the whisker mark sitting upon his face as she did so, which was secretly one of her favorite pastimes, before moving her hand up towards the now purple bump sitting upon his head. Well, the two bumps since the idiot jumped in front of her to stop Kushina-sen's hit to the head, thus resulting in two super-powered punches to Naruto's frail body, something that immediately caused Kushina to call for a doctor to help him. Sadly, the doctors and medical ninjas were all busy, which caused them to personally check over all his medical staff to see how they could be understaffed to a point they couldn't spare a single medical nin or doctor to help check up on their fragile son. Moving her hand once more around Naruto's face, Satsuki let out a single tear due to how terrified she was at seeing Naruto's rather lifeless eyes once Kushina was about to smack her on the head, only for him to take the hit. It was like a light switched off as he fell onto the floor. And it was so frightening to a point that something had come out of the event. Her two crimson eyes holding a single tomo. Sitting on her chair beside the bed, Satsuki moved to lower her head down towards Naruto's heart, where the soft patter of heartbeats hit her ears as she continued to gaze towards Naruto's sleeping face. Narrowing her crimson eyes at him once more, the girl softly rubbed her head on his chest. "You're my only friend since I was considered a failure in just about everything revolving around being a ninja, and because I'm from a clan of ninjas. That makes me an outcast. Only my mother and older brother don't see me as a disgrace. And if my twin knew what disgrace was, I'm pretty sure he would look at me like that as well," cried the girl silently as she rested her head on Naruto's chest, with her long hair fanning out over Naruto's and her body as she laid there in silence. "Okay. I would even feel bad if I did this to someone," muttered Kurama as he glanced over towards a silent Naruto who was sitting within his yin energy pool with a look of grief on his face as he continued to manually increase his yin release so that it would match up towards his now only slightly larger yang energy. Not breaking his position, Naruto's face continued to hold the grief-like position it was stuck in. "I know, Kurama. And I do feel bad. I could have easily healed the damages Kushina's hand left me, but I didn't take into the consideration of how fragile this body is, even with a large amount of yang energy it possessed. I underestimated this form since in my body I was easily able to survive a bisection and even have my skin strong enough to block rather weak kunai slashes and ninjutsu attacks. I guess I was just used to how my body could literally survive anything should I have any energy left within me," spoke Naruto, his voice running through the mindscape as he sat within his yin energy without the slightest of movements as he floated in the silverish energy. Huffing, Kurama continued to lie down on his pillow. "Well, from what I've seen, that line of thought is acceptable since I have seen it through your memories. After all, taking on Shikaku at the age of 13, surviving a literal bloodbath gained from Danzo and his cronies. And then there was the whole training from those pesky falcons and finally, to top it all off, the leader of Akatsuki you killed. If anyone would have a decent enough reason to be overconfident, it would most definitely be you," replied Kurama as his mind briefly went back over towards the encounters he spoke of, one of which was Naruto walking away from the Yahiko pain body which was being burned to ashes. Still floating slightly in his yin energy, the blonde child mentally nodded. "But even then, it was arrogance at the fact that I should have been able to heal what caused Satsuki here such stress. Not only did I forget that due to the excess amount of yang energy, which is nearly perfectly matched with my yin energy, I also forgot that my yin-yang energy pool is still nowhere near as large enough to automatically heal me at instant speeds. Either way, I can always improve my capacity as I have a longer amount of time to train in my energy than when I did before. Either way, I don't even know if the Akatsuki are even around in this place, or if they are even evil like before. Thought Naruto as he simply directed his yin and yang energies, while also increasing his yin energy, into a combined pool that sat just behind the white chakra pool that was cascading down in a waterfall-like fashion. Rolling his eyes beneath his closed eyelids, Kurama released a tired sigh. From what I saw through your and the other Kurama's memories, nearly everything is exactly the same. So there is a large chance that Akatsuki is here. Reality, I guess. And although the memories were nearly identical, there shouldn't be anything else changing. Best bet, Brad. Continue to train and hope that Akatsuki won't become a pain in the ass for you. Grumbled out Kurama before falling silent, leaving a rather happy Naruto as he slowly opened his eyes, showing a crimson set within the yin energy pool. I guess. And since I can actually now feel my energy in sync, I'm going to wake up now. Thought Naruto before his body began to break up into white particles before disappearing within the depths of his yin energy pool. Kurama didn't even say goodbye since he was sealed in the Brad. Sending a burst of yin and yang energy into his head, which instantly healed the rather painful, to his current body, bruise. Naruto slowly opened his eyes before smiling down towards the now asleep Satsuki, before lifting his head up a bit and moving a single hand over towards Satsuki's head, where he then began to gently stroke the girl's long raven black hair. You know. Even if this is a different reality that I've been stuck in, you're still the same as the other Satsuki. I can feel it, you know. But, unlike the other Satsuki I knew, I'm going to help you grow into someone who will make everyone else jealous of you. While they neglect you now, they will simply irritate themselves at the loss of someone as amazing as you when you develop and grow. Muttered Naruto softly before moving a single lock of hair that was covering her right eye before tucking it behind her ears, causing the girl to slowly awake from her slumber, with her still crimson eyes staring directly towards Naruto's crimson eyes. Giving a smile, Naruto tilted his head a bit. Had enough sleep, Satsuki-chan? Asked Naruto, causing the girl to stare at him in pure silence for a moment. Before moving her body around to lung at Naruto and hold her hand next to his. Naruto. Please don't do that again. I was so scared that you died. Please, Satsuki-chan. Have a little faith in me. Remember, the two of us are going to train and become badass ninjas. Shouted Naruto joyfully as he hugged the girl to his chest. Where are her nipples erect? Ignoring the rather odd thought, Naruto continued to joyfully hug his friend before pulling away from her and giving a single thumbs up that guy himself would be proud of. Yosh. Let's start training right now. I know a perfect little place that will help us get super strong together, just make sure not to tell anyone where it is, okay? Asked Naruto as he suspiciously glanced around side to side, something that made Satsuki let out a giggle as she nodded at him. Okay, Naruto-kun. But do you happen to know how to turn my Sharingan off? Kushina-san told me I have to stop sending chakra towards my eyes. But I don't even know how I'm doing that. Asked Satsuki with an embarrassed blush on her face, causing Naruto to chuckle in his head as he simply moved a hand towards her forehead. Using a small bit of his chakra, Naruto severed the chakra Satsuki was subconsciously sending into her eyes, before letting out a wink. Yes, I'm ahead of you then, Satsuki-chan. I already know what my chakra feels like. Spoke Naruto, thumbing his chest as he looked up towards the ceiling heroically. Only to feel someone glaring at him. And that someone was Satsuki. How do you know how to use chakra? If you weren't born with any? Asked Satsuki as she glared at the now confused Naruto before he suddenly understood what she meant and lifted his hands up in a surrendering fashion. Oh, my chakra. Right. Don't tell anyone. And this will be our secret. But I created my own chakra using a super secret technique I accidentally learned. Whispered Naruto into Satsuki's ears, causing the girl to look up at Naruto in pure awe, as displayed with the rather weird stars appearing within her cold black eyes. Can you teach you it? Oh, I plan to. But first. We are going to need to train your body and mind, along with your current chakra. Reason being. It's safer to do the technique when you're older. In fact, I only survived by pure luck when I accidentally created the technique. Replied Naruto, cutting off the girl as he poked her small nose with his forefinger. Letting out a grin, Naruto grabbed hold of Satsuki's form before moving off the bed and moving towards the door to his room with Satsuki held within his arms in a bridal position. Looking down, Naruto let out a happy grin before looking forwards toward the door. Where he let out a rather disturbed stare as he watched his mother Kushina staring towards the two of them with twin waterfall eyes with her hands grasped within each other as she stood at the open bedroom door. My Naru-chan. Is this what people mean about their children growing up so fast? Should I worry about Kasumi-chan and Mito-chan also doing this with other boys in their school? I have no idea what I should be doing right now, but I'm happy and sad at the same time. Blinking at the woman, Naruto slowly edged his right foot towards the door. Before smashing it shut into his mother's face, before simply turning around and looking towards his bedroom window. Shaking his head at the thought, Naruto moved his head down towards Satsuki before giving the girl within his grasp a rather blank stare as the girl was looking at him with the same crying happy expression as Kushina did before sweat dropping as the girl trembled within his arms. "What are you doing, Satsuki?" asked Naruto in a rather bland tone, causing the shivering girl within his grasp to fidget a bit before looking away from Naruto with a large blush. It's my first time. Please be gentle, Naruto-kun," muttered Satsuki as she sent glances towards him and his bed multiple times, causing the blonde-haired teen, whose eyes were once again blue, to simply freeze in place as his mind went over towards the girl's answer. Before shivering slightly. "This feels really wrong considering that 1. She's 7. And 2. I'm mentally 16. Thought Naruto for a moment. Before simply dropping the girl onto her small bottom and sitting across from her in a meditative position. Ignoring her rather cute pout, Naruto lifted a single hand up, silencing the girl before sending her a serious stare. "For now, Satsuki-chan. I am your teacher. Listen up, I'm going to help you unlock your chakra, since mine works in a similar way to everyone else's, okay? But, when I do, the two of us will then go to the training ground tomorrow to train in a technique called the leaf floating exercise, where you will be balancing a leaf using your chakra. Once you can do that for 2 minutes straight, you will be given 2 leaves and must then hold them both for 4 minutes. This will continue till you have 5 leaves that you will hold for 10 minutes. Do you get this, Satsuki-chan?" asked Naruto, gaining a determined nod from Satsuki as she raised her hand up into the air. Raising a single brow, Naruto nodded towards her. "Yes, Satsuki?" asked Naruto, getting another serious stare from the girl. "Tomorrow is Monday and we have school," replied Satsuki, causing Naruto to simply nod for a second with his eyes closed. Before snapping them open with a smile sitting upon his face. "Excellent. This will make it even harder for you, since you will have your attention split between the teacher and your control. Thanks for telling me about Satsuki," replied Naruto, gaining a rather bland look from Satsuki as she glanced over towards the left of Naruto's room, where a set of homework assignments that were left untouched from when she entered Naruto's home hours ago. Lowering her head with a miserable cloud over her head, the girl released a small sigh. "Yes, sensei," replied the girl, causing Naruto to grin as he moved a single hand towards Satsuki and rubbed her head softly. Sending the girl a wink, Naruto moved his hand away from Satsuki. "Then. Let's go unlock your chakra then." Chapter 4. Yosh. "Okay, Satsuki-chan. Now you just have to hold that position and I swear that you will be able to advance towards water walking training in about 30 minutes. If you have any chakra left by that time, I mean." Laughed out Naruto as he stood on the ground staring up at a tree where the sight of Satsuki standing in an awkward crane position met his eyes. Letting his eyes roam over his friend's body, Naruto let out a small giggle as the sight of a now sweating Satsuki met his gaze, before looking around towards both her hands, which were now holding not 1, not 2, not even 3. But a good 20-ish leaves hovering slightly from her palms. Turning his head around, Naruto let out a small whistle. "Geez, boss. I would have thought for sure you would have panned off control to one of us clones, you know. It's like a universal thing nowadays to let all your clones do the training by themselves." Shouted out Naruto, or rather a clone of Naruto, as he stared at his boss running laps around the lake with a look of pure determination on his face as he lifted a boulder on his back, which had the distinct black markings of Fuinjutsu seals printed on it. It should be noted that the seals also seemed to wrap themselves around Naruto's torso and limbs. The most impressive part about it actually happened to be how he was keeping balanced as he had 5 separate clones around the edges of the lake, training their water release, thus causing ripples to spread throughout the lake, which in turn required Naruto to change his chakra in his feet with every slight shift beneath him. But even then, the Naruto carrying the rock continued to increase his speed as he began to feed his yin-yang release into his body in miniature bursts, causing his shredded muscles to heal and strengthen as he continued to run and lift the boulder. Letting out a grin, Naruto continued to slowly increase his pace as he ran on the water, before looking over towards the clone and Satsuki's direction, before giving a wink with a crimson-colored eye. "What's the matter with Satsuki? You seem tired for some reason," shouted Naruto as he sprinted by, causing a now pouting Satsuki to let out a small tear as she stood frozen in position on the side of a tree. "I need to pee," whined out the girl, causing the clone to let out a sigh as he stared at Satsuki's pouting 7-year-old face. "Fine," grumbled out the Naruto clone, causing the black-haired girl to let out a massive smile. Before the clone let out a dark sadistic smirk. "After you complete not only this exercise, but also the one your boss is doing. Minus the 200 kg rock on his back," replied the clone happily as he sat down into a meditative position before relaxing. Satsuki simply stared at the clone down below her with a red pout. before feeling her nose start to tickle. Ah. No. Ah. No. Ah. ACHOO, no my leaves. Screamed the girl as she watched with her own set of crimson eyes as 7 leaves left her body before swaying in the wind. Where one then slowly, ever so slowly, fell and landed on the clone's silent head, which gained a devious smirk. Do it again. Spoke the clone, his eyes shut and his body still as he grinned evilly, causing Satsuki to let out a whimper as she slowly lifted her hand up towards some more leaves. Before she felt she lost control of her leaves residing on her right hand. Looking up towards the sky, the girl let out a small tear as the rather obvious need to pee was getting to her. "Why Kami?" questioned the girl, staring up at the sky with a look of both hatred and sadness as her crimson eyes spun. Before an apple clunked her in the head, resulting in her falling down onto the soft grass below. Where the face of the smirking clone appeared. "For falling off that tree. You must now hold 20 leaves in both hands while maintaining the crow position. For an hour." Grinned out the clone, causing the girl to let out twin waterfalls. "Hi. Sensei." Muttered the girl out silently, causing the clone to let out an evil laugh. As the clone did this, the main Naruto let out a sweat drop as he continued to run laps. "Am I a hidden sadist or something? It must be the Falcon's fault." Grumbled out Naruto mentally as he sent his friend a rather sorry look as their eyes connected briefly. Sometime later Hokage Monument. "Naruto-kun. Is what we're doing simple?" Asked Satsuki as she sat silently next to her blonde-haired friend who was gazing out towards the village with a small smile. Keeping his eyes out towards the village for a few moments, Naruto turned his head over towards Satsuki, with his crimson eyes staring at the girl once more, causing said girl to pout. "Oh. Why do you keep changing your eye color whenever you want? Besides, aren't your blue ones the ones you were born with? Why do you keep switching between blue and red?" Questioned Satsuki, gaining a small chuckle from Naruto as he shook his head a bit before returning it towards the village. "Well. For your first question. We are far surpassed by what those of the Shinobi Academy are doing. They haven't even heard of the likes of chakra control and other things. Your Sharingan has also developed in the short 3 months that you have had it and I'm pretty sure with some more training, you can probably gain the 3rd Tomo in another few months." Replied Naruto as he glanced towards Satsuki, who was now watching Naruto with her 2 Tomo Sharingan, spinning ever so slowly as she listened to him. This made him let out another smile as she kept her attention onto him as he looked away once more. Leaning down onto his back and resting his head beneath his arms, Naruto stared up towards the still blue sky before releasing a small sigh. "Honestly, I think you are one of the strongest kids in the entire elementary nation. Well, one who isn't somehow one. In the Shinobi Academy, and 2. One who isn't a straight-out prodigy and everything like your older brother Itachi." Finished Naruto off as he rolled his head towards Satsuki, who was smiling happily beside him as she too laid down next to him, enjoying the breeze of the monument they were on. Keeping his crimson eyes focused on her, Naruto let out another smile. "And as for my crimson eyes, I guess it's because not only does it feel like it's how it should be, but I also get to share the same color eyes as some of my friends. Like you. And you are too fuzzy." Muttered Naruto as he shut his eyes slowly before relaxing onto the ground, letting out a smile. Satsuki edged herself closer towards Naruto before enveloping him with a one-armed hug before laying her head on the arm that Naruto used to support his own head. "You know, I think I don't mind being a civilian if I can spend it with you, Naruto. I mean, just look at how wonderful it is here in the village. It's so peaceful and calm. And if we were civilians, we wouldn't have to worry about anything aside from working." Muttered Satsuki as she snuggled her head on Naruto's arm, causing the blonde-haired teen to let out a small laugh as he opened his eyes slowly before glancing down towards his friend's eyes. "True. But then, who would protect the peace we have here?" Asked Naruto rhetorically, gaining a small giggle from Satsuki as she continued to lay on Naruto. "Well, there is your 2-sen there. And then there is the whole Uchiha clan. And all the other clans. Hell. Even your sisters may protect us in the future. I heard they are getting special training from your 2-sen and Kachan." Returned Satsuki, gaining a small smirk from Naruto as he continued to lay there with Satsuki. "Yeah well. Would you believe me if I told you that you already surpass my sisters? And your brother Sasuke?" Asked Naruto, gaining a look of shock from Satsuki as she lifted her head up towards Naruto, her eyes scanning his face for any deceit as she stared. "Oh really?" Asked Satsuki, causing Naruto to give the girl a wink and smile. "Yep. Kasumi and Mito are only up to leaf training and that was only a few days ago. Sure they are getting to jutsu training, but with me helping you train your body, I'm sure you can easily defeat my sisters. Sasuke may be a bit harder, but that's because he unlike my sisters, has that fireball. Which you can also do now as well. So yeah. I think you're stronger than they are already by a fair amount." Replied Naruto with a small twinkle in his eye as he moved his attention away from Satsuki and back towards the sky, where a cloud flew by. It was silent for a few more moments with the two 7-year-olds laying down beside each other, but soon, the silence was broken once again. Then. What about you, Naruto? How strong are you? Asked Satsuki as she continued to stare up towards the sky silently. Naruto let the question hang within the air for a few moments before shutting his eyes for a bit. I'm strong enough to be confident I can protect my family and friends. Even if I should die. I'm sure I can keep everyone I care about safe. Replied Naruto, gaining a small nod from Satsuki before she moved her head up and positioned it in front of Naruto's. Lowering her head, Satsuki let out a small smile. As Naruto gazed at her now coal-colored eyes with curiosity. Satsuki Naruto. I believe in you. Muttered Satsuki as she lowered herself down slightly before planting a firm kiss onto Naruto's cheek, causing the mentally 16-year-old to widen his eyes in pure shock as he looked towards Satsuki's red but smiling face. Naruto-kun. Thank you for everything you have done for me. Somehow. You've helped me grow so fast in the skills of a shinobi. Even when I was titled by my own clan as a lost cause. I know that they don't really want to hurt me. But it would seem kinda odd that a member of the clan head's family couldn't produce a good ninja. But. I guess they were wrong. Rambled Satsuki, laying her head down onto Naruto's arm once more as she firmly held Naruto in a hug. Shutting her eyes, Satsuki smiled. I just needed the right teacher and friend. Finished Satsuki, causing Naruto, who now held a set of tears at the corners of his eyes, to let out a small smile before contributing to the hug Satsuki brought him into. Wrapping his right arm around her so that his left could still be used as a cushion for the girl, Naruto let his chin lay on top of Satsuki's head for a moment before giving the crown of her head a kiss. You know. You're really mature for a 7-year-old. Mumbled Naruto onto Satsuki's hair, causing the girl to let out a giggle. I found an orange book in my parents' bedroom and decided to read it one day. I don't think I should have, but it's a bit too late for that now. Laughed Satsuki, causing Naruto to mentally blanch for a moment. Before an image of a pounded Jiraiya popped into his head. Kurama. Make sure to keep that image in my head and the reason for it. The old bastard corrupted Satsuki-chan. Spoke Naruto, gaining a half-hearted sure from Kurama as he continued to sleep. Do you have the feeling of being watched as well? Asked Naruto as he opened his eyes and looked around. Nodding her head, Satsuki moved her head from Naruto's body and sat up a bit. Yeah. Groaned out the girl, causing Naruto to release a small sigh before gazing towards the trees behind the duo. You can come out now, Makoto-san. Droned out Naruto, causing the area to fall in silence for a few moments. Before one single set of feet appeared from the forest. There stood Makoto Uchiha, the clan head's wife, smiling as she ever so slowly walked towards the duo. Satsuki, seeing this, glanced between herself and Naruto for a moment before widening her eyes as shaking her hands in front of her. Www, what are you doing here? Stuttered out Satsuki as her face was enveloped in a red color, much towards the grinning Naruto's amusement. That was until he suddenly found a Sharingan-enhanced demonic stare from an evilly smiling Makoto, who had lowered herself so that she and Naruto were around the same height. You know, when I heard from Kushina-chan that you and Satsuki were becoming close. I didn't believe it. Murmured Makoto out, causing Naruto to twitch as his mind went back a few months where he slammed the door on his mother's face after she saw him carry Satsuki in a bridal position. Suddenly, Naruto felt himself shudder as a sudden killing intent hit him. Of course, the owner of said killing intent was right in front of him. Peeping her smile, Makoto lowered her head slightly more. Before the killing intent disappeared in the wind a moment later. So? Would you like to come over for dinner? Asked a woman, causing Naruto to blanch for a moment. Before nodding his head slowly with a rather weirded out look on his face. Sure. No. Please. No. Please. No. Maybe I could. Persuade you? Tempting. But no, you pervert. Come on, Naru. Ka-san just wants you to come over for dinner again. Humming to a stop within the middle of a dirt road, a blonde-haired crimson-eyed teen turned his head towards his childhood friend Satsuki, who was staring at him with a pout. Naruto gave the black-haired Uchiha a rather blank stare for a few moments before looking down towards his school's new uniform. Hey, is it me or do the girls have it easier with their uniforms? I mean, black blazer with a white undershirt and black pants. Who would think up something like that? In 32 degrees, no doubt. Spoke Naruto as he glanced upwards towards the sky before quickly exaggerating how hot it was by swiping his arm across his forearm. Giving the teen a pout-glare combo, Satsuki slammed her hand against Naruto's shoulder. Come on, Naruto. You're 12 years old now. You can't still be scared of my Ka-chan from when she invited you over when we were 7. Shouted the girl, causing the now 12-year-old teen to simply look away from Satsuki. Am I scared? Nah, I was just going to hang out with Kasumi and Mito today. Seriously, the two of them just can't help but greet and hang out with their Ani-san every day, you know. Replied Naruto, causing the girl besides him to simply glare at him. You and your sisters. Please. They wouldn't notice if you had died for over 2 years. Just because you're in a civilian school doesn't mean they should do that to you. Grumbled out Satsuki as she looked up towards the sky, where the sight of a clear blue sky greeted her. Shaking his head, Naruto nudged Satsuki a little before continuing on his walk with Satsuki. Hey. Kasumi-chan and Mito-chan can do whatever they want. Besides, it's not like I'm feeling neglected by the two of them, I mean, I have my little uchiha to play with. Returned Naruto, causing the girl following slightly behind him to turn into a ripe tomato as she glared at the blonde-haired nin's back. Shut up. I'm nobody's little uchiha. Shouted Satsuki, causing Naruto to grin as he spun himself around and placed a firm hand on Satsuki's head before ruffling it slightly, causing her neat single waist-length ponytail to become messy at the top. Aw. I thought you were my personal uchiha though. And you are shorter than me so it kinda works you know. Chuckled Naruto as he rubbed his favorite uchiha's head softly, causing said uchiha to glare at him. Why the hair? Do you not know how long it takes to keep it looking as good as it does? Asked the girl, causing Naruto to let out a small smirk as he removed his hand from her head and into his pocket as he gave the girl an eye smile. Nope. Sorry, but spiky blonde hair is really easy to maintain. Replied Naruto as he casually whipped his head sidewards, causing his spiky blonde locks to stay within their natural spiky form, causing the black-haired girl to grit her teeth slightly before glancing past the teen. Letting out a slightly sad stare, Satsuki returned her attention back towards Naruto, who was giving a similar stare, before letting out a small solemn smile towards her. I know Satsuki. But we couldn't save them all. Muttered Naruto silently as he stood in front of the Uchiha grave ceremony where dozens or so Uchiha were standing silently as they prayed for their lost loved ones. Seeing this, Satsuki nodded slightly. Yay. They were going to launch a coup. Itachi Nai-san did what was right. But he didn't have to bisect your arm, you know. Grumbled out Satsuki as the image of a 9-year-old Naruto appeared within her mind for a moment. Said image was Naruto using his body to save a fellow Uchiha child who had been unlucky enough to be found by Itachi. Even then, after Itachi had cut Naruto's arm he instantly bolted. Probably due to the shock of the Hokage's kid appearing out of nowhere and the soon-to-be arriving squads. Letting out a grin, Naruto lifted his right arm up slightly before tensing, showing a slightly obvious bump in his long black blazer. What can I say? I heal fast. Replied Naruto with a grin, causing Satsuki to simply shake her head slightly before moving the few tiny bands of hair out of her eyes. Are you too reckless, you know? If it wasn't for you training me I would think you're a person who gets off of near death. Replied Satsuki, gaining a shrug from Naruto. Meh, probably I am. I mean, you haven't been able to defeat me even when I put handicaps on myself. Replied Naruto, causing the Uchiha girl to stomp her foot as she placed a hand on her hip. Well, for handicaps it doesn't matter, Mr. Yin Yang Master. What's the point of putting handicaps if you're going to use loopholes to use them anyway? Oh, I'll not use my hands today, oh, but I never said chakra hands did I? Or I won't use my chakra. But Kurama's chakra is fair game. Need I go on further, dope? Asked Satsuki, gaining a small twitch from Naruto. However, before the blonde could open his mouth, another voice cut in. You know Satsuki-chan, which is Sasuke's nickname for Naruto-kun. Isn't that right, Sasuke-chan? Questioned a woman, causing a silent teen beside the woman to simply let out a huff as his black eyes met the now blue eyes of Naruto, who was giving the older teen a grin. Team? How's the academy going? Asked Naruto, grinning internally as he watched Sasuke let out a small shiver as he and his mother walked towards his twin and their friend Naruto. Chan. Replied Sasuke, causing the blonde-haired teen to nod. Okay. I guess the whole fangirl thing would get to a breaking point eventually. Oh well, not my problem. Finished Naruto off with a grin as he lifted his arms above his head before securing them around Satsuki's neck with a wink. This gained Naruto a swift elbow to the gut, causing the 12-year-old to let out a small gasp as he took a single step away from Satsuki before rubbing his stomach where the impact immersed. Giving Satsuki a stink eye for a moment, Naruto let out a small smile before giving Mikoto, who had been watching the events take place with a grin on her face, a short and crisp bow. Hello, Mikoto-sama. Spoke Naruto, moving from his bound position before standing up straight with a grin on his face, allowing the woman to move forward slightly before giving his cheek a pinch. It's nice to see you, Naruto-kun. But I would appreciate it if you don't tease Sasuke-kun here about his troubles in the academy. And stop bullying little Satsuki-chan too. Cooed out the woman as she pulled Naruto's cheek a bit, causing the teen to cry out for a moment before the woman let go of his now burning cheek. Giving a soft smile, Mikoto pulled Naruto into a hug as she lowered her head down so that her chin was wrestling beside Naruto's head. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Thank you for being here. Sobbed out the woman as she held the soon-to-be teen to her body as silent tears fell down her eyes. Rubbing the widow's back softly, Naruto nodded his head gently. It's hard to bear alone. Which is why I won't let any of you bear it yourselves. muttered Naruto softly as his eyes briefly glanced over towards both Satsuki and Sasuke, who both had two separate reactions, with Satsuki gaining a small blush and smile on her face, while the ever-stoic Sasuke simply huffed before looking away, hiding his small smile from everyone. Letting the Uchiha leader weep for a few more moments, the blonde-haired teen moved himself away from her, leaving the Uchiha woman staring at him with a set of Sharingan eyes, which revealed how thankful she was to have him there supporting her family. "Thank you, Naruto," mumbled out Mikoto softly as she walked towards the graves where the fallen Uchihas were buried. Seeing this, Naruto nudged his head over towards Mikoto's direction before glancing between the two siblings. "You know you're supposed to pay your respects now, right?" Blandly spoke Naruto, causing the two teens to simply give the blonde-haired teen a blank stare before Sasuke began to walk forwards after his mother. "Chan. Don't take too long, dope," replied Sasuke as he walked deeper into the cemetery, leaving behind Satsuki and Naruto as they watched Sasuke's form disappear within the weeping crowds. Because he was focused on Sasuke, Naruto couldn't react to the sudden pull he had towards the cemetery before he glanced down towards where his arm was held in a vice-like grip by his friend Satsuki, who gave him a blank stare. "You're a part of our family, you know. So you can also be with us here," grumbled out Satsuki as she pulled Naruto's arm towards her family, of which were waiting for the two to appear. And as soon as they did, the whole group began to pray for their loved ones and, with Naruto's case, possible comrades. Although, he knew that these specific people had been thinking of going against the village, thus the reason they were dead. Holding his prayer as he briefly glanced over towards Satsuki, Sasuke and Mikoto, Naruto let out a somber stare before shaking his head as he glanced down to one specific grave. "Fugaku Uchiha." Letting out a tiny glare at the name, Naruto released a small sigh as he finished his prayer and looked up towards the cloudless sky. "Although you were planning to attack, you were still fellow shinobi. Fellow shinobi who had left their families behind to grieve because of your actions," thought Naruto for a few moments before shaking his head and looking towards Mikoto and her children. Letting out a soft smile, Naruto let out a small tear. "Back in my world, over 5 years ago I hadn't felt any form of family love. So thank you for showing me what it was like," thought Naruto with a small smile on his face as he moved his vision away from the grieving family once more before setting his gaze up towards the sky. Few hours later, baths, Japanese, and business homework. How the bloody hell does a civilian actually live with this? Sure, I was a civilian, but I was drafted into the shinobi corps because I wanted to. Thank every possible deity for that decision," shouted Naruto internally as he glared down towards his bag, which was still full of school books which were weighing the bag down slightly. However, to Naruto, the books within the bag carried over tons worth of weight down in his bag. Raising a hand up to brush his hair, the teen let out a small sigh as he came across the Namikaze home. "I know I dabbled into every field, including regular civilian ones, but actually going in depth with the civilian ones. Oh Kami," muttered Naruto tiredly as he moved in front of the house door before pulling a small key out from his pocket, where he then placed said key into the house's lock, which caused a sudden cracking sound to be heard as the markings within the key opened the door for the teen. Wiping the small bit of sweat off his forehead, the teen then began to walk towards the stairs leading up towards his own room, only to feel a sudden weight sit down on his back. "Naru-chan. Where do you think you're going?" Heard out a woman's voice, causing Naruto to mentally twitch slightly before shaking his head and sighing. "Going to my room so that I can finish the homework I have due in a few days. Aside from that, maybe talking with Satsuki in the morning," replied Naruto in a bored tone as he moved forwards towards his room, only for him to not move a single muscle as he felt a pair of arms snake around his chest before feeling a pair of teeth bite down on his neck gently. Not even reacting, Naruto continued to let out a bored stare as he kept his gaze directed towards the stairs leading up to his room. "If I hadn't known any better, I would call you a vampire, Mito-san," sarcastically muttered Naruto as he turned his head slightly, showing his blue-colored eyes towards his sister's violet-colored ones as she grinned at him. "Nai-san. Why don't you just let me have my way? You know that as the princesses of me and Kasumi-chan get whatever we want. So, if we say come to bed with us, you best well come to bed with us. I mean, it's only fair since your strong Mi-chans are going to protect the village while you enjoy a nice and peaceful life here." Heard out Mito, causing Naruto to simply give his sister a small blank stare. Before breaking from her grasp and grabbing onto her form before slamming her against the wall with his eyes now showing a crimson color as he brought his mouth to his sister's neck before nibbling on her neck while letting out a growl. "Keep talking. And I'll make sure to leave nothing of you left. I'll destroy your chances of being a shinobi. Got that, Ni-chan?" Growled out Naruto as he dropped his sister onto the floor, leaving the red-haired 12-year-old to glare at him. Before quickly getting up and slamming a fist into Naruto's gut, causing the teen to drop to his knees in pain. Letting out a smirk, the red-haired girl stood in front of her brother dressed in her regular PJs, being a red button-up shirt with red pants, before moving her foot towards her brother's chest, where she then pushed him back onto the floor with him staring up at her as she lowered herself down onto him. Moving her face closer towards her brother's, the red-haired girl let out a small giggle. "Why Nai-san? That was so scary, you know. I think I almost felt a shiver up my spine at your evil red eyes. But don't forget Nai-san. You aren't important to our family. So, know your place," whispered Mito into Naruto's ear, causing the blonde-haired teen to twitch slightly as he felt his sister lay a kiss on his cheek, much to his irritation as he simply laid there and took it. He couldn't exactly hit his sister until next week, since there would be questions regarding how he suddenly had gotten strong enough to manage to fight his sister off when he had no formal training of the sorts. Of course, during the Genin exam he planned to enter and smash the records, but because it's an exam he could pass it off as secret training. However, is he kicking his dominatrix-like sister's ass randomly? Yeah, that's suspicious. Feeling the weight of his sister get off of him, Naruto let out a small sigh before pushing himself up onto his legs before moving to walk up the stairs. Only to find his other sister standing at the top of them with a blank blue-eyed stare aimed directly towards him. Within said blank eyes were the emotions of irritation and disappointment. Ignoring her look, the blonde-haired teen walked up the stairs towards his room before he easily moved past his blonde-haired sister's form, of which hadn't moved in the slightest since she had seen Naruto. However, just as Naruto grasped his door handle, he felt Kasumi appear behind him. Letting out a sigh, Naruto ignored her presence before opening his door and walking in, shutting it in the face of his sister. However, she instead kept it open with her foot. Letting out a small groan, Naruto walked towards his bed before sliding into it, before ducking his head under the covers. Sleep. Groaned out Naruto, causing the blonde-haired girl to narrow her eyes. "I can't believe that I'm related to you," grumbled out Kasumi in an irritated voice as she slammed Naruto's bedroom door closed, leaving the blonde-haired teen to let out a small chuckle as he propped his head over his covers. "Even if I hate them a bit, I still find it funny. Even Mito trying to rape me is also a bit fun," chuckled Naruto out loud as his eyes panned over towards his right, where a calendar with a specific date a few months later on would appear. Letting out a smirk, Naruto tucked his hands behind his head slightly before falling asleep. His final thoughts being, "Few more months. And the civilian shinobi will make his appearance," and chuckled Naruto as his eyes once more panned over towards his desk, where a signed document stating that he was able to take the Genin exam test was laying down gently on the table, just sitting under a slightly heavy paperweight. Letting out a yawn as he laid underneath his blankets, the blonde-haired teen shifted himself slightly into a sitting position before making some room to lift his right palm upwards into the air before sending a small burst of energy, which then formed a pitch-black orb about the size of a fist. Narrowing his eyes at the orb, Naruto felt the chakra manifestation begin to shake slightly before fracturing at random points before breaking altogether, where it then dropped onto Naruto's palm, where it then began to disappear as mist. Clenching his hand, the blonde-haired teen released a small tired sigh. "Way too much energy. And I know that I'm missing something to keep the blasted thing stabilized. Just gotta figure out what it is," grumbled Naruto before laying himself down onto the bed as he shut his eyes. "Whatever. It's a problem for later," remarked Naruto mentally as he fell asleep. "Claim him. Never thought I would see that ball again. Just one surprise after another." Naruto laughed out Kurama as his crimson red eyes watched a sleeping Naruto on the floor just beside his pillow. Grinning slightly, the fox used a single one of his long tails to gently lift Naruto off the floor and onto his side, where the teen's Mindscape form shifted to laying against the fox. Shaking his head, Kurama fell asleep once more. "Isn't that the Kyuubi brat? What's he looking so smug for? Why is that happy about something? Maybe it's the Kyuubi. Yondaime-sama must know of this." Walking silently down the straight road, Naruto Hayabusa strode forwards with a small smirk displayed on his lips as his eyes focused on one single destination as he held his hands within his pockets where he felt the texture of a piece of paper within the grip of his right hand. Walking past the regular civilians of, Naruto kept his gaze firmly directed towards the Tower Academy where the gates were only a few blocks away. Shutting his eyes as he walked, the blonde-haired teen let out a small relaxed breath of air as he felt himself simply shine as he walked towards the academy. He hadn't felt this feeling since he had first attended the academy back when he was younger. It was a combination of both nostalgia and happiness that seemed to simply radiate towards him before sweeping him up into a nice snug hold, melding all the joy he felt into his very core. It was an amazing feeling for him as he walked forwards towards the academy. Taking a momentary stop and glancing towards the left, Naruto caught sight of himself. Letting his eyes relax and thin slightly, Naruto let out a small laugh as he turned his head back towards the academy before continuing his walk. Back in his world, he was always silent as a kid, wanting to be the best at being a true ninja that could take on anyone and win. But looking back at it now, as he grew older and gained more strength, he wanted to be known for his power, his effort into achieving the feats he had accomplished. He knew that somewhere, in the back of his mind, that he wanted to be noticed. To be known as the strongest shinobi to ever live. He wanted to be known as the man who had saved thousands of lives, while also being a killer who would not be afraid to cross the line when it was required to do so. He wanted the world to know who he was. And this time, he would show the world. No longer would he be the devil hidden within the darkness of the world, no longer would he be the buffoon who would simply irritate his opponents to death. No. This time he was going to show the world who he was. And he would be doing it under his own terms. Under his own name. The name his summons had given him when he became close to them. He was Naruto Hayabusa. A ninja forged through his own determination in life. Only this time. He was living his life through a person born from the fourth and his wife, but he knew who he was. He knew what defined him into being what he was. And that will never change as he lived. But it didn't stop him from having fun this time around. Now did it? Grinning down at his garbs, Naruto continued to walk forwards as he felt a small gust of wind rattle his white jacket with the emblem of his seal printed in crimson red where his stomach was, thus giving those a look at the seal he had directly over his stomach. Below the white and red hooded jacket was a single white sleeve shirt devoid of any identification marks, however, going down, the pants being a pitch black color, neatly having white medical tape wrapped around the ankles, where the black pants were then also tucked into a set of shinobi sandals. Grinning as he walked, Naruto flipped his white hood forwards, which in turn covered his face, as he let his eyes shift from blue to crimson red, causing all those around him to see nothing but a set of glowing crimson eyes from beneath his hood, much to his amusement, as he watched people twitch in momentary fear before collecting themselves and walking away. Shaking his head beneath the hood, Naruto's eyes panned over towards the entrance of the academy, where he felt a smile stretch across his face. Flipping his hood back, Naruto let out a set of double-eye smiles. Yo. Satsuki. Sasuke. Mikoto Oba-chan. Great to see ya. Shouted out Naruto, causing the three mentioned people at the front of the gate to turn towards him. Before two of them let out a set of glares while one was snickering slightly. Reaching the trio in front of the gate, Naruto was met with a customary punch to the face from Sasuke and a slap from Mikoto. Glaring, Sasuke shook his head. Damn it Naruto. Stop calling me that you dope. Shouted Naruto as he pointed his finger towards Naruto, who simply shrugged his shoulders. Not my fault you give the impression off. Or if you're not an up-the-ass lover you must be a cis-con or ka-con. I mean, those are the only women you talk to. Sasuke chan-ku'd Naruto as he nudged Satsuki slightly with his elbow, only to get a punch across the cheek from her as she glared at him for the comment. Giving the girl a look of betrayal on the floor, the teen shook his head before standing where he felt himself enveloped into a hug by Mikoto. Feeling the woman hold him, Naruto returned the gesture before pulling the woman against him. Smiling into the woman's shoulder, Naruto stood there silently before feeling Mikoto pull herself away from him, revealing a smile towards him. Good luck. Naruto. Mumbled the woman, causing the teen to grin slightly before jabbing his thumb towards his heart. Thanks for believing in me Mikoto. But. Mumbled Naruto softly as he moved away from Mikoto to stand beside both Satsuki and Sasuke, who looked at him curiously, before he gave a thumbs up towards Mikoto, before letting out a happy toothy smile. But I know that Akachan always believes in her kids. So I don't need you to say it. Replied Naruto with a soft smile as he quickly grabbed the two uchiha besides him before turning around and dragging them towards the academy front entrance. However, just as Naruto reached the spot, he quickly flipped his hood up before turning around for a few seconds and sending the shocked Mikoto a quick crimson wink before disappearing inside of the building with Sasuke and Satsuki, both of whom were shocked at Naruto's admission of thinking that their mother was a mother to him. At the front gate, the Uchiha head let out a small smile as she gazed longingly towards the academy entrance, with a tear built up within her right eye as she clasped her hands together silently. You were a blessing Naruto. To all of us. Mumbled Mikoto silently as memories of a 7-year-old Naruto appeared in her mind playing with both Satsuki and Sasuke, along with Itachi, before changing towards memories where Naruto was teaching Satsuki and Sasuke how to play Go and Shogi along with other games. Even then, the memories of a tired Naruto and Satsuki appeared within her mind, and at points with Sasuke also mixed into the fold since Naruto had become his friend. And finally, the memories of Naruto staying with their family when the massacre occurred and helping them with the grief and pain of losing loved ones. Shaking her head, Mikoto looked upwards towards the sky where the sound of a bird screeching was heard. And as the Uchiha woman gazed up towards the sky, she saw it. The falcon flew up above the ground without any restrictions and hesitance in its movements as it scoured the lands below from up above. Mikoto. What are you doing here? Dropping off Sasuke-kun? Asked a voice behind her. Shaking her gaze from the falcon above, the black-haired woman quickly wiped her eyes before turning towards the owner of the voice. Letting out a small smile, the woman gave a small wave. Hello Kushina. I just dropped off my kids for the final graduate exams. And since I felt Satsuki-chan might as well get a chance at the Genin exam, I had written up a clan head exemplary that would allow her to take part in it. What about you? Did you drop off your two kids already? Asked Mikoto, gaining a nod from Kushina before she gained an evil grin. Haha. Yep. But since I wanted to see my little girls during their first exams, I asked Minato-kun to create an invisible viewing room for all the adults to watch their children. Dude, I kinda forgot to tell anyone about it. So. Do you wanna come with and watch your kids? Asked Kushina with an evil smirk on her face as she imagined the possible blackmail she could gain hold over her daughters for how they do in school. Blinking, Mikoto nodded with a smile. That would be great Kushina. Thanks for the offer. Replied Mikoto with a small smile, gaining a massive toothy grin from Kushina, along with a thumbs up before the black-haired woman felt her friend drag her off to who knows where. Chapter 6. Did we really need to sit in here? I mean. We could just use a basic cloaking since I'm sure that neither of the kids can detect them. Grumbled out an irritated Mikoto, who was looking through the large glass panel down towards the ground, where multiple classroom seats were already taken as the students down below flocked towards either their desks or to a random table as they prepared to take their Genin exam. Kushina simply nudged her friend as she excitedly pointed towards a certain direction of the class. Who cares? We get to see our precious kids take their first Genin exams. Aren't you excited? Shouted Kushina with a large smile on her face as she stared down towards her two daughters, who were happily chatting to their friends as they sat within their seats. Mikoto simply gave her friend a rather blank and irritated stare before glancing off down through the one-way glass panel where the sight of a brooding Sasuke was met. Sure. Grumbled Mikoto out as she then panned her eyes over towards her daughter sitting beside Sasuke with a look of joy on her face as she talked to a white-hooded teen. Letting out a small smile, the woman blinked as she looked towards an expecting Kushina, who was now giving her a full-on puppy stare as she held her hands within her lap. Letting out a small and rather slight sweat drop, the black-haired woman looked towards Kushina with a small tilt of her head. Sorry, but could you please say that again? Questioned Mikoto, gaining a rather devastated look from Kushina for a few moments before she gained another blistering smile. Who do you reckon that will gain the top girl and boy position? I vote for Kasumi and Mito to equal and become first with Sasuke being first in the male spot. As for being number 1. I'm pretty sure Kasumi has the better chance as she has a bit more control over Kyuubi, so yeah. What about you Mikoto-chan? Asked Kushina as she stared at her friend, who simply let out a small smile before pointing over towards the white-hooded teen. Letting out a small smile, Mikoto closed her eyes for a moment. That one. The one in the hood will win it all. Smiled Mikoto as she happily stared at the white-hooded figure. This seemed to confuse Kushina as her eyes moved towards said hooded figure for a few moments. Before gaining a small sweat drop. Didn't know you could move past Hyugaku so fast. And with a minor. Spoke Kushina, giving her friend a rather blank and slightly disgusted look, causing the black-haired uchiha to give her friend an enhanced glare. 1. Fugaku's death was years ago, and 2. I'm not dating the kid in the hood. Returned Mikoto as she let out a small huff as her friend waved a hand at her. Right. So seriously, who do you think? I mean, no offense, but the person wearing the white hood just joined this class on the last day, so I doubt he could be any good. Replied Kushina, getting a rather bored shake of the head from Mikoto as she crossed her arms and continued to stare at her children. Honestly. That child doesn't deserve to be 12. He's more of an adult than what most people are, and he has the skills of a human that has no limits. And he hasn't even shown anything to anyone. Seriously though. It's thanks to him that I allowed Satsuki into the Genin exams this late, she was trained well by him. Spoke Mikoto as she stared at Naruto's new hoodie that he himself only wore today. Before she suddenly felt a rather horrible feeling coming from beside her. Turning her head, the Uchiha woman came upon the sight of a disgusted Kushina sitting a few meters away as she shakily pointed a finger towards her. YYUKNOIWW was JJ joking boo about YUBB being WWW with M minor BB before RR right. BB but, and no now. Gagged out Kushina as she continued to shakily point her finger towards her friend. He let out a rather lengthy sigh before returning her attention back towards the exam room where the teacher began to hand out the written exams the students must complete. Letting out a small smile as she looked towards her children, the black-haired woman shut her eyes. Good luck Sasuke-kun, Satsuki-chan. And Naruto-kun. Thought the woman with a smile. Coincidentally, Kushina was also thinking the same when she saw Mito staring at the sheet with a small constipated look while Kasumi was giving said sheet a bored look. Genin room. Okay. And you may start. Now. Shouted Iruka, watching as the students quickly began to write down on their exam sheets like the devil himself was behind them. Seeing this, the dolphin-haired man was letting out a small smile as his eyes briefly went over each and every one of his students before he finally rested his eyes on Kasumi Namikaze, who seemed to be blitzing through the sheet. Letting his eyes relax a bit, the man couldn't help the smile that grew onto his face as he looked towards the most likely future of. Just leave it to Kasumi-sama to blitz the task. Just amazing. And while Mito-sama is not the smartest with the bookwork, she isn't all too far behind. And then there is Sasuke-kun, who isn't all that far from the two. The three of them would easily be able to become the best in the Arukabaka-sensei. I finished my test like 10 seconds ago. Spoke a rather bored voice, causing the teacher to blink as he was cut off from his thoughts as he glanced down slightly towards a student with a white hood which covered not only his hair but also his face from view. Blinking, Iruka glanced down. Before widening his eyes as he caught the sight of over 100 sheets neatly stacked in front of him. However, before the man could even mutter a single word, the hidden teen in front of him let out a bored yawn as they moved their hand up to where their mouth would be. Ah. That was so easy. Seriously? You would think that the genuine written exams were at least a bit harder than that. The genuine one only took me a few seconds. Oh yeah, you can ignore all the other sheets there, it's just some more detailed answers. Grumbled the teen as he dropped the large group of papers on the man's desk before walking back to his seat with a rather lazy and bored stance. But as he did, the teen happened to draw on some attention as he walked past the group with his hands in his pockets. However, the one that caught his attention the most was the shocked stupid look appearing on Kasumi's face as he strutted past, his hood covering his face as he let out a small grin. What's the matter with Kasumi-san? You seem to be taking your time there. Chuckled out Naruto as he continued his walk, leaving a now slightly fuming girl behind as she lowered her head down and began to quickly answer question after question. Sensei. We're done. Spoke another voice, causing not only Kasumi to shoot her head up but also a majority of the class with a silently staring Shikamaru, who was now scrunching his eyes against the owner of the voice. Said owner stood proud with an arrogant Uchiha-like smirk. Which had been mastered at the ripe age of 3, Sasuke Uchiha and his sister Satsuki Uchiha stood in front of Iruka with a few pieces of paper held within their hands. Iruka simply stared at the two Uchiha in front of him for a few moments. Before grabbing a hold of Satsuki's papers and giving a quick flick through. And when he finished. The man silently put her work onto his desk before reading Sasuke's. During his time, the man's face hadn't changed a single bit. Once he was finished with Sasuke's however, he turned towards the mysterious teen's work with a small narrowed stare. Grabbing hold of the work, the man brought the neat stacks up to his face before giving a quick glance at all the pages. And you know what? The man could only glare at the front of the sheets towards the name of the occupant. Which simply read. Zabuza, silently placing the 3 finished occupants' sheets onto his desk, which had actually lost some space from it, the teacher quickly pulled out a small notebook before quickly writing something down. Placing his notebook onto his desk, the scar-face stared towards his class for a few moments before sitting himself down behind his desk. He did have 3 students' tests to mark while he waited after all. But, while he checked the answers written down, the scar-faced couldn't help but glance over momentarily towards the approved late entry of Zabuza, who said he would properly reveal themselves towards the end of the exam. Just who were they? Hokage office, well. That was different. Muttered a man out loud as he lazily stared towards a small orb sitting at the Hokage's desk. No other person in the room made a single comment as they each stared directly towards the white-hooded teen who had handed a very large, and from what they could see, descriptive answers towards all the genin questions presented. I would like to ask how, or rather, why hadn't any of us heard of him before? I mean, he would have a pretty good head on his shoulders to be able to think and work that fast. I mean, even a passing comment would have or rather should have happened at least once. Questioned a crimson-eyed woman as she looked at the small glass bowl, getting a nod from a few of the occupants there. Narrowing his eyes, Minato surveyed his crystal bowl for a few seconds, which he had gotten from Hiruzen before his passing, before relaxing into his chair slightly as he let loose a small sigh. From what the Anbu in the room reported, the kid had a genuine signature from me, saying that he could take the genin exam, even without the genin training beforehand. And the thing is, I don't remember if I did indeed sign it, or if I just didn't notice that I did since there is no possible reason for my signature to be on it, with my chakra running through the ink to call out the student for forging the note, since it is my chakra ink written down. Spoke Minato as his eyes panned over towards the note on Iruka's table for a few moments before returning his views back towards the room. While the rather sudden appearance of an intellectual person might be shocking, we don't know if they are only simply academic or a true prodigy. Either way, you all still have time to decide who you want on your teams, aside from Kakashi, who has already wanted the 3-man team of Mito, Kasumi and Sasuke. Everyone else however, is free to be spread amongst yourselves. Replied Minato, causing the room full of jonins to nod their heads as they continued to stare at the magic viewing orb once more. Secret viewing room, show off. grumbled Makoto internally as she stared down towards the now sleeping white-hooded teen for a few moments before shaking her head in slight shame as the ever-achieving Naruto decided to show off just for the sake of doing it. However, before Makoto could stare at Naruto's sleeping form for all that long, a sudden sniffle broke Makoto's attention, in which she then turned her head towards the other occupant of the room, with a small twitch being created on the right side of her eyebrow. "Nuo. Kasumi-chan. How could you let the team win?" shouted Kushina hysterically as she wiped her eyes with her forearm as tears began to drip from her face, causing the already twitching Makoto to steadily increase her twitching as she glanced over towards Naruto once more. "You sir are going to get a lecture when you come over to do this to me," muttered Makoto silently as she watched her biological children move up in hand in their work, causing another wave of tears from Kushina as she felt Kasumi being the No.1 Genin being snatched away before her eyes. It wasn't long however before the hour exam soon finished, showing that Kasumi managed to snag 4th place, much to her rather obvious irritation, with Mito coming in 6th, just behind Sakura Haruno in the test. Watching Iruka direct the students outside, the two women within the room gave each other a small nod before disappearing in a plump of smoke, before quickly reappearing outside where the academy's training field was. Giving the potential genin within the academy a quick stare, the two fell silent as the teacher Iruka began to call out names for their first outdoor exam. Kunai and shuriken practice. But Naruto. No. Why? Because I don't want a brat. Well I do fuzzy, so get cracking. Make me. Pillow or torture. Like you can torture me. Fine. Why in the 7 circles of hell did you have me kicked by multiple horses with little horns on their head? Oh no. First thing to pop into my head. You think I might need therapy? You needed it a long time ago, twerp. And you need to become a girl so I can have sexual intercourse with you. What? You heard me. Fox women would be pretty hot. Oh the chills. Stay away from me for the next week. I dunno Kurama-chan. I could just give you a human body with breasts and a sexy female voice in my mindscape and you know. Do it to you. I can already imagine it. Oh, Naruto-kun. Right there, fuck me in my tight poo shut it brat. I give. Just stuff it. Well that was easy. So, fine. I'll try to give you a tiny burst of my chakra so you can. Work your magic. Bastard. Oh, Naruto-kun. Right there. Please fuck this foxy slut of yours shut it. Okay Miss Pissy Pants. Don't see why you're upset, I mean. You are kinda genderless. So really if I turned you into a girl, I will force your body to piss yourself while you sleep. Oh that's all good. I can already imagine letting out my liquids on a hot fox woman's face. Letting out a slight yawn, a grinning Naruto stretched his neck a bit. I win. Chuckled Naruto as he began to stretch his body without a care in the world as he felt a small foreign energy form within him for a few moments before disappearing completely. Letting out another smile, the blonde-haired teen felt himself jolt completely awake for a brief moment as he heard his name being called up by the teacher Iruka. Letting out a small grin, Naruto began to stretch his arms as he walked towards Iruka before calmly and swiftly grabbing the practice kunai being held by Iruka. Moving back around 20 steps, the blonde-haired teen didn't even bother looking towards the wooden targets within the back of the training ground as he casually flipped his wrist, sending all his deadly kunai and shuriken soaring through the air before they easily stabbed through the wooden dummy's head and vital parts. It was safe to say that everyone's jaws dropped at the perfect 10 tenths, appeared in the form of a hooded figure as he casually continued to walk for a few moments before placing himself down against a tree where he slowly began to sit still before becoming near stone-like as he sat. It wasn't long however before Naruto found himself being disturbed as the sound of a person's sandals crunching the grass below their feet moved towards him. Letting out a rather silent sigh, the blonde-haired teen continued to sit still, not really in the mood to accept that there was someone in front of him. And for a few moments, Naruto that would work. Sadly, he was wrong as he continued to feel the person's presence in front of him. Blinking himself awake, the blonde-haired teen tilted his head up slightly while using his chakra to project a certain darkness around his face, thus causing his chin and mouth to be the only things exposed. And behold, there stood Mito Namikaze staring down at him. With a blush on her face. Tilting his head, Naruto simply sat still for a few moments. Before letting out a small yawn. Yes, Mito-san. Asked Naruto, not bothering all that much as he stretched against the tree as he waited for Mito to speak, however, all he got in return was a larger red blush, along with her fiddling with her fingers slightly. Continuing to stare at the girl, Naruto couldn't help but sweat drop as he heard his biological sister swallow a lump in her throat before bowing slightly. Hello. My name is Mito Namikaze. Would you please go out with me? Shouted the girl, causing a massive crowd to instantly gather, including Iruka who was now sporting a tiny cut near his head due to the student who was throwing his kunai being so shocked by Mito's rather loud confession. In the trees. I'm going to kill him. Yeah, that's right. If he hurts Mito-chan's maiden-like feelings. He's going to die. Grumbled a glaring Kushina, who was now channeling her inner anger and hatred as her long red hair split into 9 separate tails before waving within the air slightly, causing a rather amused Mikoto to pat Kushina softly on the back as she let out a small giggle. Don't worry Kushina-chan. I'm sure the boy will make sure to not hurt your daughter's feelings, eh? Seriously? I've been here for like what? 2 hours and you're asking me, someone you haven't previously spoken to go out with you? Sorry lady, but you first gotta know someone before asking them out. Replied Naruto, causing the red-haired girl to fall silent for a few moments. Before walking away from Naruto's, not that they knew, covered body. Glancing briefly over towards Kushina, Mikoto couldn't help but let a small disturbed smile out onto her face as she saw the demonic-like possession currently taking place within Kushina's eyes. However, it only took a short while before the whole possession thing calmed down for a few moments, where Kushina suddenly had a massive smile on her face as she looked towards the tower, where Minato also managed to receive a telepathic message with only one command. Kill. Of course Minato however couldn't, thus deleting the memory as he never actually got the memory. With Naruto giving all those around him a rather blank look, Naruto tilted his head slowly. What? I'm just saying how it is. Replied Naruto as he continued to lay against the tree. As he ignored all the shocked looks from the other students, with a good few glaring at him for gaining the chance to date one of the daughters of the. It also wasn't long when he suddenly felt his hoodie be grabbed onto by the throat via a pissed Namikaze named Kasumi, who was now glaring hatefully into his concealed face with crimson eyes, much to his uttermost amusement, as his own crimson eyes shined within their concealed hoodie. How dare you? You could have just said no or better yet no thanks. Maybe later. You team. How dare you hurt my sister's feelings? Shouted Kasumi with a ferocious look on her face as she clenched her open hand into a fist before sending it towards Naruto, who simply tilted his hooded head a bit, causing Kasumi's right hand to smash into the tree behind him with a thud. Lazily, roaming his eyes over towards the dent that was beneath Kasumi's fist, Naruto let out a small whistle. Wow. Nice punch. Really it was so great I felt myself die. Spoke Naruto sarcastically as he simply raised a lazy arm towards his chest before gripping the area his heart would be. Ah. I'm so scared that I'm going to have a heart attack. No. I'm dying. Continued to joke Naruto as he faked his death by letting his limbs go slack within Kasumi's grip. However, it was because of this that she attempted to throw another punch into Naruto's gut, only for said teen to disappear in a plump of smoke, with Naruto appearing a few feet away. Glancing over towards the teacher, Naruto held his hand up slightly, causing Iruka to give Naruto a rather odd stare before nodding towards him. Hey sensei, you mind assessing mine and Kasumi-sen's taijutsu against each other? If you let us, I'll show you my face at the end of it. Promise. Shouted Naruto excitedly towards the teacher, who simply blinked for a moment before glancing down towards his list, where only Ino was left for throws. Scratching the back of his head, the older man nodded. Very well. However, if either of you two are injured during your skirmish, then it will be your fault should you fail the ninjutsu portion of the exam. Clear? Asked the man, getting a nod from Naruto as he turned his head towards Kasumi before ginning beneath his hood. Well princess. What's it gonna be? You wanna fight? Asked Naruto with a smirk, causing the girl to simply walk up to him before shoving him aside slightly as she made her way towards the training ground. Continuing to hold his smirk, Naruto followed behind with a half-lidded gaze as he followed behind his sister, who unknown to her, was making Naruto rather amused from the little interactions between himself and her. It didn't take all that long before Naruto found himself standing directly across from his sister, who was now standing in their father's basic taijutsu stance, of which was modified slightly for Kasumi's body type and style. Tapping his foot vertically against the floor with his hands wedged into his hoodie pockets, the blonde-haired teen let out a small grin as he heard his teacher finish off his little rules list, which mainly consisted of not hurting the other past the point of knockout. Along with a restriction to complete taijutsu only, no ninjutsu or weapons allowed. Keeping his grin on his hidden face, Naruto narrowed his crimson eyes as he watched his teacher swiftly bring his hand down in a chopping motion. And when he did, he felt a rush of air go past him as he moved towards his sister with his fist ready. Let's go. Chapter 7. That's how you treat a lady, treat a lady, treat a lady, let a real man pick up a slack and treat you with respect, sung out a male voice as it happily moved around a small field, drawing the attention of all those around it. Shut up and fight back you bastard. Screamed a feminine voice as it chased after the owner of the original voice. And they say, chivalry is dead, continued the voice, still sounding cheerful as it moved around, allowing all those listening to hear the song as the male-sounding voice sung out without a care in the world. Fight back team. Screamed a blonde-haired girl with blue eyes as she desperately threw punch after punch towards a white-hooded teen who had his hands stuffed into his pockets as he cheerfully sung with only a grin being shown on his face as the hood hid everything but his mouth and chin. Girl. Just let your hair down, the world is our playground, sang the voice out once more, dodging a fist towards their chest with a simple twist, which then flowed into a spin that ran along the blonde-haired girl's arm, before sending them behind the owner of the fist. PHH. Screamed the girl as her final irritation restraint had snapped as she quickly spun on her heel and sent a long kick towards the singing male's unguarded and open right arm. Seeing this, the male teen hidden within his hoodie simply let out a small smirk before moving his body ever so slightly so that when the leg finally made contact, it simply followed the hooded teen's arm up and over his head in a smooth motion, thus sending the kicker off balance as they overextended their reach. Grinning at this, the white-hooded teen simply moved his butt backwards a bit, thus hitting the blonde-haired girl's own bosom with his own, sending her onto the ground due to the rather awkward position she found herself in after her kick. And that's how you treat a lady, finished off the male teen as he heard the sound of a thump coming from behind him. Turning around, the hooded teen let out a small smile as he came upon the sight of a glaring Kasumi Namikaze, who was now sending daggers towards him as she pushed off the ground and aimed a fist to his nose. Waiting till the last moment, Naruto snaked his head to the right slightly before going for a headbutt, which actually managed to hit home as Kasumi's nose came into contact with Naruto's hidden forehead, thus sending her sprawling on the ground as blood began to drip from her now broken nose. Taking a single set of steps back, the blonde-haired teen watched as the girl held her broken nose for a few moments before surrounding her hand with a pale green color, which then readily healed her once moments ago broken nose to a perfectly shaped one, thus drawing a whistle from Naruto. Nice. Even being it didn't stop you from gaining amazing amounts of chakra control. Although, I kinda doubt you would be able to heal anything larger than minor fractures or cut-slashed muscles and skin. Still, kudos goes to you for your skill. Spoke Naruto with a grin still riding upon his face as he continued to keep his hands shoved into his pockets as he fought against his sister, who was now silently glaring at him. Seeing this, Naruto shook his head for a few moments before removing said hands from his pockets, showing his hands since the start of his sparring match against Kasumi, who simply moved into another taijutsu stance, of which made Naruto sweat drop for a moment. Is this another form of me practically saying the gloves are off or something? Because I didn't mean to do that if I pulled my hands out of my pockets. Replied Naruto as he waved his right hand in a side-to-side motion, causing the girl across from him to narrow her eyes. How did you attain your skills? Of which are on par, if not superior to mine in certain aspects. Who taught you what you know? Questioned the girl, causing Naruto to simply let out a small unmuffled yawn as he slouched a bit. Seriously? I'm self-taught after getting training from Yamato-sensei, the Falcons and just good old experience in my life before this one. Replied Naruto, keeping his past life's knowledge a complete and utter secret. However, this only seemed to irritate Kasumi more as she charged at Naruto with more speed than before, mildly surprising Naruto as he let out a small smile. Bullshit. Screamed the girl as she threw a straight punch towards Naruto's face once more, only for Naruto to catch her fist without a strain of effort. And with a grin still in place, the teen opened his mouth. Language. Shouted Naruto as he whipped his arm to the left, sending the blonde-haired girl flying through the air in which she caught herself before using her natural and trained acrobatics to quickly latch onto the ground before using it as a surface of which she pushed off, in which sent the girl heading for Naruto at an incredible rate. Grinning, Naruto actively dodged the charging Kasumi with a twist once more before catching the flying girl by the ankle, of which he then proceeded to drag across his body, halting Kasumi's short flight before smashing his knee into the girl's gut as she was suspended just above Naruto's waist from when he pulled her ankle. Watching as she let out a cough, Naruto clenched the ankle still in his grasp before twisting his body in a circular motion, sending Kasumi spinning along with him before Naruto finally let go of the girl's ankle, which then sent the girl hurling towards the training field's markers. However, much to Naruto's pleasant surprise, Kasumi seemed to recover once more as she used chakra to grab onto the floor and stick her in place, similar in the way that he originally survived being BBQ''D by Kagumi when he first met her during his mission. Letting out a small clap at the move, Naruto watched as the girl once more charged at him, and this time, Naruto also went in for the charge. Once more, Kasumi seemed to go for a straight punch towards his face, as such, Naruto prepared to sail under the attack, however, to his actual or rather amazed shock, Kasumi actually used her punch as a feint as she lowered her fist across his body before sending her legs up into the air. And when she did, she used the hand she was originally going to punch him with as a pivoting point as she swirled her body on the floor, sending a snapping kick towards Naruto's chest. Letting out an amused grin, Naruto proceeded to bend his back at a perfect 90-degree angle, thus dodging the helicopter kick, however, that left him open for the second attack, which was a heel drop with the added velocity of the helicopter kick spin. Widening his grin, Naruto quickly bent his back even further before throwing his hands out onto the ground in a handstand position, of which he then used as a balance as he used his legs to swing out from where he originally stood before using them to kick the heel drop away from his face. However, using her hand as a pivot once more, Kasumi used Naruto's kick to increase her spinning speed once more, this time aiming for a sweep at Naruto's head. Blinking at the rather oddly creative or more precisely impressive unpredictable attack, Naruto pushed his hands against the floor, sending him into the air while also upside down. At this, the blonde-haired girl smirks as she uses the sweep to spin herself into a crouching position before she pushes off the ground with a fist directed at Naruto's unprotected face. "Good job," muttered Naruto as Kasumi's fist edged closer and closer towards his hidden face. However, just as it was about to hit, Naruto swiped his hand across, deflecting the hit before he used his hand to grasp onto Kasumi's forearm before using her as a balance. Dragging or rather pulling Kasumi's arm in a random direction, Kasumi's body moved beneath Naruto's still slightly airborne body before he used the rather awkward position of both his and Kasumi's bodies to quickly move into a flip, thus sending Kasumi away while also balancing himself from the throw. Landing on his 2 feet with a small thud, the blonde-haired teenager let out a small smirk while dusting off his jacket as he looked towards Kasumi, who was now letting out a small gasp as she grabbed onto her stomach slightly. "How the hell are you doing that?" questioned Kasumi, only getting a smirk from Naruto as he wagged a single finger towards the slightly panting girl. Now, do you want me to ask about your secrets?" asked Naruto mockingly, causing the girl to narrow her eyes. Before shaking her head and raising her arm as she looked towards Iruka, who was now bug-eyed at the rather impressive display of fighting between the two genin. Sure, one of the genin happened to be the daughter of the yondaime, but the other? He was just a student who popped up on this exact day, and yet, he seemed to be on par, if not better than Kasumi Namikaze, who was the stronger sister between herself and Mito, who wasn't all that far behind her older sister. It was actually believed that only Sasuke seemed to be able to keep up with them at all, and yet, there was another student who appeared from thin air who could not only keep up but also surpass the blonde daughter of the yondaime. Swallowing the lump in his throat, Iruka nodded towards Kasumi. "Yes, Kasumi-sama?" asked Iruka, causing the girl to let out a small sigh. "I would like to give up. At this rate, I would probably injure myself to a point that it could affect me during the ninjutsu portion when going through hand signs. Although that seems very unlikely, there is still a chance of that happening, and I would rather get full marks than only a few," replied the girl, causing the students and teacher to fall silent in shock. Before actually mentally agreeing with her statement. Nodding, Iruka lifted a single arm up before pointing it towards Naruto, who was now crossing his arms with an irritated aura around him as he glared in the direction of a smirking Kasumi. "And the winner is?" voiced out Iruka, waiting for something specific to happen, of which Naruto knew what. Like he said, at the end of the fight, he would show his face to the group. And since it was the end of the fight. Letting out an audible sigh, the blonde-haired teen reached up towards the top of his hoodie before grasping onto it gently. Giving a sparing glance towards Kasumi, Naruto let out a small smirk. "Are you sure you want me to show who I am, Kasumi? Won't it hurt your reputation or something now that you lost to me?" asked Naruto out loud, only gaining a small shake of the head from the girl as she crossed her arms under her developing bust. "To be honest, I'm a little miffed about what you had done to my sister, but now I actually have a true rival, since Sasuke was closer towards Mito's strength, thus allowing the two of them to be rivals," replied the blonde-haired girl as her blue eyes shined slightly, causing Naruto to chuckle for a moment before releasing a small sigh. "Well then. Hope your pride holds up," chuckled Naruto as he slowly and agonizingly began to pull back his hood, revealing more of his face, which now was just past the upper part of his lips. But Satsuki and Sasuke, there was nothing much to say, the twins simply gave each other a bored stare. Over-exaggerating blonde. Gato and Kushina. "Oh. I can't wait to see the face of the person keeping up with Kasumi-chan. Maybe if it's a boy I could get them to hook up." Giggled out Kushina as she imagined her baby girl blushing over the possible hooded person, who she was almost positive was a male due to the voice and body structure. Gato simply let out a small grin as her eyes shifted into their Sharingan form, ready and waiting to record everyone's faces. "Hokage office. Well, isn't it interesting? We get to see what the brat looks like." Droned out a bored-sounding voice, not all that bothered or interested if the orange book being held in his hand said anything. "Haha. Geez, Kakashi, who knows, this could be a kid of yours that you never knew about, maybe even the reincarnation of Hashirama or something." Chuckled out Asuma as he waited for the teen to pull down their hood. "Yosh. Let's find out who the child is. To be as good as Kasumi-chan and most likely better than Mito-chan, they must have a large fountain of youth," shouted Guy excitedly as he too watched the screen in excitement. "Ha. As if, I reckon the girl went easy on them," replied a voice in the back, which happened to be the voice of one Anko Mitarashi as she chewed on a single dango stick near the back. Who knows? And all we've seen is their taijutsu ability, which speaks nothing about their other aspects. Spoke Kurenai, getting a few nods from those around her as they took what she said into account. The hero of the story is a mysterious hooded figure who has the attention of two twin sisters. Yes. That will be a goldmine. Shouted a perverted voice, gaining a small twitch from two occupants of the room. One being Minato, who gave his sensei a glare, while the other happened to be a now irritated Tsunade, who smashed said pervert into the ground with a large bump forming on his head. Crossing her arms, Tsunade glanced towards the white-hooded teen for a second before shaking her head. Maybe I could get a full-time apprentice again like I did too, depending on their control I mean. Spoke Tsunade, getting a few looks of shock which then quickly died down as the pervert sprang back up onto his feet with a smile. Ah. Why waste your time with a hooded kid? You've seen how much potential Kasumi-chan and Mito-chan have. Just wait, when the two of them hit their prime, they will be the strongest shinobi to live. Boasted Jiraiya as he let out a laugh, gaining a few murmurs of agreement from a few jonins in the room. However, during this, Minato simply sat there silently as he watched the teen pull his hood down. Who are you? Questioned Minato internally as he narrowed his blue eyes. Back with the genins. Slowly, ever so slowly, Naruto continued to pull his hood back down, much to the irritation of all those watching, as they watched more and more of Naruto's face come into view. However, just before Naruto got towards his cheeks, where a set of hidden fox whiskers were, the teen let out a small sneeze, sending the hood back over his head, at which he let go of his hood and rubbed his nose. Holding his free hand up, the teen let out a sheepish smile, which was the only thing showing along with his chin once more. Sorry, my bad, I totally didn't mean to sneeze just then. I was planning to be a bit later when I got a bit more of my hood off. So yeah, sorry about that. But you know, second time's the charm right? Laughed out Naruto, getting a set amount of glares from everyone around him, including the two females in the trees and the people all camped up in the Hokage's office. This time, Naruto actually decided to pull his hood down as he gently grasped the fabric of his hood. Letting out one final smile, the teen swiftly brought down his hood while also unveiling his whiskers towards everyone. It didn't even take a few seconds before a mass amount of shock ran throughout all those who were staring at Naruto as he gave Iruka a cheeky smirk. My name? Naruto Hayabusa, nice to meet ya. Grinned Naruto as he let his now blue eyes stare towards Iruka's shocked brown ones. Makoto and Kushina. Naruto, BB but. How? What? What the hell just happened Makoto-chan? Screamed out Kushina as she shifted her head from Naruto towards her friend, who simply gave the red-head Uzumaki a large smile. I told you he was surprised. Replied Makoto, gaining a stunned look from Kushina. Before she remembered about how she said she would pair her daughter up with a white-hooded teen. Which happened to be her son Naruto. Shivering slightly at the really odd thought, Kushina seemed to realize something as she looked over towards Makoto. Wait, did he say his name was Naruto Hayabusa? Hokage office, Naruto? Asked Minato as he stared directly towards the grinning visage of his son as he stood there out in the open with his blonde hair and blue eyes staring out towards Iruka, who seemed to be in a shocked stupid state as he stared towards the kid who held the Kyuubi's soul. Thud. The sound of something hitting the floor was heard and of course, because of a sudden sound, everyone directed their attention towards it. And what did everyone in the room see? Well, they saw a shocked Kakashi as he stared towards the orb with his book now out of his hand and laying down gently on the floor. It was safe to say, there was also a cigarette on the floor. Along with a multitude of items, including a dango stick and some other basic things they held in their hands throughout the meeting. Although, the weirdest item found was a stretchy green skin-tight suit. However, through all of this, there seemed to be one person in the room who was more amused if anything about the identity of the teen as they stood there out in the open. Well. I guess I could see if the kid wants to be my apprentice in the medical field. Grinned out a laughing Tsunade as she stared at the orb where the kid was now waving a hand in front of Iruka's face in order for him to snap out of his stupor. Funny enough, the sound of giggles actually snapped everyone out of their own shock as Jiraiya was quickly writing down in his little notebook. The mysterious teen is then revealed to be their long-lost twin. Through this, there is heartbreak, tragedy, and emotional baggage that rides along the shoulders of the girls as they try to become one with their own brother. Yes. This is it. Giggled a happy Jiraiya as he finished writing in his small notepad. But just as he did, he was met with a pissed-off Tsunade who now had a glowing blue fist. Seeing Tsunade's fist, the white-haired pervert blinked owlishly towards his comrade before letting out a small tear from the corner of his eyes. Mercy? Asked Jiraiya, only getting a larger glare from Tsunade. No. Replied Tsunade as she slammed her fist against Jiraiya's head, which then propelled his body straight into the ground, leaving him indented into the floor. However, it was during this that someone realized something. Wait. Where's Hokage-sama? Questioned a random, gaining a few looks of disbelief from everyone in the room as they finally noticed that the chair was empty. It didn't take long for a now relaxed Kakashi to simply point towards the ball on the table, probably seeing this with his own eyes. But soon to be Genin's. Come on. It's not that shocking, right? I mean, I am a super cool guy and everything. Even ask Satsuki-chan over there for evidence if you want. Spoke Naruto as he clicked his fingers in front of the teacher's face multiple times, only for Iruka's face to stay the exact same. Shaking his head as he let out a small sigh, Naruto turned towards his former opponent, that being Kasumi, before letting out a single sweat drop at the sight of the girl, seemingly sending out torrents of chakra as she attempted to dispel a. And considering the fact that she originally thought he was a waste of space and all, it kinda made sense that the one person who whipped her ass was the one person she utterly thought was a waste. It would seem like the world was ending for their perspective. I think you broke them, Naru-kun. Replied a voice sarcastically towards his left, drawing Naruto's attention as he stared at his friend for a few more moments before nodding. Probably. But at least this way Sasuke's fangirls are too shocked to irritate him. And yeah. That's really all the positives here, Satsuki. Replied Naruto with a smile, gaining a small nod from Satsuki as she stood in front of him with a grin. Well, at least you can say you shocked them to the core with your performance against Kasumi. Spoke Satsuki, gaining a nod from Naruto as opened his mouth for a second, only for him to suddenly fall silent as he felt a person behind him. Turning his head slightly, Naruto let out a nervous thumbs up. Hey there Tusan. Chapter 8. Okay. It's official. Hokage-sama is a dick. Muttered an irritated teen as he stared at the lone headband within his grasp with a narrow twitchy glare. Panning his eyes over towards his small desk beside his bed, the teen let out a small growl. Genin candidate Naruto Hayabusa, should he pass his Genin exam, which will be held with Team 7 the next day at 10 am, will be placed on the reserves due to not having enough squad members and teachers available to train him. He will be able to go on missions should said missions require a larger force of shinobis, while also not needing a more advanced unit. Signed, Minato Namikaze the 4th. Glaring towards the letter, the blonde-haired teen let out a loud yell for a brief moment before shaking his head and letting his shoulders slag as he stared down towards his crossed legs and blue blanket that laid underneath him. I guess I should have seen it coming after what I did. Thought Naruto with a small chuckle as he remembered the shocked face of his father now rather than as he pulled out a certain little piece of paper. Said paper was now sealed on his person due to the memories it would give him should he ever look at it. Shaking his head at the thought, the teen glanced up towards his ceiling before letting out a large sigh while rubbing some of the sleep out from his right eye. But seriously? Not only did he put me in the reserves, but he also made Satsuki-chan a 4th member of Team 7 led by Kakashi. Kakashi, the guy who reads porn everywhere. What's worse is because Satsuki's a pervert, she might even do it. Shouted Naruto as he fell backwards onto his bed and gave his ceiling a crimson-eyed stare. Oh well, I'm sure Mikoto-chan would kill Kakashi before he could corrupt her, and since Sasuke's there, I doubt she would jump at the chance to read that smut out in the open. Speaking of which, I have to get going soon. Muttered Naruto as he blankly continued to stare towards the ceiling. Lifting his right hand up towards his face, which was bare and open without his usual black glove on it, the teen couldn't help but simply stare silently at his own hand. I know that it looks the same as my own. But this is another body altogether. What could have happened to Naruto? Did the pressure of being a failure push him over the edge? Questioned Naruto as he watched as he moved his hand around a bit before clenching it shut, ignoring the odd tingle as he felt a slight shock from his hand before shutting his eyes. Oh well. From what Kurama told me, the kid didn't deserve the life he had lived. No child should have a family ignore him and then have others not only ridicule him but also curse his name for something out of his control. Naruto Namikaze. For wherever you are, I hope you are resting peacefully. Thought Naruto silently with his eyes still closed as his mind and body seemed to relax for a few moments before the teen let out a small sigh. Before you knock on the door, I know you're there. Grumbled out Naruto tiredly as he opened his tired crimson eyes, which he had decided to keep over his body's original blue eyes, before turning his head slightly towards the window, where a blank-looking Kakashi sat crouched on the balcony of his apartment. Giving the teen an eye smile, the man gave a small wave. Yo. So. Mind explaining to me why you aren't at the training field, Naruto? Asked Kakashi with his signature eye smile, of which still slightly gave Naruto the shivers as he actually had no feasible clue as to how he made his eye muscles do that, before giving the jonin a small smirk. Any reason why you haven't been to the training ground yet either? Questioned Naruto, gaining a confused look from Kakashi for a moment. Before he let out a small grin. Well, aren't you a smart cookie? How'd you know? Asked Kakashi, causing Naruto to simply sit up and shrug his shoulders before pointing towards him. If I said that you still have a nightcap on your head, would you believe me? Asked Naruto, gaining a shake from Kakashi, causing the teen to let out a small chuckle before raising his hands up into a surrender life fashion. Fine, fine. You're always 3 hours late to everything, less it is a very important mission. As such, I made sure to scribble out the 7 on the note and replace it with a 10 to make sure I didn't forget that you would be 3 hours late," replied Naruto as he stretched his back and neck slightly as the Jonin continued to sit in silence. Before giving him a thumbs up. "You, my young little friend, might be someone I could find interesting," replied Kakashi as he propped himself down into a leaning position as he laid against the balcony's metal fence. Shrugging his shoulders, Naruto stretched his arms for a few more moments, making sure to get all the kinks from his body quickly before standing up, showing his form being completely nude, aside from a set of fox boxers, of which Kakashi gave him a raised eyebrow. "The Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Wearing fox boxers?" questioned Kakashi, getting another shrug from Naruto as he gave the man a half-assed stare. Suspicious man standing at a random balcony staring at a nude teen with only a set of boxers. Spoke Naruto as he went over towards his small cupboard before pulling out a black form-fitting singlet along with a set of long black pants, which had a set of white bandages attached to the hip so they could easily be used and accessed. Getting the pants on first before pulling the duo bandages, the teen quickly wrapped up the ends of his pants, making sure to get his ankles and feet properly wrapped before pulling a set of thin shinobi sandals out from under his bed, of which he then put on. Rolling his ankles around a bit, the teen gave out a small nod before slipping on the black singlet before grabbing onto what appeared to be a Magatama necklace, which had 6 crimson stones on it, something the teen had recently purchased the day before. Turning back towards Kakashi, who had taken the time of Naruto changing to pull out his porn and start reading, the teen gave the silver-haired man a contemplating look for a moment. Before lifting his right hand and sending a small burst of chakra into it, causing the man to momentarily divert his attention towards his book in favor of the teen whose apartment he was chilling at. And when he did, he saw what appeared to be a set of onigiri held within a small container and said the small container was thrown towards him by the teen. Hatching the container, Kakashi moved to question the teen, but was soon cut off by said teen raising a single hand up while rolling his crimson eyes. "Take it. From what I can tell, your eyes have a small set of bags underneath them. So, I'm guessing you haven't actually eaten this morning, since you probably got up somewhere between 8 to 9, which actually cuts in on the time you would actually use to read porn. And since I'm sure your porn is more precious to you than food, you haven't gotten anything to eat yet," replied Naruto, waving Kakashi off as he summoned a single onigiri in his right hand before stuffing it into his mouth before quickly swallowing it. Walking towards the balcony where his dumbstruck instructor sat, the teen gave the man a wink. "Sorry sensei, but I got a dash. See you there," spoke Naruto, giving the man a large smirk before hopping over the edge where he then fell onto the roof of another building before quickly dashing off, jumping from roof to roof, leaving a slightly shocked Kakashi behind. Glancing down towards what appeared to be a small box with 6 different onigiri, the silver-haired man let out a small chuckle before popping the lid off and grabbing one of the rice balls before taking a bite out. Enjoying what apparently was a teriyaki rice ball, the man let out a tired sigh. All that from a glance. The kids are definitely interesting. Sensei should have calmed down by now. But still. "Would you do it, Naruto?" questioned Kakashi as he continued to eat his rice balls. Glancing into the rather simple bedroom of Naruto Hayabusa, as he was now called, the Jonin couldn't help but chuckle. "Yes, you are interesting," laughed out Kakashi slightly before lifting his icha up to his face as he took another bite. "Orumi-chan, you dirty girl. Going all over Naruto like that?" giggled the man as he continued to eat, an eye smile plastered onto his face as he somehow continued to read. Training Ground 7. Usan still coming to terms with what happened yesterday, and Kachan has spent the last 10 hours simply staring blankly towards an apparent blank room that hadn't been lived in for the past 3 years. And the dope. The baka. The waste of space. Growled out a silent blonde-haired girl as she glared towards a single tree with a look of pure hate as her mind seemed to focus on one single thing. That single thing happened to be her brother, who distanced himself from her family. The Namikaze family. Continuing her glaring, the blonde-haired girl flared her chakra out slightly as she clenched her right fist tightly in anger as her eyes seemed to show a ghostly figure fighting against her in a jokish fashion, taunting her at any and every moment as she desperately attempted to fight against them. That baka. That waste of space. He destroyed me. Me. A prodigy like my father. How? How did a dead last chakra-less bastard beat me? How does he have chakra now? How damn it? Screamed mentally Kasumi as she remembered herself surrendering towards the once mysterious hooded shinobi, only to watch in shock as the face of her worthless brother appeared in place of her mighty opponent, one of which she thought could possibly rival her and push her into becoming stronger. But the image of her worthless brother being the one to do it. It was impossible, it was an insult. Her brother, who didn't have any formal shinobi training from her family, along with any other shinobi apparently if what her father's report said were true, who also went to a civilian school, which wasn't shown any form of fighting. It just wasn't possible at all. But he did say he was self-taught. Did her worthless brother really train himself to that degree? To the degree that she herself was unable to keep up? It couldn't be true, right? Shaking her head, Kasumi narrowed her blue eyes for a single moment before letting out a small sigh as she closed her eyes. I'll get the answer today. Let's see what you have done. Though Kasumi, with a small bout of irritation within her mind as she pictured the white-hooded teen, revealed himself to be Naruto, smirking in all his glory. However, besides the irritated Kasumi stood a now grinning Mito Namikaze, who was staring directly ahead of herself as she felt her blood pumping and flowing from head to toe as her mind replayed over a single image over and over. Said image was the revealing of the hidden white-hooded teen who was exposed to being her brother, or rather ex-brother Naruto. Oh, Naruto-kun. My favorite pet. I can't wait for when I hold you down and have my way with you. It will be perfect, holding the one who broke my heart yesterday, begging for me to pleasure them as I stand above their defeated form. I can't wait for Naruto-kun. I can't wait for you to become mine. And since we are legally not under the same family anymore. Giggled a red-haired teen as she felt her cheeks flush in a slight shade of red as her hands moved up her body to wrap themselves around her waist for a moment before falling back down towards her sides, leaving the still smirking face of one Mito Namikaze as she continued to stare blankly out into the world as her mind went over towards her ex-brother Naruto. While this was happening, Satsuki and Sasuke couldn't help but send disturbed stares towards the two Namikaze sisters as they could simply feel what they were thinking, one of which made it a lot worse for the two as they didn't know how that was possible. Glancing over towards her left, Satsuki nudged her brother. This isn't normal, right? Questioned Satsuki, gaining a nod from Sasuke in return. Seeing the nod, the girl looked away and crossed her arms under her bust. Okay. Just checking. Returned Satsuki as she fell silent as she stared up towards the clouded sky above, with her eyes relaxing into a half-lidded stare. Where are you, Naruto-kun? Questioned the girl as she stared silently upwards. With Naruto. I'm telling you, if I was to just make a house it would be easier. Yes, I can already see the design. Simple, bleak and boring. Oh? So you don't want a room in the house I could create with my power? So what? How would creating a house from your energy do anything to strengthen your control? I dunno, I think houses are awesome and in some way it would work out. I've completely lost track about what we were talking about. You're not the only Kurama. Didn't I have something to do today? Questioned a bored Naruto as he walked out of a small dango shop with a single stick of dango sitting within his right forefinger and thumb. Casually walking away from the place, the teen couldn't help but narrow his brow for a second while tilting his head, causing a single object to sail past his head. Okay. What was I doing before? I think I was going somewhere before I needed the toilet. Then after a very satisfying release of bodily liquids, I decided to go to a weapons store in order to take a quick browse. Before I was kicked out. After which I bombed the place, which brought me to being hungry, thus having the dango. Yep, still don't remember. Thought Naruto blankly as the past hour's events played through his mind as he continued to stretch his neck and body at random points, avoiding sharp knives from stabbing into his back and head as he continued to walk a seamlessly random direction. You fox bastard. Come to my shop again and I'll kill you. Screamed a voice behind Naruto, causing the teen to blank for a second. Before clicking his fingers. Right. I was going to grab some female clothes for you, Satsuki. Shouted Naruto happily as he walked towards a single store that was in the corner of his eye. What? Asked Kurama, causing Naruto to mentally blanch for a moment. Before letting out a whistle as he glanced around nervously. I mean, I was going to look for clothes for Satsuki as an early birthday present. Replied Naruto quickly as he scratched the back of his head with a large grin plastered onto his face as he walked, completely ignoring the glaring people around him as they whispered about him. Continuing his walk towards the shop, the teen couldn't help but feel a small nagging feeling in the back of his head for a few moments, but alas, like all problems the teen had, he could simply brush them off till the last minute, where he then either disintegrated the irritation or flat out ignores it. However, as he got within reach of the store, Naruto couldn't help feeling a shiver crawl up his spine as he felt his hand grasp the door handle. Getting over his rather odd shiver, the teen opened the door. And when he did, he couldn't help but sweat drop as he stared directly into the eyes of a red-haired woman who was giving him a blank shocked stare. Naruto? Questioned the woman, causing the teen to blink slowly before raising his right hand up slightly. Hey there, Kushina-sama. Nice day, right? Questioned Naruto as he gave a slight wave of his hand as he let out a small awkward smile out to Kushina, of which nodded slightly. Before widening her eyes. And gaining a dark look within her violet-colored eyes. Giving a small dark smile towards the blonde-haired teen in front of her, Kushina couldn't help but let out a dark smile, causing the teen to gulp as his body seemed to naturally react to a dangerous individual. Continuing with her smile and evil chuckle, the woman shut her eyes and tilted her head slightly. Now? Please tell me if I am wrong. But when did you get a document to leave our family? Asked Kushina in a happy tone, causing the teen to give her a blank stare. Before feeling another shiver run down his spine. Crap. Chapter 9. Why did you do it, Naruto? I mean, if you had just told us that we were pushing you away. Spoke in a solemn-sounding Kushina as her long red hair fluttered in the wind behind her as she watched her son, or rather ex-son Naruto, walk slightly in front of her, with his hands shoved in his pockets as he felt the sun bear down on him from above as he glanced back towards his mother. Kushina-sama, we both know that it's only now after I left that you realized that I was being pushed away. If you were honestly back in that same position years ago with me not gone and separated from you and Hokage-sama, would you truly believe that my words were true? And not just an attempt to guilt-trip the two of you? Because from what I believe, I know you wouldn't have believed me back then. No matter how many times I say it. Replied Naruto as he roamed his eyes around the area, watching as people turned their heads away from him and Kushina as they walked towards the front of the village in order to get to the training ground where his exam with Kakashi and Team 7 was being held. Or if he had to say anything. Silence was the response Naruto earned from the woman as she lowered her head down in shame, unwilling to speak the harsh truth Naruto had laid out for her bluntly just moments ago, and as the silence prolonged itself, so too did the awkwardness of the situation between the ex-mother and son duo. Eventually, the teen couldn't help but want to end the silence, not wanting to have such an atmosphere around him any longer. Just so you know Kushina-sama, you still are my mother, and Hokage-sama is still my father, no matter how you look at it. All this legal document of mine does basically just gives me my own identity to form out into the shinobi world outside of the village. Something that would have been near impossible as I would be constantly compared to Hokage-sama for every feat I achieved. Either way, I'm still your son Kushina-sama, you don't have to be so tense around me, what was done was due to my own decision. I hope you can accept that. Murmured Naruto as he turned himself around, his eyes coming into contact with Kushina's downtrodden ones for a brief moment before the woman quickly removed her own eyes from Naruto's gaze. Even still. Murmured a disheartened Kushina as she continued to stare towards the floor in silence for a few seconds as her mind replayed over what Naruto had just said. But before any conclusive thought could appear, the blonde-haired teen decided to at least make the situation between himself and Kushina somewhat doable. Scratching the back of his head as he did so, the teen gave the woman a small smile. Okay then. How about you come watch the Genin exam Team 7 and I have to take it now and just see how far my efforts have gotten me. That way, you can see why I think this is the right choice for me. How about Kushina-sama? Asked Naruto as he watched his former mother, to this version of Naruto's body at least, seemingly lost in thought for a few moments before finally coming to an agreement with a nod of her head before she relaxed her form slightly. Okay Naruto-kun. But I want to make this into a bet. Replied the woman, drawing a curious stare from Naruto as his blue eyes focused on his mother's own set for a second before nodding. Very well. What are your conditions Kushina-sama? Returned Naruto as he continued to walk at a relaxed and leisurely pace, Kushina following behind him not even a few steps behind. If you don't pass your examination and prove to me that you will be fine on your own, you have to come back home with me, Minato, Kasumi and Mito. Also, you have to drop Sama from the end of my name. Just call me Kachan like you used to. Muttered Kushina in a soft tone as her eyes shone with determination as she watched Naruto stop dead in his tracks and look towards her before letting out a tired sigh as his blue eyes narrowed themselves slightly for a moment before returning to their regular size. Fine. But if I win, you cannot ask me to return to the Namikaze household and you will give up on me returning to your family. Along that, should I win, I will only call you Kushina-san and to finish off. I cannot be questioned as to how I obtained my abilities and if they are created from some way. The abilities I have are my own and will remain my own. Do we have a deal with Kushina-sama? Questioned Naruto as he and Kushina locked eyes for what felt like hours before the woman narrowed her brow before nodding. Very well, Sachi. Returned Kushina with a smile, full bent on having Naruto return home where he belonged, where she could now fix her mistake. Her very costly mistake that she was stupid enough to let happen. Hearing that, the blonde-haired teen let out a wide smile before placing a hand on Kushina's arm and with a small wink, the two disappeared in a burst of wind. Hokage Tower. You heard the deal Kakashi. I don't care how hard you fight, but make sure Naruto comes home. It should be pretty easy for someone of your caliber. Just bring him back to us. Muttered Minato as he sat there with a crystal orb in front of him, his student watching the man fall silent before giving an eye smile. I'll try my best. Replied the man with a puff of smoke, leaving behind an irritated Minato as he watched his student leave some leaves from his shunshin for no reason. Damn it Kakashi. Grumbled Minato as his eyes moved towards the all-seeing orb once again. Training Ground 7 and in a marvelous entrance, Naruto Hayabusa. shouted Naruto happily as he and Kushina appeared in a vortex of wind, sending leaves flying and scattering around them as his technique calmed itself down. It was also not a few moments after the leaves all calmed down did Naruto get a clean punch to the face courteously of an irritated Satsuki, who could now be seen with various leaves of all sizes and shades of green wedged between each strand of hair on her head, Sasuke having something similar with leaves covering one of his eyes and jutting out from his mouth. Mito and Kasumi, however, their forms were simply covered from head to toe in leaves, showing how intentional the appearance of the blonde-haired teen was set out. Of course, Kushina being with Naruto as he used his technique was oblivious to this as she simply watched her son getting beaten the crap out of by his friend Satsuki, while Sasuke watched on with a silent evil grin on his face. "Pa-chan!" screamed a voice as it plowed its way out of the leaves covering their form, revealing a disgruntled Mito as she and her long red hair poked itself out from the leaves storm surrounding both her and Kasumi, who had managed to escape not moments after. Giving a caring smile towards the two girls, Kushina walked up to them before opening her arms wide, inviting the two girls to give her a hug, of which they happily accepted, while also ignoring the sounds of Naruto getting the shit kicked out of him by Satsuki, who was now enhancing her body with her chakra. Smiling down towards her two girls, Kushina let out a small giggle as she slowly picked out a few leaves from their hair. "So are you two ready for your Genin test? Did you make sure you got all your equipment on hand?" asked Kushina, watching as her two daughters nodded their heads. "Yes, Ka-chan. I made sure Mito didn't leave any of her scrolls behind, so she should be stacked up," replied Kasumi proudly as she gave her mother a beaming smile, gaining one back from Kushina as she rubbed the blonde-haired girl's head for a moment before turning her attention towards the pouting Mito. "Did you make sure your stubborn sister ate her breakfast, Mito-chan? You know how she simply loves to follow the rules unlike us troublemakers," asked Kushina with a grin as she and her mini-me gained a wide smile before looking towards Kasumi, who let out a small huff of annoyance before letting out a sigh. "Sensei said not to eat. So I didn't. If you can't trust your superiors in their decisions, then you can't trust anyone aside from yourself and your direct family. So, until proven otherwise, I will follow my orders no matter what you try to tell me," replied Kasumi, getting a bored look from both Mito and Kushina for a moment before the mother of three let the two out from the group hug before turning her attention back towards Naruto, who was now sitting on the floor with a small lump on his forehead while listening to Satsuki tell Naruto about the fundamentals about how her hair takes a long time to do. And when she saw that, Kushina couldn't help but feel a sincere feeling enter her chest as she watched her son, something that she realized she hadn't done in a long time, always being occupied with something else at the time, something she would deem more important than Naruto almost constantly. "Did I really miss out on my son growing up like this? Just look at him. I never realized he was like this at all. How could I have decided anything was basically more important than my own son?" questioned Kushina quietly as she watched Naruto beg for forgiveness from Satsuki while ignoring the irritated Sasuke as he began to shake the rest of the leaves out from his shinobi sandals, giving Naruto a stink eye throughout the long and drawn-out process. "Poof. Yo. Now doesn't everyone here seem lively today?" asked Kakashi as he appeared in a puff of smoke, revealing himself already reading his Uchiha book before arriving. However, it was because of him reading his book that he didn't notice Kushina let out a dark chuckle as she walked towards him with a smile. "Kakashi-kun. What's that I can see? You wouldn't like to lose your hand now, would you?" asked Kushina in a fake overly pleasant tone as she stalked towards Kakashi, who instantly snapped his book shut before hiding it within his pouch with a nervous smile on his face. Now. Let's not be hasty, Kushina-sama," responded Kakashi with his signature eye smile before moving his attention over towards the group of genin before opening his eyes, showing a bored look before clapping his hands. "Okay. So, before we do anything, I would like to announce that the four of you have already technically passed my test, which is to be able to work with each other, something that you have decided you have done within the academy, bar Satsuki-chan and Naruto-kun there. However, considering Satsuki is a sister to Sasuke that gives the belief that she has the capabilities to work with her team, and with her apparent skills shown during the test, she is able to pass with her three teammates. As for Naruto, he will be having a practical session against me. During this, should he display enough skill, he will be placed in the genin reserves. So with that out of the way, my cute little genin and Kushina-sama, if you would like to watch Naruto's test, please go towards the outer ring of the training field," spoke Kakashi with his bored tone dragging along everyone's ears before pointing towards a section of the training field where he was sure his fight with Naruto wouldn't take place. Nodding, Kushina and the four other genin moved over towards the section of the training ground, Satsuki giving Naruto a small grin as she walked by and Sasuke giving him a supporting as he shoved Naruto in the shoulder, earning a small chuckle from the now red-eyed teen. Ignoring the little interaction between the two male teens, Kakashi slowly reached into his kunai pouch once again, before pulling out his orange-colored book with a small grin on his face, before glancing up towards Naruto, who was giving him a small twitching expression, before lowering his eyes back down towards his now open book. "Now, if you would like Naruto-san. You may begin," spoke Kakashi with his bored tone staying the same throughout his entire appearance within the training field. Twitching slightly as he was basically ignored in favor of a book, the blonde-haired teen let out a small animalistic grin before holding his hands into a lone hand sign. "Well then Kakashi-senpai. I think I will," shouted Naruto with a grin as he suddenly brought forth a massive surge of white chakra through his body before directing it all into his hand sign, of which Kakashi hadn't paid attention to before the sudden surge of powerful energy. And when he did, he blinked in shock before lowering his book slightly so while it was out of his way, he could still read it if he had the chance. "Isn't that the hand sign for Kage Bunshin no Jutsu?" screamed Naruto with his grin widening itself as not a moment later did the entire training ground suddenly envelope itself in a thick clump of smoke, obscuring both Kakashi's and the audience's vision from what was happening. The 400s upon hundreds of blonde-haired, crimson-eyed teens were seen standing in a perfect circle around Kakashi, their smirks wide as their leaders were before they all simultaneously stretched their necks. "So? Kakashi-san. Wanna continue?" taunted the clones out loud, leaving Kakashi, who was now slightly sweating at the base of his neck, to let out a small chuckle as his hand lowered his book back towards his pouch while waving off the clones with his other hands. Now. Let's not get ahead of ourselves chided Kakashi with an eye smile while internally sweating bullets as he could now obviously feel out the sheer amount of chakra each clone had within their systems. How does Naruto have such large reserves? This is simply impossible. From what I count, it's over 500 clones, all around me in each and every direction. The amount of chakra they have within their bodies is somewhere between a low inexperienced jonin and that of a decent that would put the kid's reserves well over a Kage's. Shouted Kakashi internally as he had his lone right eye move itself around before shutting itself beneath his eyelid. "Well I guess I'll have to put some effort into this one after all," grumbled Kakashi internally before he suddenly drew in a small breath before disappearing in the wind. Not long after this happened, the sounds of clones popping alerted the remaining clones that Kakashi began his attack. But Satsuki and co. show off. Just because he has super strong chakra and stupidly good control over it doesn't mean he has to flaunt it off. Oh, who am I kidding? That's all he does when he trains with me and Sasuke, that egotistical lovable asshole. Growled out Satsuki as she watched a field occupying hundreds of Naruto clones before the sounds of popping was heard not minutes later, alongside the shouts of victory from the clones as they charged towards Kakashi, who was now flipping himself all around the area while making sure to take out each and every clone he could. Dobe would waste that kind of chakra for a simple demonstration. Grunted Sasuke as he watched alongside his sister Naruto's clones seemingly locked in combat with their sensei, who was gaining the upper hand with each of the clones he had defeated before turning around towards his sister. "Satsuki. How strong is Naruto really? I can get a small gift from him training us, but there's just too many things unknown about the dope to make a good guess," asked Sasuke as he watched Satsuki give him a small Sharingan-enhanced stare before shrugging her shoulders before moving her eyes over towards the fight. "Honestly, I have no clue Nai-san. But all I know is that Naruto will always beat his opponent and protect those he cares about. And that makes him awesome," replied Satsuki with a blush spread across her cheeks as she imagined Naruto holding on to her like he had done when they were kids. Blanching slightly at the thought of his sister with Naruto in a more familiar situation, the teen shook his head before letting out a small sigh. "I guess. The dope is holding out on us in training," grumbled Sasuke with a grin stretched along his face, only for Satsuki to slap him on his shoulder in a half-hearted nature before returning to the scene of Kakashi, seemingly destroying all the Naruto clones that were all hurling themselves towards the jonin. While the two uchiha were happily enjoying watching the fight and chatting amongst themselves, the other three occupants had something else on their minds. Impossible. How did he do that? Both I and Mito-chan can't even create that many Kage Bunshin. And we're Kyuubi, something that gives us the ability to have more chakra than anything or anyone else. Add both our Uzumaki chakra and Usen's chakra. How is Naruto, who isn't even supposed to have chakra in the first place, have enough to dwarf both my and Mito's chakra amounts?" asked Kasumi with a dumbstruck visage on her face as her blue eyes watched Kakashi nearing the end of the clone onslaught before glancing over towards her sister, of whom was frozen in utter shock. The same, however, could be said about their mother Kushina, who was speechless from what she was witnessing. Narrowing her eyes, the blue-eyed girl glanced down towards her hands before clenching them angrily. "So what if he has massive reserves of chakra? I probably have higher amounts of control over it and I know plenty of, including the two-sen even said that both me and Mito would probably get to sign the toad summoning contract soon and even begin our training in our elemental affinities to a higher degree. Naruto has nothing on us. Thought Kasumi with a small relaxed sigh escaping her lips as she calmed herself down before returning her focus onto the battle ahead. She was stronger than Naruto, she knew it, and she also knew Mito was just under her as well. Meaning Naruto was far behind the two of them. And this fight against Kakashi would prove it. Hokage office, the amount of chakra that would take. I know the reports of him being unable to utilize chakra was true, I had Tsunade do it. But, is it possible that we were somehow wrong? The results being due to a foreign element. Kami. 500 shadow clones all able to fight without as much as a hint of fatigue. Naruto. Thought Minato out solemnly as he stared at the all-viewing orb on his desk with a concentrated gaze. Gotta give that kid some respect. He's what? 13 and is able to do something Kasumi-chan and Mito-chan can't do. I can only think of one person being able to do what he did and that was Kushina using Kyuubi's chakra before the beast escaped from her seal. Spoke a voice besides Minato, who simply nodded his head. Yeah. Kushina-chan was probably only able to do that because of the Kyuubi and her special chakra, of which both Mito and Kasumi have as well. But she was in her 20s alongside that. But, to be fair, her control was lower than our daughters are, so they should be able to produce more clones than she did. But yet, here is Naruto, doing something my wife could without everything supporting her and achieving the same amount of clones he produced. Murmured Minato as he continued to stare into the orb in front of him, his sensei giving a small nod of acknowledgement before letting out a small chuckle. He's really surprising, if anything. And with that, Kakashi has defeated all the clones. Took him a bit longer than I thought it would have considering the brats just graduated. Without any of the formal training at the academy. But even then, he did pass without it. So the kid must be hiding his strength from prying eyes. Returned Jiraiya, getting a small sigh from Minato as he watched Kakashi finish off all the clones before freezing in place. Narrowing his eyes, Minato raised his left hand up to his chin, his eyes seemingly trying to identify why his student had frozen in place. Before he suddenly widened his eyes, turning towards his sensei who had a similar expression written upon his face. Fuinjutsu. The two muttered simultaneously before looking back into the orb with further interest. Training ground 7. What I can't move. When or how did he tag me? Asked Kakashi within his mind as he tried to furiously move any single muscle in his body, including his eyes as they sat there frozen shut with the darkness enveloping his senses. What's the matter with Kakashi? Having a bit of trouble there? Questioned a voice all around the silver-haired man as his mind tried to identify the specific location of the voice. He failed however, and not long after did he suddenly feel himself flopping dead onto the floor, his body still not responsive to his commands. Don't worry Kakashi. I'll take the seal off in a second, it wouldn't be fair to beat you like this. But really, you have to take this a little more seriously than you have if you want a chance to fight against me fairly. Replied Naruto's voice, once again being heard from every angle and position within the darkness that basked Kakashi. And with that, the silver-haired man suddenly shot up onto his feet, his body feeling heavy and drowsy after having been awoken and placed back into movement once again. Glaring with his one lone eye, Kakashi spread his senses out into the open, his mind replaying over everything he learned about the teen. And when he did, his hand immediately shot up towards his headband before being yanked up. Displaying the crimson 3 Tomo's eye of the Sharingan. Oh. The Sharingan. Let's see how well you do now Kakashi. Shouted Naruto from behind the silver-haired Jonin, of which turned around and came face to face with Naruto's fist. Easily throwing his own hand up against the teen, Kakashi quickly got hold of Naruto's first before twisting himself, throwing Naruto's body over his shoulder, only for the teen to grasp against Kakashi's wrist that had caught his own hand. Before sending out a surge of lightning chakra, electrocuting the man as he screamed before getting his feet swept from underneath him, where he then felt a foot smash into his gut. Or would have hadn't he substituted with a long not all that far from him. This was going to be tough. Especially if he lost against the kid. His reputation would sure as hell get a hit after this. Kakashi. You're kinda boring me out, honestly. No ultimate secret finishing move. I know you're holding back so you can test me, but if you really had to resort to the Sharingan you got, then you should actually attempt to fight properly. Spoke Naruto as his eyes followed Kakashi's movement up within the trees before falling back onto the ground, standing a few meters away from Naruto with a small smile riding up across his face. Now. I do see that you have a point there, but who knows. I could have pulled out my Sharingan to scare the cute little Genin I'm fighting against. Replied Kakashi, his eyes shifting into a set of eye smiles as he spoke. His response. A very disturbed Naruto who lifted a single hand sign up towards his chest. Yeah. No. That's too disturbing for me. So I'm just going to do this. Fire style. Great fire annihilation. Shouted Naruto as his chest expanded for a moment before the teen spewed forth a massive wave of flames, something that had the audience agape as their jaws dropped. Kakashi was among them as he quickly ran through a set of hand signs. Water style. Water wall. Responded Kakashi as a torrent of water shot out from his mouth before forming a solid wall of water in front of him, of which soon met the flames head-on in a clash for supremacy. And not moments after did the water wall he created falter, the flames destroying the water at an extraordinary rate. Gritting his teeth behind the mask, the Jonin quickly ran through another set of hand signs before suddenly sinking into the earth, dodging the flame Naruto spewed forth. However, when he did so, Naruto let out a wide grin before jumping into the air, where he then went through another hand sign. Fire style. Earth scorcher. Shouted the teen with a wide grin as he held his hands together in front of his chest, where he began to infuse fire chakra between his palms. Few seconds later, the teen held a small ball of flames, no bigger than a marble, before flinging it towards the area Kakashi was hiding under the earth. And when the small ball made contact, it exploded, sending condensed flames all around the area it had hit, burning everything, including the ground below it. And like that, the sight of Kakashi's body exploding from the earth appeared, his form heavily sweating from the heat he was under, before he darted through the earth's surface before landing out of the hot zone. Landing into a crouch, the teen grinned while placing his palm onto the floor. Earth style. Mud dragon. Grinned out Naruto, sending forth two twin dragons out from the ground as their dark brown colored bodies charged towards Kakashi, who was known charging towards them before using their bodies as a way to move towards Naruto, of which stood himself up before clapping his hands together, his crimson eyes still locked onto Kakashi's form as it dodged and weaved the two mud dragons that broke into pieces once they smashed into the ground and disappeared. Had enough Kakashi. Because I'm just getting started. Wind style. Gale palm. Roared Naruto as a torrent of wind rippled through the area, sending the mid-air Kakashi back before raising his fingers to his mouth. You're really unpredictable, you know. Fire style. Dragon flame bomb. Shouted Kakashi through the harsh winds, sending a flaming dragon soaring towards Naruto, tearing through the wind he had created before growing in size. Naruto could only blink before rushing through two hand signs before slapping his hands together once again. Water style. Water dragon. Returned Naruto as he sent chakra into the hand signs, which resulted in the fully formed water dragon that appeared from thin air, of which wrapped itself around Naruto's form, taking the damage from Kakashi's attack, leaving a mist surrounding the teen. Seeing this, Kakashi narrowed his Sharingan eye as he began to focus on his environment before suddenly sending a spinning backhand to the air behind him, where the image of Naruto's now crouching form greeted him with a grin. Before disappearing in a flash, blinding the man and his Sharingan for a moment before feeling the first of the young teen drill into his gut, sending him into a hunched position before an elbow made contact against his nose, sending him back against the ground in a skid before quickly catching Naruto's follow-up charge. Only to feel the Naruto in his grasp disappear in a puff of smoke. Rubbing his eyes quickly, the man only had a moment to witness the image of the world before suddenly being enveloped in an eternal darkness that spanned all around him once again. Don't worry Kakashi. This time it's only spoke Naruto's eerily distorted tone, of which Kakashi identified before blocking a strike to his head, before sending his own strike into thin air, or what he thought was thin air, before the sound of another puff told him what was happening. This control, this amount, this skill. This is impossible. He used well over B rank over and over, with no break, and is able to utilize anti-jutsu efficiently to a point I'm struggling. I have to end this soon, I'm going to run out of chakra if I keep it going like this. Thought the man as he sent an electrical burst out of his body, causing Naruto, who was in close proximity, to release the before jumping back, giving the two some distance with Kakashi's Sharingan eye staring into Naruto's own eye. Thought you know. Sharingan. Jinjutsu. Thought Kakashi with an internal smirk. Before widening his eye as a large surge of pain struck his Sharingan eye. Grasping his eye with his left hand, Kakashi returned his sight on Naruto's form, of which hadn't moved the slightest. Aside from the widening grin the teen had. Kakashi-san. Let's finish this off with a final clash. Shouted Naruto's voice, reaching Kakashi's ears as he lowered his left hand back besides his body, where he began to pump chakra throughout his body, before giving the teen a nod. Very well. However, I hope for your case you surrender right now Naruto. Replied Kakashi in a serious tone, before he blitzed through a set of hand signs once again, before clutching his right wrist, where the sight of a sparking and enveloped hand greeted Naruto, of whom simply widened his smirk even wider. As for everyone else, they were all gaping, their eyes widening and their hearts thumping as they saw them in Kakashi's hand. But, before anyone could call out for Kakashi to stop him, the man charged, his hands sparking all over the place as he charged towards Naruto, who followed his example, running towards Kakashi with a wide smile. And as they charged, Kakashi was sweating, his eyes were dropping from exhaustion, and yet, across from him, Naruto continued to charge, his form seemingly perfect, aside from slight cuts on his clothes. And as the two neared each other, Naruto lifted his hand up beside his head before sending chakra into it. And like that, he formed. Drawing another silent gasp from those watching, including Kakashi. Before it changed once more, the orb, which was a brilliant shade of pure white, already different from the usual blue coloring, suddenly gained small amounts of wind around it before slowly, ever so slowly, it was encased within a shuriken-like shape of wind. And as the two neared each other, their hearts being audible to their own ears, the two clashed. Urkiri. Wind style. Rasengan. Hokage Tower. Impossible. Well, I'll be damned. With Kushina and Co. Show off. Dope. No way. How? Naruto. With Kakashi and Naruto. Bang. They clashed, their forms pushing against each other as they fought over each other for dominance, the spiraling orb, fighting against the condensed form of lightning. But alas, like with the natures, wind beats lightning, and that's what happened here as the tore through the Jonin, leaving him defenseless as he watched Naruto's wide orb nearing his face. Closing his eyes, the Jonin accepted his fate, he knew there was nothing for him to do. At least, that's what he thought before he suddenly felt his face impacting against a fist, sending him backwards and onto his back with his eyes shut. That was awesome, Kakashi-sensei. Let's do that again sometime. Chuckled out a calm voice, only distorted slightly by the sound of wind crackling around the air. Kakashi, opening his eyes and looking towards Naruto's grinning face as he was bathed with light, simply gave a thumbs up before shutting his eyes once more, his mind shutting down as he passed out. Seeing this, whilst standing above Kakashi's form, Naruto turned towards his audience, before letting a smile take its form. Well. What do you think about Kushina? Chapter 10. You do know why you are here, don't you, Naruto? Questioned a tense Minato Namikaze as he watched his son sit across from him in his office with his now crimson eyes, something Naruto himself could apparently change whenever, as he mentioned a few moments ago, stared towards him with a bored gaze. Geez. I dunno. Maybe because I was caught putting itching powder in all the unit's pants. Remarked Naruto in an obviously fake happy tone, resulting in him giving him a dead stare. You not only managed to utilize many high-ranking techniques, which should have been impossible without chakra as we had been told you had not had, some of said techniques aren't even documented in the archives, such as your used of a certain fire that I know we don't have, Aka the legendary Madara uchiha, used for a majority of his life, and then, when I thought you couldn't top that. It seems you have done something that not even I have come close to doing. Perfecting them by adding an elemental affinity to it. So tell me. How in the world had you done that? Questioned Minato in a serious tone, watching as Naruto gained a small twitch in his eye as he placed his elbow onto the oak desk before propping his chin up on his open palm. I guess I should have thought of making it so that Hokage-sama could also not question my abilities rather than just Kushina-sama. San. Grumbled out Naruto as he realized his mental lapse in judgment before giving his father a small smile. I guess it's fair, I screwed up so I might as well comply, since you are the in-all. Groaned out Naruto as he pushed himself back up into his seat before rolling his shoulders against the wooden chair before staring at his father with his crimson eyes boring into his father's own cerulean blue ones. Clapping his hands together, the teen let out a small breath. The doctors were right. I did not have access to my chakra. Rather than not having any in the first place, my chakra seemed stuck in my body. It couldn't move or flow, it was just still and unmoving in my coils. Because of that, the chakra I had held didn't register as anything other than me having enough chakra to keep myself alive, and that was it. Replied Naruto for a moment, watching as he seemed immersed in his story before rolling his eyes a bit. It was safe to say that I was pissed off when I found out I had chakra. And before you ask, I found out when I went into my mindscape. Finished off Naruto, putting his hand up to block his father from speaking. As you can guess. I met Kyuubi. Sorry Kurama, gotta make him comfortable first by calling you that. Thought Naruto midway through his speech, gaining a small huff from his mind before coughing into his hand. Anyway, I met the furball in all its mighty glory behind a massive cage. Which I then may have annoyed him for a couple of minutes before going off to explore the rest of my mindscape. During my time there, I had done a few certain things which had affected my chakra in a positive way. Basically, my chakra is in its own league. It has all the benefits of being a more potent form of chakra while also being more fluid and controllable in its form. Allowing me to utilize high-level techniques with little to no waste of my chakra. Spoke Naruto, briefly lifting his left hand up from the table, showing his hand coated in a white flame-like energy, before lowering it back down towards the table. Nodding his head, Minato then decided to interrupt Naruto's story. I see. Was there any form of side effects and what process did you use to gain this more potent and controllable chakra? Questioned Minato, getting a small smile from Naruto as he shook his head. No disadvantages. Aside from now being invisible to chakra sensors, since my chakra is different from everyone else. And as for getting my chakra the way it is. Chatted Naruto happily for a few moments. Before narrowing his crimson eyes in a dark way. I'm never revealing how I had gained my new form of chakra. It is way too powerful for someone else to gain access to. And I will prevent that from ever happening. So in no way or form will anyone get that information from me. Is that clear, Hokage-sama? Replied Naruto in a dark and serious tone, getting a small glare from before he hung his head a bit before letting out a small sigh. Very well. Truth be told, I hadn't exactly thought of the outcome of someone of Orochimaru's caliber gaining access to chakra that made you on par with Kakashi at such a young age. Murmured Minato for a moment before lifting his head up once more. Continue with your story then. Finished off before falling silent once more, giving Naruto the lead. Nodding, the teen continued. Now that I had access to chakra, it allowed me to train, which should be obvious. However, it wasn't till the next day, just after I had fallen asleep, that I realized the potential I had before me as I awoke in my mindscape once again. Time obviously flows slower inside of a mindscape. For mine, it's 1 hour equals that of a full 24-hour day. Using this, whenever I fell asleep in and appeared in my mindscape, I would then go over any form of knowledge I had, while also using my time in my mindscape to train in muscle memory, chakra control, technique creation and everything in between. And considering the mind remembers everything you read, similar to the way the Sharingan does, once I had read a book I was able to reread the book word for word, allowing me to enhance myself further. Rambled on Naruto before crossing his arms across his chest. Shutting his eyes, the teen let out a small yawn. So, while I trained for over 10-14 hours a day, with the remaining 2-4 hours to rest and do whatever I desired at that point in time, I would practice what I learned in the real world, while also strengthening my body using seals that I had learned from my mindscape. And as I went to sleep, I always had 8 hours to train, so I had, in total 8 additional days in my mindscape per night, to train in theory. Groaned out Naruto as he watched a nod along to his story, making sure to memorize everything that Naruto spoke of. Of course, Naruto didn't say that he basically knew that you couldn't reach your own mindscape without being a container and a Yamanaka who couldn't sustain their own mindscape longer than a single minute. But, he also didn't mention that hadn't it been his yin-yang energy pools he couldn't have originally reached and sustained his mindscape in his own reality. Shrugging, Naruto decided to finish off his story. Flash forward a few months, and eventually the old fox decided that he was getting annoyed watching me train in silence and started to talk to me. Of course it was originally a whole lot of "I'll eat you pathetic meatbag. And I will slaughter your village weakling." Before me and the fox eventually started to have actual conversations and all. Eventually, we formed a friendly connection and the fox decided that he wouldn't mind helping me out by sharing his memories of techniques he had seen, such as Madara's infamous. And yeah, that's my story. Finished off Naruto with a small smile as he could simply see the small twitch Kurama had within his mindscape before diverting his attention to Minato, who shut his eyes for a moment. From what I understand, you have been training since you were 8, utilizing your new mindscape abilities and chakra to your current age, which gives me the impression that, due to your time in your mindscape, you are mentally older than most kids your age, or even above your age. Returned Minato, getting a small nod from Naruto who gave him a wide grin. But you are a correct young man. Replied Naruto in an over-exaggerated old man-like tone, getting a small twitch from Minato before shaking his head. However, while being mentally older, I guess this only revolves around you being older and wiser in shinobi skills, like tactics and formations. Meaning you are still at your own age, only with wisdom and power behind yourself. I must say, I'm very proud of you, Naruto. Smiled out Minato as he watched Naruto himself return the smile with one of his own, alongside a tiny nod. Thank you for the compliment, Hokage-sama. But now, regarding the question I know you are wanting to ask, no. I will not teach you how to add an elemental affinity to them. It had taken me years within my mindscape to formulate the formula to safely create the technique, which I had shown in its lowest level. However, if you would like, I can demonstrate the stronger variant of the Futon. Rasengan in favor of gaining the notes of the second regarding his Hiraishin technique. Spoke to Naruto, getting a curious stare from Minato. Oh? And why would I give something akin to the likes of Tobirama-sama's Hiraishin notes to simply view a stronger, asked Minato innocently, gaining a blank look from Naruto as he let out a cheeky grin. Please, this is an opportunity for you to see the complete form of the, well, at least one of its variants, which would allow you some insight on how to complete the technique. And I'm not asking for the Hiraishin technique itself, just the notes, so that I could study them and possibly try my hand at creating my own Hiraishin seal later on. Replied Naruto, getting a small nod from Minato as he stood himself up before extending his hand towards his son, of which had copied his movement and soon grasped his father's hand in an agreement. Smiling, Naruto nodded to himself before turning his head towards the corner of the room. Jiraiya-san. You can come as well if you want in return for teaching me the earth swamp of the underworld. I can even give you notes of my fire-style earth scorcher. Spoke Naruto out loud, getting a small smile as he watched a white-haired pervert appear from the corner with a small glint within his eye. Very well then. I have to admit that fire was quite the technique. So I think I would be a fair trade. Replied Jiraiya with a thumbs up, getting a mental smile from Naruto whose eyes softened slightly at the man who had taken him under his wing in a few missions back in his reality. Nodding to himself once more, Naruto returned his gaze towards the door that allowed someone into the office. Kushina-san, Kasumi-san and Mito-san, you can also come along. And yeah, don't breathe too loud when you hear something all that shocking. Give your position away, you know. Remarked Naruto with a shit-eating grin as he watched a door slowly open with Kushina walking through with a small embarrassed smile on her face, along with his two sisters, who had different reactions to his story. One, Mito, was having a smile on her face with her eyes being slightly shut as she stared at Naruto's form with some ideas playing through her head, while Kasumi. Well, she strode up towards Naruto before standing no more than a single inch away from him with a glare before reaching up and grasping the front of his attire. The room fell silent for a few moments as Naruto gazed down into his sister's eyes, before gaining a grin as he watched her open her mouth. I will surpass you. From now on, you are my goal until I reach a strength that even you yourself cannot attain. Mark my words, Naruto. I will beat you, no matter how hard I have to train. Understand that? Questioned Kasumi, causing a similar glint that Jiraiya had in his eyes to appear within Naruto's, as he softly patted the blonde girl's head in a mocking gesture before winking. Sure. Good luck with that, Kasumi-san, I can't wait to see the day that happens. Replied Naruto as he moved his eyes over towards Minato once more, who had fallen silent as he watched the interaction between Naruto and Kasumi with a small hidden smirk. Kushina, however, had a fire within her eyes as she started to let out a small giggle as she threw her fist up. Gosh. Kasumi-chan. Mito-chan. I'm going to train you along with your father so that you can surpass your brother. Watch out for Naru-chan. Your sisters are going to blow you out of the water in no time flat. Shouted Kushina in a happy and excited tone as she watched Naruto smirk at her, while giving a small nod towards her. We'll see, Kushina-san. Remarked Naruto briefly before rolling his neck briefly. Well, for this demonstration I suppose training ground 7 would work. But I would rather destroy Hokage-sama's personal training ground with my technique. See you all there. Shouted Naruto happily as he disappeared in a burst of wind, causing Kasumi's hair to flutter a bit before both she and Mito latched onto their parents. Minato, giving Kushina and Jiraiya a nod, also disappeared in a burst of smoke, which had caused the paperwork that had neatly been stacked to flutter onto the ground forgotten. Personal training grounds, just above the monument. With a puff of smoke, the 3 adults and 2 teens soon appeared in the training ground with looks of either pure excitement, Kushina, or looks of eagerness, as they bore witness to Naruto standing a few feet away from them with his arms crossed. Detaching his arms and giving a small wave, the teen rolled his shoulders slightly, before looking towards the opposite side of the lush green training ground, before returning his eyes over towards his audience. Okay. So the technique I'm going to show you is something that I had created, I think. 4 years ago after having my elemental affinities, yes, affinities plural, training to a very high level. Something that I doubt many could attempt without the use of shadow clones and hours of training. This jutsu is called Wind Style. Rasen Shuriken and is the first ever S rank I had created. A few months after beginning my training. Replied Naruto with a shit-eating grin as he turned his attention towards the end of the training field before holding his palm out in front of him. Now watch and learn. Spoke out Naruto, summoning a white colored within a single blink of the eye. Now the normal form of my. Now let's get on to creating its wind variant. Grinned out Naruto as he began to pump wind nature chakra into the orb. Before suddenly moving his hand up above his head as torrents of wind chakra entered the spiraling orb, causing it to shift slightly as its form suddenly changed. Minato, from where he was standing, along with just about everyone there, couldn't help but widen their eyes in shock as the massive spiraling shuriken above Naruto's head continued to grow in size before each of the wind blades surrounding the white chakra orb lengthened out to the size of an average human before stopping. The sheer chakra amount. And the control. Though Minato, mentally gaping at the raw power he could feel from just looking at the technique. However, before he could continue his thought, Naruto sent another grin towards them. Now normally, of this caliber cannot be used aside from shoving the technique directly at the opponent. But with enough training and skill. Murmured off Naruto towards the end as he started to cock his arm back for a second. The powerful you see. Can be thrown. Shouted the teen over the tormenting winds generated from his technique as he threw his arm forward, sending his Rasen Shuriken forward towards the end of the training field. Which then soon exploded in a combination of powerful and slicing winds and a spiraling formation. Minato and the others had in fact had to shield their eyes from the winds that had managed to even reach them at gale-like strengths, just implementing how powerful the technique was even from a distance. And within a couple of seconds, the technique slowly began to die down, leaving a perfectly round crater on the opposite end of the training field, with the trees around the epicenter of the blast being snapped and torn out of place. Turning his head back towards Minato and the rest of the group, Naruto gave a small smirk as he once again crossed his arms. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the general Rasen Shuriken. There are also many variants such as Massive Rasen Shuriken, Tiny Rasen Shuriken Barrage etc. So, what do you think? I think it's a bit over the top, but what works, works. Laughed out Naruto rhetorically as he watched his father, mother and siblings drop their mouths in shock. Jiraiya however, simply threw a scroll at him before giving him a thumbs up. Good job there Gaki. Not even an official genin, and already you have what appears to be a multitude of S ranks underneath your belt. Shouted Jiraiya in a proud tone, getting a small wink in return from Naruto alongside a separate scroll which contained his fire. Thanks Jiraiya-san for the ego boost. I'm sure I'll not turn into an overconfident asshole with praises like that. Remarked Naruto as he shook his head before looking over towards his father. Hey Hokage-sama, Jiraiya did raise a good point. Have I gained the title of genin? Asked Naruto in an obviously fake curious tone, getting a blank look from the man as he shook his head. Honestly, with what I've heard I'm tempted to give you a rank straight off the bat. In fact don't do that Hokage-sama. After all, the exams aren't too far away right? Don't you want to show off the strength of your genin? Questioned Naruto, an evil grin spread across his face as Minato understood what Naruto was implying. Alongside just about everyone else there. Nodding his head, Minato let out a small sigh before bringing out a single scroll from his vest hidden beneath his Haori, before throwing it towards Naruto. Genin Naruto Hayabusa. You are now officially the first genin team consisting of yourself. I will try to find a sensei for you later on. As of now, I am permitting you to take D to C rank missions for experience. However, I will probably send someone out with you to monitor your progress. Is that okay? Questioned Minato, getting a nod from Naruto as he turned away from the group and gave an over-the-shoulder wave. That's fine Hokage-sama. Thank you for the opportunity, now if you will excuse me. I have 2 new techniques to learn. Spoke out Naruto as he briefly turned his head back to give a large smile before disappearing in the wind, leaving behind a small group of shinobi. Jiraiya, looking over to Minato, gave out a small grin. Hey Minato. About a sensei for the young kid. How about me? I mean sure I can't be here all the time, but I can easily pop in every couple of weeks and monitor the brat. Maybe even take him out with me on missions. What do you say? Asked Jiraiya, getting a small smile from Minato as he let out a nod. That doesn't sound too bad of an idea. Thank you sensei. Replied Minato, getting a small smile from Jiraiya as he too began to walk off. No problem Minato. Who knows? Maybe I might be able to teach the brat a thing or two. Finished off the man as he too disappeared in a plump of smoke, leaving the Namikaze family behind to talk. Looking over towards his wife, Minato let out a small smile. I think. Even if Naruto is technically out of our family, there is still a chance to get him back. But maybe later on. Let's now just try to get as close as we can as people first. With the way Naruto is, being older mentally he can understand how we feel. I noticed it, but he's been friendlier towards us, trying to form a stable connection between us as people. So. For now I think that's the right way to go about bringing our son back. Spoke Minato as he stared into his wife's eyes, getting a nod from Kushina as she let out a small, but happy smile. Yeah. At least this way. We still have him somewhat close. And who knows? Maybe later on we can be a complete family once again. But for the time being. This is fine. It's good to know he has given us a small chance. Replied Kushina, a small tear building in the corner of her eye as she hugged her husband, who also let out a small smile as he held his wife before looking over towards his 2 daughters. Asumi-chan. Mito-chan. From this point on, your training in the Kyuubi's chakra will accelerate alongside your training. Starting tomorrow. I will be pushing the 2 of you in just about everything both myself and your mother can do. So, we're going to need you 2 to try your hardest if you want to catch up to your brother. Is that fine? Asked Minato, getting 2 nods from his determined daughters. Hi Tusan. Shouted the 2, more so Mito than Kasumi, who was stealing brief glances towards the massive crater across the training ground. I won't lose to you Naruto. Thought Kasumi with a determined fire within her eyes. But Naruto, not bad. I'm pretty sure I can get the Jiraiya I had given me in a day in the Mindscape, and as for the Hiraishin. It shouldn't take me longer than a month of Mindscape time, with numerous amounts of Kage Bunshin helping me create my own variant of the Hiraishin. Muttered Naruto softly as he made his way through the village, ignoring all the stares he gained as he strode through the crowds with his white jacket fluttering slightly in its unzipped form as he glanced down towards the scroll in his hand. A small scroll that held 3 gifts for a certain trio of uchiha who had burrowed their way into his heart. Hope they enjoy the gifts I got from them. muttered Naruto softly with a smile as he glanced up before greeting an Uchiha gate guard, of which gave him a returning wave and smile. "Morning Ichiro, how's the family?" questioned Naruto, getting a smile from the man as he gave a small shrug. "As well as most these days I guess. But ever since the Uchiha massacre, I can honestly tell that things have been getting better and better for us. Not instantly, but it's been changing over the last couple of years. I could have only wished some of the other members were here to witness it themselves," replied the man as he opened the gate for Naruto to enter, giving another friendly nod. Naruto continued on his way. Muttering a quick "I'm glad things are looking up," while moving past the man and into the complex. Looking at the pearl-colored walls and dirt path, Naruto couldn't help but smile as he watched two Uchiha kids run past him, playing tag before glancing up forwards to the sight of Satsuki, Sasuke and Mikoto standing there waiting for him. Widening his smile, Naruto couldn't help but lower his head for a moment before raising it upwards, showing a small tear in his eye as he let out a small shout. "I'm home." A few hours later, after having arrived home as Naruto called it, the Hayabusa spent the majority of the night partying with the Uchiha family, sharing both laughs and embarrassing stories, whilst also losing himself to the atmosphere the party had left off on him, making him relax around the Uchiha family as he shared moments with all three Uchiha, whether it was helping Mikoto with the cooking, giving Sasuke a few personal C-rank fire, along with a chakra-conducting sword, which had confused him for a bit, and then giving Satsuki a couple of clothes, scrolls, and his very own custom-made wire launcher he had created for the girl. As for Mikoto, well, a multitude of clothing, a few specialized seals to help her at home, and a photo of her, her children, and Naruto himself. No one could have prepared Naruto for the smothering hug and kiss on the cheek Mikoto had given him, while Satsuki's similar kiss to the cheek was seen coming from a mile away. Naruto, at that point, made a comment about Sasuke doing it too, only to get a punch to the face from said teen, who later hugged Naruto in a brother-like manner. And through the entire time, Naruto hadn't lost his smile that he had gained when he first saw the family. All he thought of was how it felt to feel like he had belonged. And at that, he truly understood what it meant having something to die for. This connection he shared. Sure, in his own reality, he shared a similar connection with Satsuki and all, but it felt different this time around. It felt pure, it felt comforting beyond any doubt. And it made him feel safe. And it was during midnight that he decided it was time to bid farewell to the Uchiha family, knowing that Satsuki and Sasuke needed their rest for their team training tomorrow. But, as he was leaving, he felt Mikoto drag him back through the door before shoving him into a spare room of theirs, saying it was too late at night for him to go to his new apartment across the village. Deciding not to fight with a woman, Naruto fell asleep happily, his last thoughts of the night being, "Tomorrow, I began making a name for myself. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it and yes. 2 chapters in a single day, well, more than 1 chapter for 2 stories each. But yeah, anyway, the story prologue is below this. Laters. Prologue. Dark windy night, countless faces going by like a blur, not even a single detail gained as more and more people moved, one person replacing another as they walked, no one indistinguishable, nothing outstanding or worth noticing. Aside from the stench following those who hide within the alleyways of the city. Standing among the streets of Manhattan was a single man standing at that of little under 6 foot, being around 5'10" or 5'11". Messy short black hair, crimson eyes and a light tan complexion. Watching as the faces of many go by, the man couldn't help but snort as his crimson gaze settled upon the sight of a small group of teens grinning at him from the alley, all looking like they were the kings of the world with nothing that could oppose them. Walking forwards towards the small grinning group, the man didn't seem to care about the gazes of those around him, following his every movement as he walked past those without any faces. "Watch it. Look where you're going. Idiot. Bastard. My coffee." The comments didn't matter, neither did the wastes of space owners that complained in the first place. And as the comments continued, more and more faces began to stare, their eyes being drawn into the lone figure as he glided down the pathway to his destination, as they simply watched as the black-haired man kept his crimson gaze focused on a single objective, a single goal. A single target. Moving past the crowd and into the dark and maroon-colored alleyway, the man continued moving forwards, following the trail of those who dared to challenge him, as his face briefly became clear at the sight of a broken light flickering on and off as he continued his slow glide-like walk through the alleyway. Not long, a single turn of a corner and the sight of a small group of elderly teenagers greeted the man. All giving him the same grins and looks of confidence that caused his eyes to glow ever so briefly within the darkness of the alleyway. The sound of a chuckle rang throughout the alleyway as a single teenager moved in front of his comrades as he stood as menacing as he possibly could. Blonde hair, green eyes, school jacket slung over his shoulder, showing a student shirt beneath getting slightly wet from the light drizzle of rain that was slowly starting to pour down from up above. The teenager grinned as he walked forwards. His hand safely lodged into his pockets as he raised his head up slightly, a confident smirk taking over his original grin as he did so. Ah. So you're the so-called devil. Funny how rather lackluster you look. Shouted the teen, his voice rallying his friends who stood up to support him. Funny enough, they seemed to be perfect clones of the teen. Giving a blank crimson stare, the man continued on his path forwards, not bothering with any comments as he moved ever so slowly towards his prey. The teen continued, his voice booming around the alleyway as he stood confident with his pearly white teeth out on display for the crimson-eyed man to see. Suppose devil is said to be the king. The project's prized possession. But you look like nothing more than a deadbeat loser. Shouted the man, laughing as he did so as he moved his head around, making an audible crack run throughout the otherwise silent alley. Not a single moment later did the man feel the cold texture of a black leather jacket brush past his neck before tightly surrounding his throat. The teen widened his eyes in utter shock as his gaze slowly drifted downwards towards his neck, or as much as he could move his head, before the side of the same black leather jacket the red-eyed man had was now securely wrapped around his neck. A single moment of silence had passed. Only to soon be replaced by a single loud snapping sound, which then ran throughout the silent alleyway. However, as the original sound only lasted a single second, the aftershocks of the sound continued throughout the alleyway, being projected by its compact area. Like the others, the man in his grasp didn't matter. He wasn't significant enough to get noticed or remembered. Glaring down at the corpse now at his feet, the man stuffed his hands in his jean pockets before walking off, not bothering any longer with the corpse left behind. After all, the devil didn't care much for anyone else. Let alone the fool who dared to challenge him. Chapter 11. 2 weeks later, higher style. Great fire annihilation. Shouted a voice as it fell down from the sky, a massive flame soon shooting out of the object that was propelling down towards the bandit camp, not too far away from Konoha. Run. Shouted a multitude of voices as they desperately attempted to move away from the descending flames, only to be soon swept up in the heat and fire, burning their bodies and their beings into crisps of ash seconds after the impact. Cutting off as Naruto landed on a scorched ground, the crimson-eyed teen narrowed his eyes before holding a single hand across his body, before suddenly winging it out towards the untouched trees ahead of him. Wind style. Wind blade, muttered the teen, sending a single long blade of wind out towards the trees, which soon began to plummet as they were cleanly cut from the wind blade generated from Naruto's hand moments ago. Hhhh. Not long did the screams take to reach the teen's ears as he began to walk towards the origins of the sound. And the sight that greeted him. 5 or so bandits with their lower bodies sliced off and their organs spilling out from their torsos. Giving a small bored look, the teen crouched down slowly before he began to channel earth nature chakra into the ground. Earth style. Swamp of the underworld. Finished off Naruto in a bored tone, watching as the bodies of all the sliced up bandits disappeared into the ground, along with the trees that surrounded them. Watching as the last of the bandits sank into the ground, Naruto stood himself up before letting out a tired sigh, absent-minded stretching his back as he did so. Well, the earth-style technique Jiraiya gave me is now usable. Who knew it was actually harder for me to make a small version of it rather than a larger one? Spoke Naruto absent-mindedly as he turned around and began walking towards the area he had set ablaze with his fire technique. Looking around the scorching area, which had a few flames flickering around, the teen quickly clapped his hands together before extruding a thick mist around him, which quickly began to sweep the area, taking down all forms of flames he had left behind before easily dispelling the mist. Looking around and making sure he hadn't caused any bushfires from his, Naruto gave himself a small satisfied nod before staring at a certain location in the once burning area before letting out a small nod. Okay, remove the barrier. All the enemies have been killed. Spoke Naruto suddenly before watching as before his very eyes, an illusion-like barrier shattered, showing 2 other Narutos holding what appeared to be a multitude of women and children as they let out tears of joy and happiness from the bandits' deaths. Walking over towards the group, Naruto quickly gave a small head count before letting out a pleased smile. Hello there. I'm Genin Naruto Hayabusa. I have been requested to find and retrieve you all, while also eliminating the bandits that had originally captured you. Now, if we may, I would like to quickly return you all to your families back in your village. We should, at most, be an hour or 2 away. Had we been walking at your pace, for now however, I will be summoning a cluster of shadow clones to carry each and every one of you. Is that okay? Questioned Naruto, getting nervous nods from most of the women there, while the children gave bright smiles and nods. Widening his smile, Naruto brought his hands up into a T-shaped position before sending a pulse of chakra. Haju Kage Bunshin no, muttered out Naruto as the sounds of over 50 clones appeared around the teen, each giving off their own smile as they moved to carry each person there. And within a few minutes, the battalion of Naruto clones soon set off, jumping from tree branch to tree branch, causing a few of the civilians to either let out whoops of joy or small gasps of fear. Now, what would have taken over an hour of travel originally, at a civilian walking speed at least, had only taken Naruto a total of 5 minutes at tree hopping. It was in those 5 minutes that those who had been kidnapped had gained the sight of their village and their grief-stricken loved ones, whom of which charged towards the safely held families which were quick to get out of Naruto's clone's grasp as they hugged the dear life out of their loved ones. Dispelling his clones, the black-haired teen couldn't help but lean off towards the side as he watched everyone reconnecting with their loved ones who had apparently been kidnapped over a week ago. The bandits weren't all that smart to have been in an area not all too far from the village they had ransacked. Honestly, it made his job that much easier to complete. Shaking his head at how easy the mission had been, the teen laid his head against the wooden wall he had propped his head against before taking in a slow breath before exhaling it. "I believe this is your young man," spoke a wise voice besides Naruto's form. Opening his eyes and glancing down slightly, Naruto came upon the sight of an old man with a small walking stick held within his grasp. The man, probably in the age between his late 60s and early 70s, gave him a toothy grin, showing his seemingly perfect white teeth before handing Naruto an envelope. Opening it up, the teen gave a small nod of its contents before pushing himself off the wall with a smile. "Thank you Jiji-san for signing the document stating I had completed my mission. I'll be on my way now then," replied Naruto, giving a small bow to the elder before moving on towards the front entrance of the tiny village before suddenly stopping himself as he looked back towards the elder. Giving a slightly serious stare, the teen tilted his head a bit. "You know, Elder-san. If you would like, I could set up a wall to surround the village to give it some additional protection from future bandit raids. And maybe I could also incorporate seals to further keep the village safe if you would like," spoke Naruto, getting a slightly startled look from the man as he narrowed his eyes. "And for what reason would you do that, Hayabusa-kun? If it's to gain more money, then I'll have to decline your offer. Even if it would protect us, it would simply be too costly for our small village," replied the elder, only to get a small wave from Naruto as he let out a small smile as he dragged his eyes back towards the happy children and tearing women before returning his eyes back towards the elder. "It's not for any monetary gain, Elder-san. It's more for that. I wouldn't like to leave this place knowing I could help protect these people in some way, whether it's with a simple bit of earth released to build some walls, a couple of seals to help out, or even an illusion to place over the surrounding area to scare off people with negative intent. So, would that be fine, Elder-san?" questioned Naruto softly as he returned his eyes to the happy families who were now celebrating with each other. Watching Naruto with keen eyes, the elder couldn't help but let a small smile break onto his face before giving a small nod. "Very well, Hayabusa-kun. If you wish to help us, who am I to complain? But, I must ask you not to place a wall, as it would seem to those who wish to cause us harm that we are more well off than we are, making us a target to local bandits," replied the man, getting a small nod from the teen as he crossed his arms against his chest while looking up towards the still blue sky above. In that case, I can use an illusion seal, one of which will activate when negative intent is found and directed towards this location. Doing so, the seal would then create illusions, such as wolves, bears and other predators, to intimidate the attacking party, which would then most likely send them away. "Is that fine, Elder-san?" asked Naruto, returning his gaze towards the kind old man who seemed ecstatic over the idea, if the show of him clapping and nodding his head like a bobblehead said anything to the teen. "That would be a lovely, Hayabusa-kun. However, isn't that pretty difficult to do? As I've heard that is such a delicate art, there are only a handful of masters capable of doing what you have just described," questioned the elder in a soft tone, only to watch as Naruto pulled the sleeves up on his white jacket before giving a thumbs up and grin combo. "Well, it's your lucky day then. I happen to be one of those supposed rare seal masters," replied Naruto with a grin as he moved away from the building for a moment and stood somewhere near the center of the village before clapping his hands together while shutting his eyes. Keeping his eyes closed as he focused on creating the seal, the teen drew in a long breath of air for a moment before opening his eyes as wide as he could before slamming his palms into the ground, causing a large surge of black ink to seemingly spread from his position to somewhere outside of the village. "Fuin. Illusion barrier," shouted the teen as he seemingly started to glow a pale silver color for a moment, which then soon began to seep into the seal he had created that spanned a radius of over 2 miles from the village center. Giving a small grin as he felt the yin-natured energy seep into the seal, the blonde-haired teen quickly lifted a single arm up to his forehead before brushing the small bit of sweat off his brow before giving a thumbs up towards the stunned elder. "And there you go, an illusion seal that will ward off anyone directing negative intent towards the village itself. You should be safe from most, if not all bandits and even lower-level ninjas if you're lucky enough," replied Naruto with a wide smile, getting a bow from the elder in return. "Thank you, Hayabusa-sama. I personally thank you on behalf of all my villagers for what you have done in order to protect us," returned the elder, only to get a small sigh from Naruto as he scratched the back of his head while giving a small wave with his free hand. "It's fine, Elder-san. If anything, being able to utilize my skills at random points in time only keeps them sharp and allows me to keep my skills up to a certain level. You wouldn't believe how uncommon it is for me to actually use any, since barely anyone knows I have access to it at such a high level," replied Naruto in an embarrassed tone as he suddenly stiffened for a moment before giving the elder another smile. "Well, it seems that my clone has gotten me another C rank from Hokage-sama, who should be delivering the client to me in a matter of minutes with a cage bunshin," spoke Naruto absent-minded as he reached into his pocket, or more specifically the seal in his pocket, before pulling out a tri-bladed kunai with a special seal tag wrapped around the handle. Seeing the blade, the elder let out a small gasp. "Is that one of the legendary kunai that the fourth uses for his legendary Hiraishin technique?" asked the man in a tone of awe, only to get a shake of the head from Naruto as he raised the kunai up by the small rounded loop that was at the end of the kunai. "Close, but no. This, well indeed is the Hokage's kunai, doesn't have the full inscription of the Hiraishin written onto it. In fact, it's only a one-way transportation. So, he can appear to me, but can't directly use the kunai itself. He decided to give me this after a few days of me seemingly completing C-rank missions and returning back to Konoha, only to request another and to pick up my clients, whether or not it was an escort or protection mission. So, instead of me going back and forth, I have a clone waiting for me to pass on knowledge that I would like a new mission, of which he would ask who would in turn send a cage bunshin of himself, alongside my client or mission scroll, allowing me to continue missions should I complete them quick enough," replied Naruto with a small smile as he threw the kunai just in front of him before wrapping his arms around his chest. "Honestly, it's probably due to how powerful I am for a genin that he trusts me in doing this. He also knows that I am well supplied since I carry a lot of equipment in my seals, which lets me have more freedom should he need me to stay in a location for a certain amount of time. So far the max has been a couple of hours, but who knows," finished off Naruto with a small shrug of his shoulders as he watched as a flash of yellow appeared in his vision, showing the yondaime holding what appeared to be a man garbed in fishing clothes with a small towel wrapped around his neck. The man, seeing the blonde-haired kid, immediately began to growl as he moved his eyes around. "Very funny Hokage-sama, now, where is the team I have protecting me for the mission I had requested?" questioned the man, gaining a small smile from Minato as he nudged his head over towards Naruto. "You're looking at him. Meet Naruto Hayabusa, one of the best, if not the best genin in, and dare I say it, in the elemental nations," replied Minato with a wide smile before tossing a scroll towards Naruto, who nodded before throwing his own scroll to the clone, which then read the contents before giving a small nod. "Seems like another C rank completed. Good job Naruto, I'll have a toad come and gain the documents in a couple of minutes. You are clear to continue with your new mission Naruto. But remember to feel free to request any help should you encounter anything too difficult for yourself," finished off Minato with a smile before disappearing in a puff of smoke, leaving Naruto alongside an elder and grumpy man who was now glaring towards Naruto. "What the hell is thinking? Why in the world should someone as super as myself have to be stuck with a brat who probably couldn't fight off a little paper bag?" shouted the man in anger as he crossed his arms. "I should have gone to Kumo. Screw it being a longer trip, at least I would have a super good protection squad," replied the man in anger and sadness, only to get smacked in the head by the elder as he gave the fisher-looking guy a glare. "I don't know what your problem is, young man. But the sheer fact you seem to be snubbing off your protection isn't exactly a very good way of forming a connection that would warrant any form of protection. And as for this child fighting off a paper bag, he had just saved all the women and children that had been kidnapped over a week ago by a multitude of bandits raging between the tens to hundreds. If that doesn't convince you then I don't know what will," grumbled the elder as he glared into the man's eyes, of which slowly began to fall as he glanced over towards Naruto once again. Is that true kid? Because with all the luck me and my village has been having, we could use a miracle child," replied the man tiredly, getting a small smile from Naruto who shook his head before giving a soft smile towards the man. "I can tell. You just look the part of a man trying to save a dying village with all that you are. Don't worry. I can guarantee you that I can protect you from just about anything. So put your faith in me," spoke Naruto with a smile as he held his hand out towards the fisher-like man, who gave a small resigned smile before shaking Naruto's hand. "I, along with my village, will be in your care then kid. The name's Tazuna by the way," replied the man, getting a nod from Naruto as he turned his head slightly towards the direction of the wave. "Very well Tazuna-san. I'll make sure to live up to your super expectations by taking care of not only you, but your village as well. Speaking of which, we aren't all that far from your village, maybe another hour of travel should I carry you there," replied Naruto, getting a small nod from the man. Before he gave the small blonde a stare. "And how do you propose to carry me there?" asked the man, only to get a grin from Naruto. "Oh you know. This way and that. 1 hour later, see Tazuna-san? That wasn't so bad," chuckled out Naruto as he watched Tazuna simply glare at him as he sat on the ground while taking in a deep breath at the sheer speed the small kid had gone when running. "Kid. If you ever quit the ninja business, go into races. I'll be betting on you each and every time," replied the man in a tired voice before lying flat against the ground, with Naruto simply giving a chuckle out as he shrugged his shoulders. "Nah, it would be too unfair for anyone versing me in a test of speed," remarked Naruto briefly before glancing over towards the large body of water that separated both him and Tazuna from the wave village. And considering he felt a large chakra source nearby, Naruto decided now was the time to continue on their way. Moving himself up from his sitting position, the teen held his hand out towards Tazuna with a small smirk. "Well, since we're not too far out from the village, I guess you can stomach me carrying you again for a bit longer?" asked Naruto in a cheeky tone, getting a small groan in return before the man grasped Naruto's hand before being tugged up by the teen, who then placed the man in a piggyback position before giving out a resigned sigh. "Oh kid," mumbled the man in irritation, only to feel the sudden feeling of wind brushing his face as the slight splatter of water droplets hitting his ankles as he slowly opened his eyes to watch Naruto running across the water. Shaking his head at the unbelievable sight, the man fell silent as he watched his village come closer and closer before finally Naruto jumped up high into the air before landing on a railing of an incomplete bridge. Having people who were working give him a startled look, the blonde-haired teen simply gave a small wave while placing down Tazuna onto the concrete floor. "Hi there. Genin Naruto Hayabusa, reporting for duty," spoke Naruto with a tiny salute, only to sweat drop as everyone seemed to simply stare at him in silence. That was until Tazuna coughed into his hand, drawing everyone's attention as he pointed over towards Naruto. "This brat is our protection. Now, I know he doesn't look like much, but believe me. This kid could even put Super Ninja in their places, from what I heard via brat, so we can now continue on with building the bridge with super protection," spoke Tazuna with a thumbs up and smile. Only to watch as a few people seemed to drop what they were working on before walking away, startling the super bridge builder in silence, before one of the workers who were leaving stopped and gave Tazuna a glare. "You know how we scraped whatever we could so you could get us a real shinobi group to protect us, and yet, you crushed our hope Tazuna with this brat. Gato will kill us by the end of the week. Look, we have families and we can't risk so much just for a small blonde-haired brat to protect us." "I'm sorry," replied the man, walking away from the group of workers who now had similar thoughts in their heads. Before the sound of a cough escaped Naruto's throat, giving everyone's attention towards him. Still sitting crouched on the bridge's railing, Naruto shook his head before placing his hands into certain hand signs. "Had you cage Bunshin no," shouted the teen as in a flurry of seconds, the entire bridge was soon occupied with white-jacketed Narutos, who each began to grab a multitude of tools with smirks upon their faces. Feigning a similar smirk to his own clones, Naruto gave a small wink towards the workers. "Believe what you want about me. Whether your pride won't let you believe a kid like myself can handle any threats you seem to warrant for trying to live your own lives. But I promise, I can and will protect everyone within this village. And while I'm at it, I might as well use my construction skills to help you all out. So what do you say?" questioned Naruto rhetorically as everyone stood stunned at Naruto's brief speech. Before a few began to let out large smiles while moving their eyes over towards Tazuna. "Okay boss. What's the plan?" questioned the men as they watched Tazuna gain a wide smile himself. "Continuing what we were previously doing, each person here takes 5 brats here to help them on their project, meanwhile the rest of the kids' clones will help further the progress. Let's get moving people. The bridge could possibly be completed in a few days if we push for it," shouted Tazuna, causing a roar of cheers to run through the one silent bridge before everyone began to move to their own jobs, clones of Naruto following behind and offering assistance whenever possible. Sitting off to the side, Naruto gave a small smile before secretly sending off over 20 shadow clones to monitor and protect the village as a whole. Gato and his men, whoever they are, wouldn't be able to do anything but sit and pray he doesn't find them. A few hours later, Tazuna could only gape alongside his diligent workers as they stood and stared at the bridge they were working on. Previously, the bridge had been just a little over halfway completed, and that was with over a month of work pushed into it secretly so as to not draw any attention over towards themselves from Gato. But now, the bridge was stretching far and wide, perfect in its creation as it neared the mainland already. Screw completing the bridge in a couple of days, the Brad and his clones were just as good, if not slightly worse, than each worker was with tools, and considering there was over 100 of them, perfectly working in sync with each other and the main workers, the bridge now was over 90% completed. In fact, should they continue a couple more hours, it would be completed. And considering the kid looked nowhere near tired, he was tempted to have everyone continue working to finish the bridge off once and for all. But the rest of the guys were just human, and even he was feeling the effects of the day. Shaking his head, Tazuna gave everyone a small nod before waving them off. "Alright, that's enough work for everyone today. Tomorrow, we will finally finish the bridge that will give us our hope to prosper and escape from Gato's thumb and influence. Tomorrow, we build our freedom." shouted Tazuna once again, drawing a rowdy cheer from amongst the workers as they soon traveled down their long bridge back to their homes, leaving one Naruto Hayabusa and Tazuna to themselves as they slowly trailed behind the majority of the workers who slowly started to disappear into the night. The two didn't speak at work for a long portion of the walk, with Tazuna already offering Naruto his residence to rest while on the mission, which Naruto happily accepted at the time. And as the two walked, eventually Naruto decided to break the silence. Glancing over, Naruto gave a rather small cough, gaining Tazuna's eyes, before staring straight ahead of him once more. Tazuna-san. Could you perhaps tell me the location of where Gato resides? Because, while I do believe the bridge is a good idea, he could simply use it to his advantage by possibly making a toll there, thus restricting the movement of the villagers, who don't seem well off at all, thus resulting in an even larger isolation as anything involving trade with other countries and villages would be directed through him. So, do you know anything about Gato's location? Asked Naruto in a slight whisper, knowing that he had just shaken Tazuna's hope in the bridge for a few moments as a realization came towards him. You're right. As long as Gato is here, he could possibly take over the bridge in a matter of hours, there wouldn't have been any point at the end of it if he's still able to do that. Kid. Do you really think you can do it? Asked Tazuna in a whisper, getting a nod from Naruto as he walked through the night. Yes. From what I heard from some of the other workers through my clones, I believe that Gato only hires mercenaries and not any high-ranking ones either. Because of this, I should easily be able to easily dispatch him within the hour of when I find his location. Returned Naruto with a confident nod as he didn't remember all the information regarding Team 7's mission back in his reality where he had slightly heard of the wave. Hesitating for a single moment, Tazuna let out a tired drawn-out sigh before slipping a hand into his pocket and pulling out a small piece of paper, which had been scorched slightly in the corner of its yellow paper-like appearance. Passing the piece of paper to Naruto, Tazuna let another tired sigh out before giving the kid a nod. Back a few years ago, there was a man in the village who had become close to my family. In fact, he had actually married my daughter, Tsunami, finally giving my grandson a real father of his own. Spoke Tazuna in a happy tone, something that Naruto could only let out a sad smile at as he knew enough of these stories to know what was coming. Lowering his head, Tazuna continued with his story, his reading glasses slipping down his nose slightly. The man was named Kaiser. And he was a hero to the village. He had saved Inari's life back when the little Gaki was younger and ever since looked up to him. But then, he, Kaiser, stood up against Gato, who publicly executed him after cutting both Kaiser's arms off, to which he mocked Kaiser's saying of protecting the things you love with these two arms. Muttered Tazuna softly, getting a small smile from Naruto as he looked up towards the sky. Let me guess. Inari was at the execution. And it changed his view of the world, right? Asked Naruto rhetorically as he watched Tazuna nod. Yeah. He used to be a ball of sunshine, a real thinker for his age too. But now, he doesn't believe in heroes or miracles anymore after Kaiser's death. Groaned out Tazuna sadly as he came upon the side of his home. However, before he could reach the doorknob, Naruto quickly grabbed his wrist softly, directing the old man's attention towards himself. Giving a small smile, the teen opened his mouth. Tazuna-san. Do you have anything left of Kaiser-san's possessions? Something he has had the most time with? Questioned Naruto, getting a small stare from the man as he looked towards the Genin's crimson red eyes. Why would you need something like that? Asked the man in a serious tone, getting a smile from Naruto as he shook his head. Let's just say. I'm a miracle worker. Grinned out Naruto as he soon got a small nod from Tazuna as Naruto then let go of his wrist, allowing the man to open the door and let the two in. Humming into the house, Naruto couldn't help but smile as the scent of fresh cooking hit his nose before he followed alongside Tazuna, who cupped a hand around his mouth. Tsunami. How's it going, oh lovable daughter of mine? Shouted the man, getting a startled gasp from what appeared to be the main living area and kitchen combo, soon followed by the sounds of some pots crashing onto the ground. Entering the wide open space with like yellow-colored walls, Naruto couldn't help but let out a small whistle at the place for a moment before coming upon the sight of Tsunami. No was instantly hugging her father in joy. You're back too, San. How did you get back so quick? You left only a week ago, I thought you would be back in another week. Chirped the woman happily as she let go of her father before moving back a bit before noticing Naruto. Glancing up slightly at Naruto's height, which was only a few inches above her own, Tsunami couldn't help but ask who the tall preteen was. Giving a small smile, Naruto gave her a small wave. Hello there, Tsunami-san. My name is Naruto Hayabusa. The Genin was issued to protect your father while building the bridge. Which should be done tomorrow if I have my clones help out again. Responded Naruto, getting a small wide-eyed stare from Tsunami before she gave a wider smile while directing both Naruto and her father towards the dinner table to sit themselves down. Thank you for what you are doing, Naruto-kun. Dinner will just be a moment, I have to quickly grab my son Inari if that's fine. spoke Tsunami in a friendly tone, getting a small nod from Naruto as he glanced over towards Tazuna for a moment, who now held what appeared to be a rope headband, before glancing back towards Tsunami. If it's fine with you Tsunami-san, would you be able to make another bowl, so 5 instead of 4? I have a surprise that I'm sure you and your son will appreciate. Asked Naruto, getting a curious stare from Tsunami for a moment before she gave a small nod while walking off, leaving Naruto and Tazuna alone at the table for a few seconds, before Naruto gave a small smile while holding onto the headband. Moving his eyes over to Tazuna, who was resting his jaw in the palm of his hand, which had been wedged against the dark brown oak table, Naruto let out a small sigh. Tazuna-san. I must ask you to keep what I'm going to do completely secret. No one, and I mean no one, must know that I can do what I can. Should it happen, I fear what length others would go through to try and mimic my abilities and skills, better yet cause harm to others in an attempt to get to me. Responded Naruto, softly breaking his eyes from the headband before staring into Tazuna's eyes with a clear display of seriousness. Listening to the kid, Tazuna gave a small nod. However, before he could vocalize his promise, Inari and Tsunami came down the stairs from the second story of the building. Giving a wide smile towards the duo, Naruto pushed himself up from the dinner table seat that he was presented with before moving towards the center of the living room before clapping his hands together. Staring at Inari for a moment, Naruto gave a wide smile. Hello there Inari. My name is Naruto Hayabusa, a genin from who has assigned me to protect your grandfather from Gato and his cronies. Now, before you interrupt, I know of your history and I must ask. If Kaiser was here, would he really want you to act the way you are? Asked Naruto, instantly making the room fall silent before the little kid, who hadn't even been there for over 2 minutes, glared hatefully at Naruto. Don't you dare. You're just a kid like me. What can you do against Gato? He's invincible and anyone who fights against him will die. You have signed your own death protecting Gigi. Shouted the kid with anger surging from his form, causing Naruto to sigh before he placed Kaiser's possession onto the floor. Clapping his hands, Naruto gave the kid and Tsunami a small smile. I heard from your grandfather you don't believe in miracles or heroes. Well today, I'm proving you wrong. I am something akin to a miracle incarnate. Now, I want you to witness something that will change how you think of this world and I want you to remember. Everyone's a hero on the inside. If they have something they want to protect, then they will always have the strength to protect that precious person and or persons. Spoke to Naruto in a wise tone. Before he suddenly had a surge of gold and silver energies escape from his body before moving into the item that Naruto placed on the floor. Feigning a bit of sweat on his forehead, the teen continued to talk as he shut his eyes. Normally, I wouldn't do this for anyone, or rather I fear what could happen. But this man, Kaiser, sounds like a man who should not have been taken away from this planet as early as he should have. Now, aside from me not normally doing this, it is something that even I am struggling to achieve. And you will know why in a bit. Remarked Naruto as he felt a bead of sweat drop down over his shut left eye before trailing down onto his cheek. Yin-yang style. Return of the dead. Groaned out Naruto as suddenly the room erupted in a giant flash of light. Within moments of the sudden light show, a tired groan was heard from the floor, a voice that left both Inari, Tsunami and even Tazuna in a shocked state as their vision returned to them. There, laying on the floor, was the body of a man they had seen kicked over the edge of a small bridge and into the unforgiving depths of the sea. They laid Kaiser, now slowly pushing himself up into a sitting position, his body covered in clothing similar to Tazuna's type as he blinked his eyes in shock. Inari. Tsunami-chan. Old man. Is that really you? Asked the man in a soft tone, watching as the family seemed to freeze in silence. Before the sarcastic tone of Naruto broke through. Tada. Miracle am I right? Asked a tired and sweating Naruto as he had one eye slightly shut while another one was slowly dropping down as well. Inari, who had been staring at this for over a few minutes, did something that any child his age would do should their loved one return from the dead in front of their eyes. Pass out. A few hours later, it wasn't too long afterwards that the now entire family had their very first dinner together in years, with the addition of Naruto seemingly destroying his food as to refuel his yin and yang energies, which had taken a massive hit as he hypothesized that even with his yin and yang energies being as now overly high as they were, he simply couldn't revive those past 3 days dead without any specific item that the original person had of great importance, and even then, the drain is by far something that wasn't natural. Honestly, Naruto didn't think he would be reviving people unless they were killed just there in front of him. He didn't want to try to imagine the sort of drain that it would take to revive 2 people who had been dead longer than 3 days without an item to resonate with their soul. It was because of this that he had to sorrowfully reject Azuna on reviving his dead wife, who had passed away over 10 years ago. The man, listening to Naruto's reasoning, accepted that and thanked Naruto for all that he had done. He wasn't the only however as both Kaiser and Tsunami themselves seemed to glow with joy as they continuously pampered Naruto with praises, boosting his tiny ego by a bit. However, the one that made the most impact was Inari himself, as he looked up to Naruto as someone who couldn't fail in anything anymore. However, when Naruto declined Inari's belief, he shocked the room by saying that Nai-san, I believe that you will always do anything. In such a tone Naruto himself couldn't help but blush. After telling the family he had to change Kaiser's appearance slightly so people didn't question how he was alive again, Naruto had quickly applied a seal that would permanently change his appearance, something that had startled Inari and his family slightly before they gave their go-ahead. And in a matter of moments, Kaiser looked only a touch different. While originally he had a strong jawline and short black hair, he now had short brownish hair, alongside a more pointy jaw, with his once strong tan complexion turning into a paler shade. While he didn't look too overly different, most wouldn't be able to distinguish him from the Kaiser they saw executed to the current man he was now. After having done that, Naruto excused himself from the table before explaining what he was going to do, which was finally take out Gato. Something the family had looked concerned about, however, before Naruto left, he instantly dashed their fears away with one of his friendly smiles before summoning a group of shadow clones to look after the place while he left. And in a flash, the blonde-haired child disappeared into the night, not knowing that as he moved, he was being prayed for by a very thankful family who would never forget the things that Naruto had done for them. And as he ran towards the direction of Gato's base, the teen couldn't help but narrow his crimson eyes. I'm coming for you, Gato. Chapter 12. Zabuza. Why is it I don't have the bridge builder's head on my desk already? It's been over a single day since your tools, as you like to call them, haven't even reported seeing the blasted old man once he entered Konoha. Shouted a small midget of a man as he glared hatefully behind his glasses up towards a tall imposing figure, of which was now sending small amounts of killer intent directly into his boss. Relaxing against the wall, Zabuza gave the small man a disinterested look for a moment before looking up towards the ceiling. How fast do you actually believe that the assassination of the bridge builder would be? Not only does the man have to go to set up a mission, but then he must select a team of shinobi to carry out the mission. At most, the old bridge builder could possibly only get a small genin team with a jonin sensei to support them. If not at all from what you have told me. Grunted out Zabuza, getting another snort from the midget as he sank further into his brown leather chair in his plain lavender office. Moving his hands to that of an evil dictator, the man gained a wide smile. Well then, I should only have to wait somewhere between a week for the delivery of the head, right? Questioned Gato, mentally having his mind whirling at his rather ingenious plan. That's right, Zabuza. Believe I have no clue as to how a shinobi system is run. Then, as soon as the jonin and genin brats arrive, hopefully you can take them out, which would then allow me to take you out. 2 bounties for 2 ninja gives me quite the sum of money, doesn't it? Kukuku. Stupid demon. Thought the short man with his grin widening across his face briefly. Before the door suddenly slammed open, a man ran into the room heaving with bloodshot eyes as he gasped helplessly for breath. Ichikai killed them all. He's coming for us. Screamed the hysterical man as he charged at Gato, only to feel his body sliced in 2 from the chest, leaving the upper and lower part of the body of the man to split and fall onto the ground, Zabuza simply giving a tiny raise of his brow towards Gato, who narrowed his eyes. Deal with it. Muttered Gato, his composition not wavering from the sudden interruption of his dead mercenary. Getting a small nod, Zabuza turned his head and body towards the door. Haku, let's go. Spoke the man in a clear tone, confusing Gato as he suddenly felt a small shiver run along his spine as he watched a masked teen appear from the back corner of his room. Hi Zabuza-sama. Muttered the masked individual as they followed along their boss with little to no hesitation. And as the two left, Gato let out a sick and twisted smile out onto his face as he reached into his pocket. But Naruto, really? Is this all you chumps have? I'm kinda disappointed here, you know. Groaned out aboard Naruto as his crimson eyes stared towards the small platoon of goons standing in front of him with a lazy smile laid against his face. It hadn't taken him too long to find the place, in fact, it would take only an idiot to miss the base due to its giant size. A lot of trees in the area were cut down in odd positions, revealing where people were located within. And for a ninja like Naruto, who could simply climb a tall tree to find out where the large amount of trees and clearings were taking out from, it didn't make his job all that much harder. In fact, it was remarkably that much easier finding Gato and his goons. Which brings him to his current situation. With the goons who were now pissing themselves as he calmly walked towards them with a look of pure sadistic boredom. Hey, wasn't he allowed to have some fun torturing the people behind the wave's suffering? Gaining a small glint in his eyes, the blonde-haired teen continued to trudge forwards, carefully avoiding the dead bodies of other bandits he had destroyed on his way. Raising his hands up, the teen gave out a mock-saddened smile. Oh, you guys crack me up. Honestly, the whole "will kill you" brat. Just minutes before turning into "please don't kill us." For hired weapons, you truly are despicable. Muttered Naruto with a dark look as he watched a single goon start to edge himself backwards towards the forest. And as he did, he suddenly found Naruto standing behind him, having disappeared from the front of the group with a kunai now firmly dug into the man's kidney before a burst of wind chakra swept into the blade, leaving a visible white blade of energy sticking out from the man. Before he suddenly was split into two with a simple slash of the blade within Naruto's grasp. Waiting patiently in silence as the now three mercenaries stared at him with looks of horror on their faces, Naruto gave a dark glare towards the trio, his crimson eyes burning into their minds for a moment. Before they too dropped dead, foam escaped through their mouths as the team continued to glare at the corpses laid on the ground. "Scum," muttered Naruto softly as he turned his head towards the direction of Gato's base of operations, or at least the direction he remembered it being. "I'm coming for you, bastard," groaned out Naruto as he began to stalk towards the direction of the building, his eyes seemingly peering through the trees and bushes and directly towards the building's main entrance. Before he suddenly widened his eyes for a moment and dashing backwards, watching as a massive sword seemingly dug itself into the ground he was standing at. Narrowing his eyes, the teen gained a small smirk as he watched as a dog suddenly began to surround himself. Giving a small nod, the teen let out a small chuckle. Before clapping his hands together. "Wind style." Gale Palm spoke Naruto with a small grin on his face as he pushed the mist away, only to duck into a crouch as a large blade, which he previously saw wedged into the ground, now sailing above his head with a tall muscular man standing above him with a narrowed gaze. Before he suddenly swung his sword above his head before bringing it down towards Naruto. Pushing himself into a roll, the teen quickly began to get back up onto his feet, only to seemingly twist himself slightly as a small thin needle passed by underneath his armpit. And it was because of this minor distraction, the teen got a good old boot to the face, sending him flying towards a tree, which his back smashed against. "What the hell is a lone Genin doing out here? I can't even sense anyone else aside from the brat," grumbled Zabuza as he walked up towards the blonde-haired teenager on the ground before bringing his sword back down with a slash, not even caring about who the brat was. Naruto, who was slightly dazed on the ground, could only widen his eyes. Before his head was soon lopped off, sending a geyser of blood spewing out from his detached neck. Giving the beheaded body a small stare, Zabuza turned his attention towards the trees around him. "Aku, go tell Gato that the person who had attacked him is dead now," remarked the man, truly disappointed by how quick his encounter was. Before he suddenly widened his eyes as he felt a massive explosion erupt from in front of him. "Zabuza-sama. But the real Naruto. So Gato, do you have anything you have to say before I kill you?" Questioned a stoic Naruto as his crimson eyes burned into the petrified midget's form, which was being suspended from the ground by Naruto himself, as his wide-open jack swayed slightly from a tiny burst of his chakra. Hands wrapped against Naruto's lone hand in an attempt to free himself, Gato could only let out a tear and a choked sob out as he felt the teen's fingers dig into his throat. "PP please. Let me go. I'll do anything," whimpered out the man as Naruto's crimson eyes bore into his head for a few moments. Before suddenly, the teen gained a grin. "Have fun, Kurama," muttered Naruto whilst still holding on to Gato's form. Which suddenly stilled itself as blood began to flow from beneath the man's glasses that covered his eyes as his body twitches and spasms slightly before suddenly becoming still and unmoving. Tilting his head a bit at the corpse he now held, the teen let out a small sigh. Before twisting the body in his hand so that it was facing away from him before suddenly slamming it straight into a wall. Which began to open as a seal beamed against the man's face. Not a few moments later, did a massive hidden room soon appear in front of Naruto, who of which then threw Gato's remains into one of the corners of the room, not caring all that much for it, as Naruto entered the hidden room, which looked more like a massive chamber filled to the brim with documents and other items of value, like gold and more. Positioning his hands into a cross-like hand sign, Naruto summoned two clones before sending them in to seal all of the chamber's contents, making sure to categorize everything before they were done. Betting the memories of his exploding clones, along with a slight headache from the explosion part, the teen couldn't help but blink as one of the clones had fought against Zabuza Mamachi, the demon of the mist. Shit. He just had an exploding clone blow up an A-rank shinobi. He was going to get into a fight with a guy now who probably escaped the blast with little to no injuries. "And you're concerned now for what reason?" questioned Kurama, getting a small huff from Naruto as he crossed his arms mentally. "Well, it's not like I actively want to start fighting high-rank shinobi left, right and center, you know. I mean, I do want to be recognized as a very powerful shinobi, but if I have to fight Zabuza, I would have to win, which means to either make him retreat or kill him. And if news got out I managed to fight an A-rank missing nin to a standstill, that would draw a lot of attention. While also probably making them keep me back in the village for even thinking about engaging, even if I could already fight Kakashi to a good degree." Thought Naruto with a small sigh as he watched his two clones move towards him with a single scroll between the two. Holding his wrist out, Naruto watched as the scroll with all the items sealed within got sucked up into a transparent seal on his white jacket's wrist before giving a small sigh as he turned his back towards the open door behind him where he could feel a massive killing intent directed at him. And lo and behold, there stood Zabuza, his mask burnt off and his face placed in an angry scowl. Wincing slightly, Naruto gave a small wave. Sup. Outside the building. You brat. I'll kill you. Screamed a ferocious voice as it chased a smaller white and blonde form of which was bouncing from tree to tree in order to lose his pursuer. Twisting in midair after dodging a kunai, Naruto glared hatefully towards the angry man before raising his hands up to his mouth. Fire style. Fireball, shouted the teen, spewing forth a massive fireball towards Zabuza, who then quickly drew back his sword before swinging it forwards, cutting through the technique with ease. Of course, Naruto's sweat dropped at that, considering if he used his actual version of the Zabuza, would have been burned from the attack. He's probably shit on your corpse if you let him live, you know. Muttered Kurama in Naruto's Mindscape, watching as the teen did the splits in midair as the massive sword of Zabuza flew from between his legs and sliced through a few trees in front of him. I can tell. Thought Naruto with a small irritated twitch as he watched Zabuza appear where his sword had landed before charging at him with his sword. Being midair, Naruto quickly threw his palm towards the ground before shooting out a massive burst of wind chakra, sending him above Zabuza once more. However, this also made him miss the tree he was attempting to land on, thus causing his form to roll against the floor, being shifting into a running stance with Zabuza still hot on Naruto's trail. Gritting his teeth, the teen finally had enough, so, using a small shunshin, Naruto appeared outside of the forest, showing the large clearing that was just in front of the large bridge that was already near completion. Turning around towards the forest, Naruto began to rummage through a set of hand signs before clapping his hands against the ground below. Earth style. Swamp of the underworld. Shouted the teen, causing the ground to suddenly sink and turn into sludge, enveloping the majority of the earth in front of the bridge. And like a charm, a rage-induced Zabuza began to fall directly towards the ground covered in mud. However, before he made impact, a sudden sight of pure white ice materialized itself in front of Zabuza's form, and as he fell a person soon shot out of the ice-like mirror, taking both themselves out of the range of Naruto's. Twitching at that, the teen went through another set of hand signs before the earth shifted itself back into its regular flat surface. Rolling his shoulders slightly, Naruto watched as the masked individual helped up their teammate before moving to stand beside them. Gritting his teeth, Zabuza drew in a steady breath for a moment before stretching his neck. Brat. For not only costing me my job and my future goal. You are going to die. But, I will give you this, for alone Genin you are powerful. Maybe even at the level of my tool Haku here. Tell me. What is your name before I kill you? Questioned the man in a deathly tone, getting a small sigh from Naruto as he rolled his shoulders slightly before moving into a fighting position with a single kunai held in reverse grip in his left hand. Making his eyes shine within the early morning, Naruto grinned slightly. Naruto Hayabusa. Shinobi of, and the ninja that will bring peace to this world. Responded Naruto in a strong and passionate tone, getting a small smirk from the man with shark-like teeth. Very well then. Naruto. It seems that your goal to bring peace to the world ends here. Screamed Zabuza, charging towards Naruto with Haku, the masked individual, who had soon disappeared into another ice mirror. Gritting his teeth, Naruto charged towards Zabuza, his kunai in his hand glowing pure white as the wind around the blade seems distorted from how much wind chakra was running through the piece of metal. Screamed Naruto as he threw his kunai in front of him in its reversed grip, soon clashing with Zabuza's own sword as sparks began to fly from the teen and adult's clash. Zabuza, who was taller than the teen, couldn't help but grin as he felt the resistance the blonde-haired kid put against his own strength, something that intrigued him a small bit as he slowly added more and more strength into his slash, only for Naruto to replicate himself and add more and more resistance. However, there was one thing Naruto didn't have. And that was a certain ice-release shinobi who could appear from mirror to mirror and throw ice weapons. And that's exactly what happened as during the clash, the ice nin moved around the clearing before flinging waves of ice directly towards Naruto, whom of which quickly flicked his wrist, sending both his and Zabuza's weapons to the side, which in turn had allowed Naruto to use Zabuza's oversized weapon as a shield, protecting him from the ice thrown towards him. Grinning towards the Kiri ninja, Naruto twisted himself once more, sending a backhand towards Zabuza's ribs, only to feel his wrist impact against a man's leg before he himself got backhanded across the head, sending him away from Zabuza's taller form. Moving into a roll whilst going through hand signs, Naruto quickly pushed himself up before gaining a slight bulge in his cheeks before aiming his head towards Zabuza. Water style. Gunshot. Shouted the teen as he spurted over 3 large-sized summon water balls, something that made Zabuza widen his eyes as he began to dodge to the side, only to suddenly come across another Naruto, who was grinning all the while. Oh, this Naruto also had his cheek slightly bulging. Higher style. Fireball. Groaned out the other Naruto as he spurted a massive fireball directly at Zabuza, who quickly brought his sword up as a shield, which then exploded on impact, sending him away from Naruto and across the field, only to be caught by Haku once more. The then had appeared behind Naruto in a blink of an eye, stabbing the teen in the back of the knee with an ice before twisting around and sending a snapping kick towards the original Naruto's head. Before he suddenly exploded, sending the ice user in another direction from where Zabuza was now. You know. If it wasn't for me being able to swap my place with my clone so quickly, I'm pretty sure you would easily do much more damage to me than I would like to admit. Spoke Naruto as he stood on another edge of the clearing, his eyes watching both Zabuza and his accomplice Haku, whose mask now held a small fracture from the bottom corner. Cracking his neck a bit, Naruto let in a slow breath of air enter his lungs as he slowly shut his eyes. Before snapping them wide open, revealing his crimson eyes once more, only this time, his pupil seemed slightly sharpened, something akin to a fox's pupil, before he grinned widely. "Bikuzo?" Screamed the blonde-haired teen as he disappeared in a flurry of wind, catching the two older and experienced ninjas slightly off guard. Zabuza suddenly blocked a solid punch across his cheek, before another Naruto appeared and kicked him across the head. Unlucky for Haku, this was also happening too, as the ice ninja was getting a barrage of multiple copies of Naruto, of whom were a lot more durable than regular shadow clones. Gritting his teeth, Zabuza quickly moved into a spiraling motion, dragging his long blade with him as he sliced anything around him, before quickly jumping back onto the ocean water, Naruto hot on his heels with a hand now holding onto an explosive kunai that was being charged. And with a twist of his wrist, Naruto sent the kunai flying. Before he let out a wide grin. "Kunai Kage Bunshin." Shouted out Naruto in a powerful tone, where the once lone explosive kunai was now heading towards Zabuza was surrounded by hundreds of similar copies. Which all went off at the same time as Zabuza finished a set of hand signs. "Water style. Water dragon." Replied Zabuza as a massive torrent of water escaped from the ocean below the shinobi's sandals, before the formless water took shape into that of a massive dragon as it smashed into the barrage of kunai that exploded on contact. Widening his eyes, Naruto raised his arms up towards his chest before feeling the torrent of water crashing into his form, sending him up higher and higher, before seemingly swallowing him in its mouth before changing direction from the sky to the ground. And as he watched the earth come closer, Naruto narrowed his eyes as he watched a dragon's form still connected with the water down below. Shutting his eyes, Naruto began to shift his chakra within his body for a moment. Before snapping his eyes open, sending a massive thunderstorm of electricity through the dragon and back into the ocean below, where a now screaming Zabuza was heard. Feeling the water around him lose its shape, Naruto quickly began to weave a few hand signs once more before exploding a massive barrier of chakra around him. "Water style. Water vortex." Shouted the teen once more as he directed the water he was falling with into a vortex-like beam which he sent towards Zabuza's partner Haku, who didn't have enough time to dodge the attack as it smashed them into the ground, their forms seemingly going limp from unconsciousness. Finally landing onto the ground below, Naruto glanced up from his crouched position towards Zabuza, who was now more or less a massive paralyzed mess, before standing up and shaking his head a bit. "You know, Zabuza-san. You and your partner could have easily left me alone after having your employer die by my hand. You didn't need to endanger yourself and or your partner for anything." Replied Naruto out loud, getting a small grunt from the man as he tried to walk onto the ground, only to fall flat against the water's surface, his chakra seemingly keeping him above the water's surface. Lifting his head up from the water, Zabuza gave a shark-like grin as blood seeped down from his mouth. "You don't know what lengths I would go to be able to save my village, kid. I know. You had taken everything. That tyrant had owned it. That would have easily helped me save my village from my own tyrant." Groaned out Zabuza as he felt more blood spill from his mouth, only to watch as the blonde-haired kid suddenly got surrounded by what appeared to be tens of Kiri shinobis, all seemingly rank as their masks identified them. Tilting his head, Naruto looked behind him towards the shinobi that decided to drop by, before scratching his head. "From what I remember, Kiri was in a civil war right now, wasn't he? What was the reason?" Asked Naruto in a curious tone, only to watch as the shinobi stalked towards him with their swords drawn. Giving another blank look, the teen shrugged his shoulders. Before tapping his foot to the earth, where suddenly, the ground began to glow in a bright color, blinding all before they suddenly found themselves dug into the earth, slowly seeping into the ground as Naruto's first original technique, the swamp of the underworld, seemed to appear. Feigning a grin, Naruto shook his head as he let out a small sigh. "And I thought Anbu was supposed to be smart. Of course, it seems like the rumors were true, and it seems that you will all die now. Kaio." Spoke Naruto in a chirpy tone, watching as the one silent squad began screaming as the ground swallowed them whole. Turning his attention towards Zabuza, the teen shook his head once more before walking up towards his limp form. Crouching down so that his eyes were slightly eye level with Zabuza's, Naruto gave a crimson-eyed stare. "We need to talk." 3 days later. Minato could only stare towards the document in his hand before glancing up towards a silent but nervous Naruto, who was scratching the back of his head as he avoided eye contact with who then glanced over towards his son's side, where a tall, black-haired teenage girl stood beside him with a small but pleasant smile. Returning his eyes back to Naruto, Minato let out a tired groan. "Please tell me what you just said again." "Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoy it. Turn on that bell notification. Like, subscribe and comment down below. And also check out the others videos I have created and enjoyed it. See you guys next video.